Chapter 4806. The source-level divine weapon darted left and right, wanting to rush out. However, Lu Ming's taboo power erupted. His palms suddenly grabbed the source-level divine weapon with force and he put it into the ancient desolation ring. At the same time, Xianyanqing, Bone Demon, Qiuqiu, Lion, and one of the strongest devil kings also took control of a source-grade divine weapon. Seeing this, the eyes of the celestial race members turned red with envy. Those were 6 source-grade divine weapons. In the blink of an eye, they were in the Heaven Destroyer's pocket. It would be strange if they didn't feel jealous. Therefore they rushed over with all their might. Hand over the source-grade divine weapons. The Heavenly Lord of Extermination, the Heavenly Lord of 100 Battles, and the others roared. They led 2 forbidden puppets and 4 primitive puppets and charged toward Lu Ming and the others, launching a terrifying attack. Scram! Lu Ming roared. He instantly activated the battle symbol art to increase his battle prowess by 9 times. His war god spear swept out and collided with the Lord of Heaven's attack. A loud explosion rang out and the 2 of them retreated at the same time. However, the Lord of Heaven felt a little guilty. When he thought of how Lu Ming killed 3 of the strongest Lord of Heaven's experts, he felt a chill in his heart. How would he dare to continue fighting with Lu Ming? He roared, "You 2 deal with him." The 2 forbidden puppets joined forces and attacked Lu Ming. One of them used a battle spear while the other used a long sword. They attacked Lu Ming from 2 directions. Their attacks were crazy and the void was constantly shattered. Lu Ming didn't dare to be careless. His war god spear trembled and he stabbed out twice, blocking the attacks of the 2 forbidden puppets. However, Lu Ming's body shook violently, and he was forced back by the powerful force. What a powerful force. It's the purest form of taboo energy. Lu Ming thought. These 2 taboo puppets were genuine taboo bodies. They possessed pure taboo power and possessed astonishing power. Lu Ming felt that in terms of pure strength, the 2 forbidden puppets were above the Lord of Heaven. It was just that they were a little slow in using it and were not flexible enough. When they attacked at the same time, their battle awareness was not strong enough. After all, they no longer had their own spiritual consciousness and had been refined into puppets. If they were all normal, they would not be any weaker than Gu Changfeng. Lu Ming sighed in his heart. These 2 were absolutely stunning geniuses. In their respective eras, they were absolutely stunning characters. Unfortunately, they ended up like this. At the same time, he warned himself that he absolutely could not let himself end up like this. With 2 growls, the 2 forbidden puppets charged towards Lu Ming. However, this time, Lu Ming did not plan to fight the 2 forbidden puppets head-on. Instead, he fought the 2 forbidden puppets using guerrilla tactics. In terms of strength, the 2 forbidden puppets were indeed above the Lord of Heaven. However, their battle awareness was poor, and their movements were a little slow. Therefore, their overall combat strength was about the same as the Lord of Heaven. Lu Ming's body flashed and turned into numerous afterimages. He circled around the 2 forbidden puppets, thrusting out spear radiance and tangling with the 2 forbidden puppets. The 2 forbidden puppets could not do anything to Lu Ming for the time being. If they are at the same level, their taboo power should not be as strong as mine. As he fought, Lu Ming thought. He compared his taboo power to his opponent's taboo power and thought about his own taboo power. Lu Ming was confident that if his cultivation reached the peak of the Almighty Realm, his taboo power would definitely be above the 2 forbidden puppets. If he cultivated the 3000th ancient secret skill, his taboo power would be even more powerful. Obviously, be it the 2 forbidden puppets or Gu Changfeng, they did not have as many secret skills as Lu Ming did in their cells. This was normal. After all, Lu Ming controlled the ancient divine stone and could continuously develop secret skills. Other people did not have such means. On the other side, Lion, Xianyanqing, Bone Demon and the others were also fighting with the heavenly human race. They are fighting over a few source-level divine weapons. They are indeed a bunch of ruins. The young man in purple among the creatures in the forbidden grounds of the primordial divine mountain sneered. His eyes were full of disdain. They were more focused on the primitive gems and other treasures. They did not seem to be interested in the source-level divine weapons. The battle between the Heaven Destroyer and the demons and the heavenly human race did not last long. Soon they separated. The 2 sides retreated and then faced each other. They did not continue to fight. They were both wary. After all, the creatures in the forbidden grounds of the primordial divine mountain and the dark pit demon mountain were not far away. If the conflict between the 2 sides escalated, it would only benefit the creatures in the forbidden grounds. If the creatures in the forbidden grounds suddenly attacked while they were fighting, they would be finished. Yi Qiuxian, the Lord of Heaven, the heavenly human race experts looked at Lu Ming and the others coldly. They looked like they wanted to tear Lu Ming and the others into pieces. Only the Yi immortal looked calm. His eyes were as deep as an abyss. He said coldly, "Retreat." The heavenly human race retreated into the distance. The short battle ended. At this time, no more treasures flew out of the cracks. The treasures that flew out of the cracks came in waves. Every once in a while, a wave would fly out. Furthermore, there was no pattern to it. The intervals between each wave was also uncertain. The number of treasures that flew out was also random. Sometimes only a few chaos crystals would fly out. Other times only some useless stones would fly out. It was rare to see so many treasures fly out at once. The four factions continued to wait. Half a month passed in the blink of an eye. Violent rumbles would occasionally come out of the cracks, but no treasures flew out. At this time, a rumble came from the void in the distance. A large group of creatures descended. This group of creatures had strange appearances. Their faces were covered in scales, like the legendary mermaids. They rode on giant flying fish and flew over quickly. Their bodies were emitting a terrifying aura. This aura was extremely Yin and cold. It was somewhat similar to the malevolent Yin race of the Dark Pit Demon Mountain. They were creatures of the forbidden grounds of the Tsangming Sea. Needless to say, everyone could guess where this group of creatures came from. They came from another terrifying forbidden ground, the Tsangming Sea. They called themselves the Tsangming tribe. In fact, the creatures of the Primordial Divine Mountain were also a special race called the Primordial Light tribe. The Tsangming tribe stopped in another direction of the void, some distance away from the others. Then, the roars of beasts came from another direction. Giant beasts were pulling dozens of war chariots toward them at a rapid pace. The people of the Quasi-Sage tribe had arrived. At this point, the 6 most powerful forces in the universe had all arrived. The creatures of the 3 forbidden grounds, the Primordial Light tribe, the Malevolent Yin race, and the Tsangming tribe. The heavenly human race led the Heavenly Palace, the Quasi-Sage tribe, the Heaven Destroyer, and the Demon Alliance. The 6 factions each occupied a position and faced each other. Chapter 4807. In the blink of an eye, another few months had passed. During this period of time, there was only one time when a treasure flew out. However, there were not many of them, so it did not cause a huge dispute. However, the cracks in the void seemed to be increasing in number. The purple-gold light that filled the void became even more dazzling. Once again, many people were able to vaguely see the scene inside through the largest crack. It seemed to be a world. However, the purple-gold light was too dense, and the specific scene was a little blurry. Could this be similar to the world of light? Lu Ming muttered in his heart and could not help but guess. Back then, the world of light was also sealed in the fragment of the continent in the 1,000-year battlefield. At first, it was shrunk to a point in a blood coffin. In that case, it wasn't impossible to seal a world in a void. The 6 factions were constantly studying it. In particular, some of the older generation of the demons had been flipping through the ancient books passed down by the demons during this period of time and finally made an important discovery. Everyone, this is very likely a blessed land of the Eldritch continent in the previous era, Zixuan said. As she spoke, her eyes flickered with a burning flame. A blessed land of the Eldritch continent? Most of the people present were puzzled. According to the ancient records passed down by my race, the Eldritch continent is a holy land for cultivation. Any place may have a better cultivation environment than the current universe. There are divine herbs everywhere, and treasures are as abundant as mountains. However, there is a true holy land for cultivation in the Eldritch continent, and that is the blessed land. According to the ancient records, there are a total of 36 blessed lands in the Eldritch continent. The blessed lands are very unique. They are separated from the Eldritch continent, but are closely related. Every blessed land is the best holy land for cultivation. It contains countless treasures and is blessed by the heavens. According to the records, every blessed land is occupied by a powerful faction. These factions are all guarded by immortals. Zixuan explained. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air after hearing this. Every blessed land was guarded by an immortal. Clearly, only the peak factions of the last epoch could occupy a blessed land. However, the blessed paradises are not eternal. In the history of the desolate continent, there have been many terrifying wars. Some of the blessed paradises have been destroyed in the wars. As time passes, the number of blessed paradises decreases. In the last war, the Eldritch continent was shattered. I thought that all the blessed lands were destroyed. Now, it seems that there are still blessed lands remaining. Zixuan continued. Lu Ming and the rest understood that the remaining grotto heaven and blessed land Zixuan was referring to was the world in the void. How do you know that the blessed land of the blessed lands of the past? Lu Ming. It's very simple. Some characteristics are very similar. According to the records in the ancient books, the blessed lands are separated from the Eldritch continent and formed a world of their own. They are closely related and the universe's profound laws are the same. However, the blessed lands are blessed by nature and give birth to countless treasures. On the Eldritch continent, there are very few holy lands for cultivation that can be compared to the blessed lands. When the blessed lands are about to collapse, the treasures hidden in the blessed lands will fly in all directions. Zixuan explained. Lu Ming and the others were surprised. This was very similar to the void in front of them. Moreover, when the blessed lands are about to collapse, they will be filled with blessed lands' divine light. According to our observation, the purple gold light in the cracks is the blessed land's divine light. Therefore we speculate that there is a blessed land in the void. However, this blessed enclave is about to collapse. Therefore, a powerful force tore through the void, forming spatial cracks. Treasures flew out from within. This blessed enclave is in the process of collapsing. Zixuan explained. Hearing that, the crowd came to a realization. They realized that it was very likely that this was truly a paradise. If we can enter it, how many treasures can we obtain? Dandan said as his eyes shone. The eyes of the others also flickered. Indeed, according to the records of the Fiend clan, blessed lands were guarded by immortals. It was definitely an unimaginable land of treasures. The treasures it contained would probably be extremely shocking. Only a small portion of the treasures would fly out from the spatial cracks. The majority would be inside. If they could enter it, they would definitely obtain a vast amount of resources. Lu Ming was especially tempted. If he wanted to break through to the 9th layer of the Divine Master Realm, he would need at least 5 billion desolate crystals. Where could he find so many desolate crystals? However, this blessed enclave gave him hope. The number of desolate crystals in a blessed land like this would definitely exceed 5 billion. It'll be difficult. When the blessed land collapses, space and time will become extremely chaotic. It will form a terrifying destructive force. Let alone divine masters, even reciprocity experts will find it difficult to enter. Moreover, even if reciprocity experts can enter, they won't dare to. The power of reciprocity experts is just too powerful. Entering will only worsen the destruction of the blessed land. An old man from the Fiend clan replied. Then, can the spacetime spirit rats enter? Lu Ming asked. It'll be difficult. The destructive force is just too powerful. If it were reciprocity spacetime spirit rats, then there would be some hope. However, if it's just a divine master. The old man shook his head. According to the records of the desolate continent, a few large organizations were able to refine a special type of flying boat. Divine masters could enter the blessed land by riding those flying boats. It's a pity that our Fiend clan doesn't have the refining method. Zixuan sighed. Since that was the case, there was nothing they could do. All they could do was wait outside and obtain some treasures. Just like that, a few more months passed. However, on this day a huge change occurred. More than 10 members of the Primordial Light tribe from the Primordial Spirit Mountain suddenly flew towards those cracks. As they flew out, they took out a flying boat. The flying boat was not large. It could only seat over a dozen people. The dozen or so Primal Light clan members all entered the flying boat. Then, the flying boat turned into a streak of light and directly charged into one of the cracks. The flying boat constantly flickered in the cracks. It actually broke through the layers of destructive force and continued onward. A while later, it completely disappeared before everyone's eyes. The Heaven Destroyer, the Fiend clan, and the Heavenly Human clan were all dumbfounded. However, the Baleful Een clan, the Tsangming clan, and the Quasi-Saint clan did not seem too shocked. That flying boat. Zixuan exclaimed. Lu Ming and the others obviously knew what kind of flying boat Zixuan was referring to. Zixuan had mentioned before that some large organizations on the desolate continent could refine a special flying boat that could enter a blessed land that was about to collapse. Chapter 4808. There were some major forces in the Eldritch continent that could refine a type of flying boat that could enter the blessed enclave that was about to collapse. Obviously, the flying boat of the Primordial Light race was very likely that kind of flying boat. Success. We succeeded in refining it. Seeing that the flying boat had successfully flown into the rift, the Primordial Light race beings were overjoyed. Continue refining. Refine more flying boats. We have to seize the opportunity. The purple-robed youth ordered the Primordial Light race to refine the flying boat with all their might. 2 days later, the Baleful Een race and the Blue Sea race flew out similar flying boats one after another. Each boat carried more than a dozen people and successfully passed through the spatial rift and entered the blessed enclave. This made the Heaven Destroyer, the evil demons, and many people from the heavenly human race very unhappy. The beings of the three forbidden lands had obviously mastered the refining method of this kind of flying boat. Obviously, the beings of the three forbidden lands had existed since ancient times. They had existed since the Eldritch Continent era. They had existed for so long that it was normal for them to master the refining method of this kind of flying boat. The beings of the three forbidden lands being able to enter the blessed enclave was very bad news for the original forces of the universe. They had already guessed that the beings of the three forbidden lands needed a lot of resources to unseal the other beings of their races. The more resources they obtained, the more beings of the forbidden lands would awaken. At that time, whether it was the heavenly human race, the quasi-sage race, the Heaven Destroyer, or the evil demons, they would all end up in a miserable state. How many resources could a single blessed enclave awaken? How many powerhouses could it awaken from the three forbidden lands? At that time, would they still have a foothold? Should we take a risk and stop them first? Many people had this idea in their minds, but they quickly extinguished it because it was unrealistic. If they wanted to start a war with the beings of the three forbidden lands, all the forces of the universe would have to join forces and unite. If any one of the forces acted alone, they would only be annihilated. However, how could the quasi-sage race, the heavenly human race, the Heaven Destroyer, and the evil demons be united? How could they truly join forces and fight to the death with the beings of the three forbidden lands? Moreover, even if they joined forces, they might not be able to stop the beings of the three forbidden lands. Lu Ming, Song Qiong of the quasi-sage race wants to see you. He says he has something to discuss. Suddenly, Lu Ming received Lion's voice transmission. Quasi-immortal race? Lu Ming's eyes flickered. He then led Xian Yanqing, Bone Demon, Dandan, and the others to the conference hall. They immediately sought Song Qiong. Song Qiong only brought a dozen or so quasi-immortal tribes experts. Brother Lu, it's been a while since we last met. You look even better than before. When Song Qiong saw Lu Ming, he cupped his fists and smiled. Brother, Song Qiong isn't bad either. Your current battle prowess is probably not weaker than mine. Lu Ming also smiled. He discovered that Firmament's cultivation had also reached the 9th level of the Divine Master Realm. With Firmament's talent that was not inferior to Yi Qiuxian's, his battle prowess was probably at the level of the strongest Lord of Heaven. Both sides exchanged some pleasantries before taking their seats. Not long after, Zixin, Yin Kong, Jiao Du, and the other Abyss Devils upper echelons arrived. Almost all the higher-ups of the Heaven Destroyer and the demons had arrived. Young Master Song Qiong, you said that you had something to discuss with us. May I know what it is? Lion asked at this time. It's very simple. I'm here to cooperate with you. Song Qiong Path. Cooperate. Lu Ming, Lion, and the others' hearts stirred. They didn't expect that the mysterious quasi-immortal tribe would cooperate with them. That's right. Now that the creatures of the Forbidden Lands have come into being, they are very ambitious. The original living beings of our universe are facing a great threat. As far as I know, the creatures of the Forbidden Lands have secretly communicated with each other. They plan to join forces and destroy the original forces of the universe. Song Qiong Path. What? Hearing Song Qiong's words, the hearts of everyone present shook violently. The creatures of the Forbidden Lands planned to join forces and destroy them. This was earth-shattering news. The strength of a single Forbidden Land was already very terrifying. If the creatures of the three Forbidden Lands really joined forces, then they would really be in danger. They finally understood why Song Qiong wanted to cooperate with them. None of them could contend against the three Forbidden Lands. In fact, they didn't even have the confidence to face one Forbidden Land, let alone 3 Forbidden Lands. You want to cooperate with us to deal with the 3 Forbidden Lands? Lu Ming asked. You can say that, but not entirely. Song Qiong Path. What do you mean? Lu Ming asked. The others also looked at Song Qiong, waiting for his answer. I want to cooperate with you, but it's actually just a short-term cooperation. Someone doesn't agree to a long-term cooperation. Song Qiong Path. Short-term cooperation? Someone doesn't agree? What do you mean? Lu Ming was even more puzzled. It's very simple. The heavenly human race doesn't agree to a long-term cooperation. Song Qiong Path. You also want to cooperate with the heavenly human race? Lu Ming's eyes flashed. Of course, we have to unite all our forces to contend against the 3 Forbidden Lands. What do you think? Song Qiong Path. Lu Ming and the others didn't speak. Song Qiong was right. If they wanted to contend against the 3 Forbidden Lands, they had to unite all the forces. What do you mean by a short-term cooperation? Lu Ming asked again. Short-term cooperation refers to this trip to the Blessed Enclave. After this trip is over, our cooperation will come to an end. Zhang Qiongdao. It's just a short-term cooperation in the Blessed Enclave. I don't think it's necessary. I don't think the people of the three forbidden lands have the intention to attack us. Lu Ming asked tentatively. It's necessary if we enter the Blessed Enclave. Zhang Qiong's words shocked Lu Ming and the others. Their eyes flickered as they had some guesses in their hearts. Sure enough, Zhang Qiong continued, as you can see, the three forbidden lands can refine that kind of flying boat to enter the Blessed Enclave. Coincidentally, my quasi-sage race also has the refining method of this kind of flying boat. We can provide it to you free of charge. The condition is that we have to cooperate with each other after entering the Blessed Enclave. I speculate that once we enter the Blessed Enclave, the creatures of the Forbidden Lands will most likely attack us. Hearing this, the eyes of Lu Ming and the others lit up. The quasi-sage race actually had the refining method of that kind of flying boat. This quasi-sage race was indeed not simple and unfathomable. At the same time, a thought emerged in their minds. That was why the quasi-sage race was so kind to provide the refining method of that kind of flying boat unconditionally. However, they immediately reacted. That was because the quasi-sage race had no choice but to do so. If the quasi-sage race didn't provide the refining method of that kind of flying boat, the Heaven Destroyer, the demons, and the heavenly human race wouldn't be able to enter the Blessed Enclave. Only the quasi-sage race would be able to enter the Blessed Enclave. Once they were attacked by the creatures of the Forbidden Lands, they wouldn't have the slightest chance of victory and would be completely annihilated. On the surface, the quasi-sage race was at a disadvantage. They unconditionally provided the refining method of the flying boat to the Heaven Destroyer, the demons, and the heavenly human race. In fact, they wanted to pull all forces together to fight against the creatures of the Forbidden Lands. Chapter 4809. If the quasi-saint race entered the heavenly abode alone, not to mention fighting for the treasures inside, they would probably be exterminated by the life forms of the Forbidden Land. This was why they wanted to drag the Heaven Destroyer, the demons, and the heavenly human tribe powerful beings into this place. The celestial race agreed to cooperate with us? Lu Ming continued asking. Yes, but we only agreed to cooperate in the Blessed Enclave. Once we leave the Blessed Enclave, we will terminate the cooperation. As long as you all agree to it, the three of us will meet and discuss it. What do you think? Firmament Path. Lu Ming, Lion, Zixian, and the others discussed for a while before agreeing. There was no reason to refuse. Only by entering the Blessed Enclave could they narrow the gap between the major forces. Otherwise, the celestial race and quasi-immortal race would enter the Forbidden Lands, but they wouldn't. They would lack resources and their strength would fall further and further behind the other forces. Then, Firmament sent a message to the heavenly human tribe and arranged for the three parties to meet. The heavenly human tribe was naturally led by Yi Immortal. Yi Qiuxin, the Lord of Heaven, and the others had also appeared. Yi Qiuxin, the Lord of Heaven, and the others naturally didn't treat the Heaven Destroyer and the Devil nicely. Killing intent flickered in their eyes. The Yi Immortal's expression was calm. His words were simple. He only said that the cooperation was temporary and was limited to the Blessed Enclave. Once they left the Blessed Enclave, the cooperation would end. The three parties reached an agreement. Then, Zhang Qiong handed over the refinement method of the flying boat to the Heaven Destroyer, the demons, and the heavenly human tribe. The name of the airship. It was called the Crossing Airship. Lu Ming, don't believe the words of the heavenly human race so easily. To cooperate with them, we have to be careful. After returning, Xian Yanqing reminded. I understand. Cooperating with the heavenly human race is like asking a tiger for its skin. Who knows what they'll do behind our backs? I reckon that as long as they have the chance, they will still attack us. Lu Ming said. The others nodded in agreement. Although we are cooperating with the celestial race, but we're still on high alert. After entering the Blessed Enclave, they still had to guard against the heavenly human tribe. Subsequently, Lion and the others began to gather refiners. Gathering materials to refine the crossing flying ship. This kind of flying boat was very small. Each one could only carry about 10 people at most. Therefore, many of them had to be refined. After all, most people want to go to the Blessed Enclave. This is a rare opportunity. The Blessed Enclave is a much better place than the Millennium Battlefield. The opportunities were countless times greater. If one were to enter and obtain a fortuitous encounter, one would be able to soar to the heavens. And the more people get in, the more people get in. The more opportunities one had, the higher the chances of obtaining treasures. During this period of time, the number of people from the three forbidden grounds, the heavenly human tribe, and the quasi-immortal tribe was increasing. More and more people from the heaven exterminating troop and the demons came. Almost all the experts that the major forces could mobilize had been mobilized. In the blink of an eye, a year had passed. Over the past year, the heaven exterminating army and the evil demons had worked together to refine more than 500 crossing airships. More than 500 flying ships could allow more than 5,000 people to enter the blessed land. At this moment, the heaven destroyer and the devil could no longer hold back. Because the beings from the three forbidden grounds, the quasi-immortal tribe and the heavenly human tribe had refined a large number of flying ships and were ready to set off. At the same time, a large number of flying ships flew out of the Primordial Light tribe, the Baleful Een tribe, and the Blue Sea tribe's territory and disappeared into the space cracks. Subsequently, the quasi-immortal tribe and the heavenly human tribe also flew out a large number of flying ships and disappeared into the space cracks. The sky exterminating troop and the demons didn't want to delay any longer. Although they didn't have enough crossing airships to send everyone into the Blessed Enclave, they had no choice but to send some of them into the Blessed Enclave first. As for the rest, they would have to wait until more crossing airships were refined. "Let's go," Lion shouted. The people from the Heaven Destroyer entered the flying ships in groups of 12. Then the flying ships turned into streaks of rainbow light and rushed into the space cracks. Autumn Moon has come out of seclusion. At this moment, Lu Ming received a voice transmission. It was from Autumn Moon. Autumn Moon had already come out of seclusion and was rushing over at full speed. It was really a coincidence that Autumn Moon came out of seclusion at this time. Lu Ming was not in a hurry to enter. It wouldn't be too late to wait for Autumn Moon to arrive. However, before Autumn Moon arrived, Lu Ming received 2 more messages in a row. It was actually from Ling Yue and Bubbles. What a coincidence. Ling Yue and Bubbles also came out of seclusion one after another. They first went to the Heaven Destroyer's encampment. After learning about the news of the blessed land, they also rushed over. Haha, what a coincidence. We just gathered a team. Dandan laughed. A flying ship could carry a maximum of 12 people. They had Lu Ming, Qiuqiu, Bone Demon, Xian Yanqing, Tang Jun, Wanxin, Dandan, plus Autumn Moon, Ling Yue and Bubbles. A total of 10 people could almost take a flying ship. They planned to form a team and explore the blessed land together. More than 10 days later, Autumn Moon, Ling Yue and Bubbles arrived one after another. Autumn Moon's cultivation has already reached the 9th level of the Divine Master Realm. Lu Ming was slightly shocked when he saw Autumn Moon's cultivation. Autumn Moon had actually reached the 9th level of the Divine Master Realm. This speed was truly shocking. However, after thinking about it, it was normal. One had to know that Autumn Moon had obtained the inheritance of the first 9 orifices Sacred Heart Zhongyu in the new era. When Zhongyu was at his peak, his cultivation was unfathomable. It could be confirmed that he was an existence that surpassed the origin realm. After obtaining the inheritance of such an expert and cultivating for more than 1,500 years, it was normal for him to have such an improvement. Ling Yue and Bubbles' cultivations were not low either. They had both reached the 7th level of the Divine Master Realm. Clearly, each of them had some fortuitous encounter. Coupled with their own talent, they had improved so quickly. Moreover, although they improved quickly, their foundations were very solid. As long as they continued to obtain resources, they could still improve quickly. They had not seen each other for many years. Now that they met, they naturally chatted happily. Dandan added oil and vinegar, telling them what had happened in the past few years. He gave Autumn Moon, Ling Yue, and Bubbles a rough understanding of the current situation in the universe. Of course, Dandan chattered on the surface, but he was very depressed on the inside. The reason for that was because he discovered that his cultivation was the lowest among all of them. During this period of time, Dandan's cultivation had increased by 1 level, reaching the 6th level of the Divine Master Realm. However, he was still the lowest. Almost everyone else was at the 7th level of the Divine Master Realm or above. I will definitely obtain a great opportunity on this trip to the Blessed Land. I must reverse it. I must surpass them. Dandan roared in his heart. Let's go, Lu Ming said. The others had already been in for more than 10 days. They could not delay any longer. If they entered late, they might miss out on the opportunity. Although the blessed land collapsed, there was a process. It would not explode all at once. This process might last for more than 100 years. Chapter 48:10. Lu Ming waved his hand and took out the leap crossing flying boat. They then entered the leap crossing flying boat. The leap crossing flying boat turned into a beam of light, flew into a space crack and disappeared. The spatial rift was very chaotic. There were no rules to speak of. It was filled with chaotic destructive power. Time and space were chaotic. Inside, one would even have the illusion that time would sometimes stop and sometimes speed up. Moreover, the chaotic space-time would form vortexes and chaotic streams. If one didn't have a flying boat and rushed in rashly, they would really be torn apart by the destructive power here. The flying boat drifted with the waves and rushed forward along a chaotic stream. The further they went, the denser the purple-gold light became. It was like a tide, whistling over, causing the flying boat to tremble. About an hour later, the flying boat seemed to have collided with something. It let out a loud bang, but it quieted down. "We should be here," Lu Ming said. He spread out his spirit sense. As expected, they had already rushed through the chaotic place and arrived in a relatively stable world. Then they left the crossing airship and looked around. An ancient aura of the Great Desolate Era was extinguished, and the surroundings were filled with an incomparably dense Great Desolate Era aura. Taking a deep breath, a large amount of Great Desolate Era aura seeped into Lu Ming's nostrils and pores, turning into his own power. It was as if he had refined a piece of Great Desolate Era crystal. "No, this Great Desolate Era aura. Something's wrong." Lu Ming was a little shocked. He discovered that the quality of the Great Desolate Era aura here was too high. It was higher quality than any Great Desolate Era aura he had encountered before. It was higher quality than the Great Desolate Era aura in the Supreme Immortal City. It was extremely pure and rich. Is this the blessed grotto heaven? Not to mention anything else just cultivating here, the speed is countless times faster than outside. Dandan sighed. His eyes lit up. The current universe ruins had undergone a huge change. The cultivation environment was getting better every day. There was a trend of development towards the great desolate continent of the previous era. But even so, in the current universe ruins, the best cultivation environment, compared to here, it was also dwarfed by the great ones. There was no way to compare at all. The difference was too great. This was the blessed grotto heaven, the top cultivation holy land in the primordial continent. It was a place where immortals presided over. Boom. Suddenly heaven and earth shook. The void in the distance, suddenly, a ferocious crack appeared. Like the maw of a great beast devouring everything, destructive power swept across, causing the ground to explode continuously. Large tracts of forest and large tracts of plants were reduced to ashes. In fact, they could even see several huge cracks spreading out from the ground. Deep underground, magma was spurting out. This was indeed a peerless cultivation holy land, but unfortunately, it had already reached its end and was about to collapse. According to the speculation of the quasi-saint race and the fiends, this heavenly paradise had suffered irreparable damage during the world-shaking war at the end of the previous era. It was already rare for it to be destroyed for such a long time, but the trend of destruction was irreversible. Let's leave this place first and look for those Chi Meridian, or ancient buildings. Only then will we be able to reap great rewards, Lu Ming said. Before entering the Blessed Enclave, they had had many exchanges with the demons and learned some information about the Blessed Enclave. The Blessed Enclave had collapsed. Only by finding that kind of Chi Meridian would one be able to reap great rewards. Chi Meridian, in fact, had a similar meaning to spirit veins and earth veins. Chi Meridian was the place where the desolate Chi condensed. It was the source of the desolate Chi. The Chi Meridian contained the most desolate crystals and other treasures. They were usually buried deep underground. Now that the Blessed Enclave had collapsed and the Chi Meridian had been torn apart, the treasures buried deep underground would fly out. Most of the treasures that had flown out of the crack previously had flown out from these earth veins. Lu Ming waved his hand and put away the leap crossing airship. They couldn't lose the leap crossing airship. They would have to rely on the leap crossing airship to leave this place later. After putting away the leap crossing airship, they chose a direction that seemed slightly more stable and didn't collapse much and flew in that direction. Not long after, they saw a forest. They rushed into the forest, intending to see if there were any divine medicines. In the Blessed Enclave, the desolate Chi was incomparably dense. In such an environment, there should be a lot of divine medicines. There should be a lot of main grade and origin grade divine medicines. However, they were soon disappointed. This was because they had circled around this forest for a long time, yet they did not find any divine medicine. Not to mention main grade and origin grade divine medicines, they didn't even find a single overlord or emperor grade divine medicine. This isn't right. With such dense desolate Chi, how can there not be any divine medicines? There isn't even a low-grade divine medicine. Could it be that someone has beaten us to it? Tang Jun said with a frown. No, there isn't any trace of digging around here. Dandan shook his head and said, Do you feel that the space here is filled with a gloomy and cold aura? At this moment, Guamo said, The two balls of soul fire in his eye sockets were flickering. He seemed to be a little surprised. "You're right. It's not just here. It's also in other places," Lu Ming said. Xian Yinqing, Qiu Moon and the others nodded. In fact, they had long felt it. It wasn't just in this forest. It was the same in other places. The space was filled with a gloomy and cold aura. This gloomy and cold aura wasn't dense. It didn't have much of an effect on existences of their level. However, it was a little strange that there would be such a gloomy and cold aura in such a blessed place. Could it be that the lack of divine medicines here has something to do with this gloomy and cold aura? Xian Yinqing said. It's not impossible. Although we can block this gloomy and cold aura, it might hinder the nurturing of divine medicines. Guamo said. The conditions for nurturing a divine medicine were very harsh. The higher the grade of the divine medicine, the more difficult it was. It required a very good environment and rich energy to nurture it. Once there was an external force that interfered, it might not be able to nurture it. Let's go to other places to take a look, Lu Ming suggested. Everyone left this place. After a while, they passed through forests and mountains, but they didn't find any traces of divine medicines. Moreover, no matter where they went, they could feel the gloomy and cold aura in the space. This made them a little disappointed. They originally thought that they would be able to find a lot of treasures in the blessed place. Divine medicines could be seen everywhere. It seemed that they were overthinking. Now they could only look for chi channels and hope that they could find something in them. Look, there are buildings on that mountain. Dandan's eyes were sharp as she pointed ahead. Chapter 48:11. Not far in front of them there was a mountain peak. They could see some buildings scattered on the mountain peak. Everyone's eyes lit up. There was no doubt that this blessed enclave definitely belonged to the same faction in the last era. However, the blessed enclave was too big. Even if it was the same faction, they would not gather everyone in one place. They would definitely be distributed wherever the cultivation environment was better. For example, there were many chi channels in the blessed enclave. Then, the people of the blessed enclave would also be distributed on these chi channels to cultivate. There were buildings on the mountain peak ahead. Could they be built on the chi channels? Lu Ming and the others did not hesitate and directly flew forward. This was a mountain range with many majestic peaks. However, many of the peaks were broken as if they were cut in half by some weapon. The buildings on some of the peaks were dilapidated and turned into ruins. Obviously, there had been a great battle here. These peaks were cut in half by a sword. Only one mountain peak was still intact and the buildings on it were also intact. What Lu Ming and the others saw before was this mountain peak. They extended their spiritual senses to investigate, but they did not find any danger. Then they flew up, landed in front of the mountain peak and walked toward an intact palace. After passing through the gate, they entered a huge courtyard. In the courtyard there was nothing. There was only a piece of pitch-black land. In the courtyard there should be a place to grow plants, but on this pitch-black land, there was not a single weed. It was completely bare. Everyone casually glanced at it. They crossed the courtyard and continued to go deeper. However, not long after Lu Ming and the others left, the pitch-black soil in the courtyard. Some places suddenly protruded, and a pitch-black withered claw suddenly stretched out from one of the protruding places. On the claw, it was covered with pitch-black fingernails. It was like a dagger. Then, a zombie-like figure. It drilled out of the soil. The zombie-like figure. Its body was thin and it was still wearing broken iron armor. There was a gloomy and cold aura all over its body. Its eyes were pitch black like a deep well. It looked in the direction that Lu Ming and the others left. Bang, bang, bang. In the soil, similar zombies kept crawling out. Lu Ming and the others went all the way into the depths of the building. Unfortunately, they did not find anything along the way. The buildings here were engraved with formations. That was why it could maintain itself for so long without decaying. However, other things could not endure such a long period of time. Most of the things had decayed, leaving only the empty shell of the building. Of course, divine medicine was even more out of the question. There was always that kind of gloomy and cold aura in the space, making it difficult to nurture divine medicine. After walking around, everyone was disappointed. Didn't they say that there were countless treasures in the blessed lands? Why didn't they obtain anything after entering? Could it be that this trip was in vain again? Suddenly, Lu Ming and the others stopped in a public square. Because there was someone ahead. Heavenly human tribe. Lu Ming and the others were moved. The 12 heavenly humans paced back and forth in front of him. They should have arrived together on the same flying boat. When Lu Ming and the others arrived, the people of the celestial race also noticed Lu Ming and the others. Their gazes turned towards them. This is Lu Ming and the others immediately realized that something was wrong. The eyes of the 12 heavenly humans were pitch black, like an abyss. Their skin was also pitch black, and there was a strange aura that was incomparably gloomy and cold. When they saw Lu Ming and the others, the 12 heavenly humans immediately roared and charged at Lu Ming. They did not use weapons. Instead, they used their claws to grab Lu Ming and the others. Their claws had very long fingernails that were like daggers. They cut through the void, emitting terrifying whistling sounds. Something's wrong. There's something wrong with these heavenly humans. Be careful. Lu Ming shouted softly and flicked his fingers continuously. 12 rays of spear gleams burst forth and pierced toward the 12 members of the heavenly human tribe. The reason he did not immediately take out the battle god spear was because he felt that there was no need. These 12 heavenly humans did not have high cultivation bases. Only one of them had reached the 9th level of the Divine Master Realm. The other 11 were all below the 7th level of the Divine Master Realm. Bang! Bang! In the blink of an eye, the 12 spear lights pierced through the 12 heavenly humans and sent them flying. However, Lu Ming, Xian Yanqing and the others narrowed their eyes. That was because the 12 heavenly humans were still alive. In the past, the strongest among them was only at the 9th level of the Divine Master Realm. The others were all below the 7th level of the Divine Master Realm. The difference between them and Lu Ming was too great. Lu Ming could kill them with a flick of his finger. But this time he was unable to kill them. Not a single one of them was killed. The 11 heavenly humans below the 7th level of the Divine Master Realm had their chests pierced by the spear light, creating a huge hole. However, they didn't die. Black smoke filled the holes in their bodies. Their wounds were rapidly healing. As for the 9th level Divine Master Realm heavenly humans, his chest was not pierced. He only had a finger-deep wound. Black chi also spread out and the wound quickly healed. What a powerful defense. What a tough body. These heavenly humans are no longer the original heavenly humans. They seem to have turned into zombies. Lu Ming whispered to Xian Yanqing and the others. The defense of these heavenly humans had surpassed his expectations. Just now, when Lu Ming stabbed their bodies, he felt like he had stabbed an incomparably tough divine weapon. He had barely been able to pierce through their bodies. Although Lu Ming had not used his full strength just now, that attack was enough to kill a 9th level divine master. From this, one could see just how terrifying their defenses were. Did you guys see the wounds on their necks? They seemed to be teeth marks left behind by teeth. Guo said. With Guo's reminder, everyone noticed this. These 12 heavenly humans truly did have teeth marks on their necks. They had been bitten. The blood on their body seems to have been sucked dry. The reason they've become like this is definitely related to those teeth marks. Xian Yanqing added. Everyone couldn't help but tense up. These 12 heavenly humans had been bitten by some living creature, which was why they had turned into zombies. This meant that there was some sort of terrifying monster hiding in the area. Their numbers were unknown. Brr, brr. Roaring, the 12 heavenly humans once more charged at the group. Use your full strength. Destroy them. Lu Ming shouted. The war god spear appeared and swept out, striking the 9th level Divine Master Realm heavenly humans. Berserk energy erupted from the war god's spear as though it could destroy everything. The 9th level Divine Master Celestial Race Expert exploded like a balloon and was reduced to smithereens. The moment Lu Ming attacked, Guo attacked as well. Guo's every move contained the power of the Lord of Heaven. He seemed to have turned into a black bolt of lightning as he attacked 11 times in a row, blasting the 11 heavenly humans to pieces. Chapter 48:12. The 12 celestial race experts were blasted to pieces, unable to recover. But just as Lu Ming and Bone Devil blasted the 12 celestial race experts to pieces, violent sounds of air being torn apart came from behind them. Lu Ming swept out with his spiritual sense and saw a group of terrifying monsters pouncing towards Xian Yanqing and the others. This group of monsters was pitch black, with eyes as deep as the abyss and claws as sharp as swords. They were extremely similar to the 12 celestial race experts from before. However, the cold aura coming from these monsters was even denser, and the aura they exuded was even more terrifying. At the same time, there was a faint aura of time on their bodies, as if they had been passed down through the ages. There were more than 20 monsters in this group, and their sharp claws tore through space as they charged towards Xian Yanqing and the others. Xian Yanqing and the others immediately felt a terrifying pressure, and they couldn't help but unleash their full strength. The phantom of the immeasurable devil steel appeared on Xian Yanqing's body, and the battle character art was activated. She sent out a dozen palm strikes, forcing the dozen monsters back. At the same time, Myriad God and the others made their move. Bubble waved her hand, and the power of time and space erupted, enveloping the entire area. The zombie-like monsters were greatly affected, and their speed suddenly decreased. Next, Autumn Moon, Tang Jun, Myriad God, Dandan, Ling Yue and the others attacked. One attack after another landed on the zombies, but the sound of metal clashing rang out. The zombies retreated. Wounds of various sizes appeared on their bodies, but they were completely fine. Moreover, they were recovering at an astonishing speed. How can this be? What a tough body. What shocking defensive power. Autumn Moon, Ling Yue and the others exclaimed. Based on the aura of those zombies, the strongest was only a 9th layer divine master. And they were all peerless geniuses who could fight across realms, even if they were only 7th layer divine masters. They didn't fear 9th layer divine masters. However, they weren't able to kill the zombies. Instead, they only left behind a few shallow wounds. Among them, Autumn Moon's attack power was the highest. She pierced through the bodies of the 2 strongest zombies. However, the 2 zombies quickly recovered. In the next second, these zombies roared, their pitch-black eyes fixed on Lu Ming's group, as if they were yearning for something. Then they continued to pounce on Lu Ming's group. Bang! Bang! Lu Ming and Bone Demon stepped forward one after another. Like a flash of lightning, he rushed to the front of Xian Yanqing and the others. They launched an attack. The War God's spear vibrated. He swept out with his spear, striking a 9th layer divine master zombie at the very front. The zombie was immediately sent flying like a cannonball. But unlike the celestial race cultivators from before, this zombie was not blasted into smithereens. This zombie only had a large hole in its body, but it immediately stood up. The large hole that was blasted open by the explosion was quickly recovering. The Bone Devil also launched an attack, but it also failed to destroy these zombies. The bodies of these zombies were too tough. They were even tougher than master-level divine weapons. Now, with Lu Ming and Gu Mo's battle prowess, even if it was a main-grade divine weapon, they would still be able to shatter it. Yet, they were unable to shatter the bodies of these zombies. These are definitely some kind of zombies and old ones at that. They're probably creatures from the last epoch. Bone Demon's grave voice rang out. You're saying that the creatures of the last epoch turned into zombies after they died and have been roaming this land ever since? Lu Ming said. That's right. Bone Demon nodded. The others felt their hearts sink. This was very likely the case. At the same time, they thought of the 12 celestial race cultivators from before. Perhaps those 12 celestial race cultivators had been attacked by these zombies, their necks bitten and their blood sucked dry. At the same time, they had been assimilated and turned into zombies. Roar. The zombies charged at Lu Ming's group. Moreover, an even more shocking sight occurred. Some parts of the ground began to wriggle, and then more zombies began to crawl out of the ground. Bang! 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 The earth exploded as several dozen zombies crawled out. Roars could be heard from other directions as well. One could see terrifying zombies rushing over from all directions. At a glance, there were at least a few hundred of them. There were hundreds of terrifying zombies. Lu Ming and the group felt their hair stand on end. No wonder they did not discover them before. It turned out that these zombies were hidden deep underground. With a terrifying roar, a 2-meter-tall zombie pounced at Lu Ming. From the looks of it, this zombie had been a burly, middle-aged human who had crawled out from under the ground of the square, and was the first to arrive at the scene. Lu Ming could not help but feel his hair stand on end. Because this zombie gave Lu Ming a very dangerous feeling. Without hesitation, Lu Ming activated the battle formula to increase his combat strength by 9 times, increasing his combat strength to a fixed point. Sky-breaking form. The battle god's spear trembled as Lu Ming used the sky-breaking form. His spear stabbed out, colliding with the zombie's claws. With a loud bang, Lu Ming felt a force as heavy as a mountain surging from the combat god's spear. Lu Ming could not help but retreat a few steps. That zombie was also blocked by Lu Ming, and it retreated continuously. It's on the level of the strongest Lord of Heaven. Careful. Lu Ming roared in shock. The strength of the zombie just now was not below his at all. It was extremely terrifying. It definitely had the combat strength of the strongest Lord of Heaven realm. After being forced back, the zombie once more pounced at Lu Ming. Great desolate form. Lu Ming sent out a palm and a huge continent appeared, pressing down on the zombie. At the same time, Qiuqiu also flew out, turning into a sharp sword that slashed at the zombie. Qiuqiu also possessed the power of the strongest Lord of Heaven. Together with the great desolate form, it blocked the zombie. As for Lu Ming, he continued to use the sky-breaking form. Man and spear became one, and a dazzling spear light stabbed at the zombie. Bang! The battle god's spear accurately stabbed into the zombie's head. However, it encountered a huge obstruction. It couldn't pierce through. Yes, the battle god's spear was actually unable to pierce through the zombie's head. It was only able to pierce an inch before it was stuck in the zombie's bones. A powerful force gushed out and sent the other party flying, crashing into the walls of the palace. Runes appeared on the walls of the palace, dissipating most of the force. However, the palace had been through countless years, so there wasn't much of the power of the formation left. Many cracks had appeared on the palace after being hit by the formation. However, the zombie was completely fine. With a roar, it once more charged at Lu Ming. At this time the other zombies also arrived. They roared as they charged at Xian Yanqing and the others. There was no lack of terrifying zombies among them. For example, there was an extremely old man with a head of white hair. He was pitch black and skinny, but his aura was especially terrifying. He was actually fighting an intense battle with the Bone Devil. Chapter 48:13. The Bone Demon's body was extremely hard. It ignored its own defense and went all out. However, the other party also ignored its defense and attacked crazily. Both of them were hit continuously by the other party, but they were fine. The zombie naturally couldn't break the Bone Demon's defense, but the Bone Demon couldn't destroy its body either. It could only leave a small wound on its body. The other party's body was covered in black gas, and it quickly recovered. 9 apertures in 1 slash. Autumn Moon shouted. The 9 apertures' sacred heart emitted a bright light. The 9 types of energy almost merged into one. Combined with Autumn Moon's divine weapon, it slashed out a terrifying saber light. Autumn Moon inherited Zhong Yu's inheritance. Not only did her cultivation increase greatly, but her combat strength also increased tremendously. As a 9th-level divine master, Autumn Moon's combat strength wasn't inferior to the strongest Lord of Heavens. This was very shocking. It meant that in a battle of the same level, Autumn Moon wasn't weaker than Yi Qiuxian. As Zhong Yu said, the 9 apertures sacred heart had a great background. In the previous era, it was a top-notch talent. Now that Autumn Moon had Zhong Yu's inheritance, her potential was constantly being developed, and her combat strength was becoming more and more terrifying. Autumn Moon's saber light slashed several zombies. Although these zombies didn't have the combat strength of the strongest Lord of Heaven, they were still very terrifying. They charged at the front. These zombies were sent flying by Autumn Moon. An inch-deep saber wound appeared on their bodies, but there wasn't any. Under the effect of the black gas they quickly recovered. Then they pounced on Autumn Moon. Xian Yanqing also attacked with all his strength, blocking the strongest zombies. Bubbles shouted. Covering thousands of miles of defense with the power of time and space? The void was being divided and time seemed to have stopped flowing. After all these years of cultivation, Bubbles' control of space-time power? It was getting deeper and deeper? The 2 origin ancient characters, time and space, were almost comprehended to the extreme. Not only did they have powerful attack power, but their ability to trap enemies had also reached the peak. Hundreds of zombies? Their movements slowed down? It was as if they were in a swamp. Swoosh. Ling Yue's body was completely enveloped by green energy. A towering tree appeared behind her, and a big bow appeared in her hand. An arrow shot out. The attack power of archery? Absolutely the most shocking? It was even stronger than Sword Dao. Bang! Between the eyebrows of a zombie? Pierced through? A hole that could be seen from the front to the back appeared. However, it was fine. It was completely fine. Even though the space between its eyebrows had been pierced, the zombie was still alive? Just stumbling for a while? Black gas permeating the air? The hole between his eyebrows had healed? He continued to rush over. No soul. His glabella had been pierced, but he was still fine. These zombies had no soul at all. In other words, this type of zombie simply did not have any vital points. If one wanted to kill it, one would have to destroy its entire body and shatter its bones. However, their bodies were too tough. Any one of them was as tough as a divine weapon. It was very difficult to destroy them. Wan Xun, Tang Jun, and Dandan also attacked with all their might. However, there were just too many zombies. Even though everyone worked together seamlessly, the zombies still closed in on them. They were surrounded. Qiuqiu, go and help them. Lu Ming waved his hand and Qiuqiu rushed out to help Qiuqiu, Autumn Moon, Ling Yue and the others. Although Qiuqiu, Autumn Moon and Xian Yanqing had the combat strength of the strongest Lord of Heaven and blocked some of the strongest zombies, Ling Yue, Wan Xin, Bubbles, and Dandan did not have such strong combat strength. There were too many zombies. As time passed, they would definitely not be able to block them. Especially Bubbles. If one wanted to use the power of spacetime to affect so many zombies, the consumption would definitely be huge. As time passed, Bubbles would definitely not be able to hold on. Chicho flew out and transformed into a halberd that smashed down at a zombie. The zombie was not too strong. It was around the 7th level of the Divine Master realm. Under Chicho's full-strength attack, its body was finally crushed into pieces and completely killed. It seemed that this type of zombie was not immortal. It required a strength much stronger than theirs to kill it. Unfortunately, there were also terrifying existences among the zombies. Lu Ming and the others were entangled and could not spare any effort to deal with the weak zombies. Let's break out of the encirclement first. If this continues, it will be very disadvantageous for us. Lu Ming shouted. Leave it to me. You guys stall for a while longer. I'll set up a few formations. Dandan called out and then transformed into its original form. Dense runes appeared on its huge turtle shell. One could see many small formations on its turtle shell. Some of the formations glowed and turned into runes that flew out and seeped into the ground and the void. As for the others, they gathered together to help Dandan fend off the surrounding zombies. All right, heaven and earth, great entanglement, come out. Dandan shouted. Endless runes filled the void, forming a huge formation that condensed thousands of chains that wrapped around the zombies. Although Dandan was only at the 6th level of the Divine Master realm, the formation that he had laid down over a period of time was still very powerful. Although it could not truly entangle the zombies, it could still interfere with them. Many zombies were disrupted, and with the influence of the spacetime power, many zombies could not charge over. Charge! Lu Ming and Bone Devil gathered together to block the two strongest zombies. Xianyanqing, Autumn Moon and Qiuqiu were in front, while Wanxin, Tangjun, Lingyue, Dandan and Bubbles were in the middle, charging in a certain direction. In the end, they broke out of the encirclement and flew into the distance. Brr, brr. The zombies constantly roared. They did not give up and left the mountains to chase after Lu Ming and the others. The two strongest zombies at the level of the Lord of Heaven were the fastest and took the lead. Lu Ming and the others had ugly expressions. These zombies were too difficult to deal with. In particular, the two strongest zombies at the level of the Lord of Heaven were basically copies of Bone Devils. They were much more difficult to deal with than the other strongest Lord of Heaven outside. They could not be killed at all. Destroying these zombies would probably require the strength of an Origin Realm expert. Even an expert at Gu Changfeng's level would find it very difficult to destroy them. They rapidly flew forward, crossing hundreds of thousands of miles in the blink of an eye. The blessed land was basically a world of its own. It was extremely vast and boundless. After flying for hundreds of thousands of miles, the zombies continued to follow them. They could not shake them off. However, what made Lu Ming and the others grimace was yet to come. Just as Lu Ming and the others continued to fly, a roar came from up ahead. Following that, a group of zombies appeared and charged over. What's going on? Why are there so many zombies here? Did all the people of the blessed land in the last epoch turn into zombies? Dandan and the others cried out. These zombies were all in human form, but they wore strange clothes and were filled with the aura of time. It was very likely that they were creatures from the last epoch. Moreover, they were all in human form. They seemed to be humans. Chapter 48:14. These zombies were all from the human clan. They were not from other clans who had transformed into human form. They were pure humans. They were wearing all kinds of ancient clothes, many of which were tattered. Only a few of them were wearing armor, which could still be vaguely seen. One could imagine that this blessed enclave must have been a powerful force of the human clan in the last era. Hundreds of zombies were rushing toward them from both the back and the front. Some of the zombies that appeared in front of them were also very terrifying. This could be seen from their speed. Go to the other side. Lu Ming shouted and asked everyone to rush to the right. If they were surrounded by so many zombies, especially those who were as strong as the Lord of Heaven, they would be in danger. It would be difficult for them to escape. These zombies were too difficult to deal with. Seeing Lu Ming and the others running away, the zombies in the front and back chased after them with roars. Damn it, what's wrong with these zombies? Why are they chasing us? Dandan shouted unhappily. These zombies are bloodthirsty. The blood of those heavenly humans was sucked dry. These zombies are probably attracted by our blood. Lu Ming analyzed. Let me try. Bone Demon said and rushed in the other direction to see if he could lure the zombies away. However, the zombies ignored Bone Demon and still chased after Lu Ming and the others. This undoubtedly confirmed Lu Ming and the others' guess. These zombies were chasing them because of their blood. Bone Demon had no blood, so he was not attracted to the zombies. After confirming, Bone Demon flew back and fled together. Bang bang bang, suddenly the ground below Lu Ming and the others exploded. Dozens of zombies had rushed out from the ground. How many of them were there? They roared and grabbed at Lu Ming and the others. Their claws were sharper than divine weapons. "Be careful," Lu Ming shouted. He threw a palm downward. The primitive style erupted and a continent was formed. It pressed down. It bombarded dozens of zombies. Boom, boom, boom. Dozens of zombies slammed into the ground, causing a series of rumbling sounds to erupt. Some weak zombies? Was he directly knocked to the ground? But how many powerful zombies were there? His battle prowess was equivalent to a peak divine master? His body was as hard as a divine weapon, forcefully piercing through the continent? He rushed towards Lu Ming and the others. "Get down." The Bone Devil took action. With the violet gold battle axe in his hand, he hacked out several times in succession. The zombies fell to the ground like meteors. Several large craters appeared on the ground. But he didn't die. Although their bodies were wounded by the Bone Devil's attacks, they didn't have the strength to fight back. But the black gas. Their wounds were healing quickly. The hearts of Lu Ming and the others grew heavier and heavier. How did these zombies come about? How could it be so terrifying? It wasn't like they hadn't seen zombies before, but none of them were so terrifying. Did all the people in this blessed enclave turn into zombies? If that was the case, then this trip was really a dragon's lair and a tiger's den. Could it be that he had to give up halfway and leave? He was truly unwilling to accept this. Bang, bang, bang. As Lu Ming and the others flew, more zombies broke out from the ground below and rushed up, but they were all blasted down by Lu Ming and the others. After hundreds of miles, no more zombies rushed out from the ground, but the number of zombies chasing behind increased by hundreds. More and more zombies were chasing after them. These zombies were constantly roaring. Their roars were like thunder, spreading far and wide. The terrifying thing was that not long after, roars came from all directions, echoing from afar. "It's over. We're surrounded. There are zombies in all directions." Dandan wailed. They didn't get anything after entering the blessed enclave, but they were surrounded by countless zombies. If they hadn't seen the creatures of the forbidden area, the Quasi-Saint tribe would have already entered. They would have suspected that the Quasi-Saint tribe was tricking them. The Quasi-Saint tribe probably didn't expect this scene. The ancient books of the demons didn't have such records about the blessed enclave. "Charge in the direction where there are fewer roars," the Bone Devil shouted. The direction where there were fewer roars meant that there were fewer zombies. They rushed toward the south. The roars from all directions were getting louder and louder, which meant that the zombies were getting closer and closer to them. Judging from the roars, the number of zombies was probably no less than 1,000. Once surrounded by so many terrifying zombies, only death would await them. Even experts like Gu Changfeng wouldn't be able to escape. No matter how many ordinary divine masters there were, it would be difficult for them to trap experts like Gu Changfeng because they could kill a lot of them in one move. However, these zombies had strong defenses and were very difficult to kill. If they couldn't kill them, they would be exhausted to death no matter how strong they were. Soon, a group of zombies appeared in front of Lu Ming and the others. They scattered and rushed toward Lu Ming and the others. Listening to the roars from afar, it seemed that the number of zombies here was the least. In fact, there were quite a lot of zombies. There were about 300 of them. However, there was no way out now. They could only fight. "Charge out!" Lu Ming shouted and took the lead. The war god's spear vibrated and shot out a dozen spear auras, knocking a dozen zombies away. The Bone Devil, Xian Yanqing, Autumn Moon, Qiu and the others also attacked and knocked the zombies in front of them away. However, there was a terrifying existence among the zombies. It was as powerful as the Lord of Heaven and it caused a lot of trouble for Lu Ming and the others. Their charging speed was greatly hindered. The zombies behind them were getting closer and closer. "God wants me dead. I haven't even reached my peak yet. Am I going to die halfway?" Dandan wailed and looked miserable. "Cut the crap. Attack with all your might." Lu Ming shouted. "Aren't I attacking with all my might?" Dandan shouted. He had already turned into his original form. The turtle's shell glowed and the arrays lit up one after another. Unfortunately, it could only interfere with the zombies. It was difficult to kill them. "Look, why are those zombies going around that hill?" Suddenly Xian Yanqing pointed to the right. Lu Ming and the others also looked over and their hearts skipped a beat. There was a hill on that side. It wasn't tall, only a few dozen meters high. However, they could clearly see that the zombies in that direction would take the initiative to go around the hill when they got close to it. Some of the zombies were originally moving in a straight line, but when they got close to the hill, they automatically went around it. It seemed that they were afraid of the hill. "There's something wrong with that hill. Let's charge over there. Maybe there's a chance." Tang Jun shouted. "Charge." The others also thought of this and immediately changed their direction and rushed toward the hill. Chapter 48:15. Now they couldn't care less. They could only try their best. Because a dense group of zombies had appeared behind them. They were like ants rushing towards them. They would be surrounded soon. By then only death would await them. They might as well try their luck at this hill. Perhaps there would be a turn for the better. Brr, brr. Two burly zombies wearing tattered armor attacked Lu Ming and the others crazily. These two zombies had the combat strength of the strongest Lord of Heaven. They had a great impact on Lu Ming and the others. 9 orifices, 1 slash. Qiu Yu shouted, and the power of the sacred heart of 9 orifices surged wildly. She slashed out, and as the saber light flew out, the 9-colored power actually changed rapidly. Finally, the 9 colors disappeared, and it turned into a transparent saber light. It slashed on the head of a zombie that had the combat power of a heaven lord. Sizzle! The blade light slashed on the zombie's head and made a sizzling sound. It cut 2 inches deep into the zombie's head. Even Lu Ming was secretly surprised. He knew how hard the body of a creature of this level was. Even if he attacked with all his strength, he might not be able to cut 2 inches deep. However, Autumn Moon could cut 2 inches deep. It showed how terrifying this attack was. Unfortunately, 2 inches was the limit. Autumn Moon's blade was stuck in the zombie's skull. It roared and swiped its sharp claws at Qiu Yu. Autumn Moon's face changed. In such a situation, she could either abandon her blade and retreat or be clawed by the zombie's claws. Autumn Moon didn't have the defense of the zombie. Once she was clawed, the consequences would be unimaginable. When Autumn Moon was about to abandon her blade and retreat, Lu Ming made his move. He pulled out his war god spear and hit the zombie's head. The zombie's head shook violently. The powerful force knocked Autumn Moon's blade out. The zombie's body flew out like a cannonball. On the other side, Bone Demon and Qiu teamed up. It also sent the other zombie with the strongest fighting power of the Lord of Heaven flying. As for Xian Yanqing, activating the immeasurable devil steel to open a path, Huang Xiaolong sent more than 10 powerful zombies flying, forcefully opening a path for himself. Lu Ming, Bone Demon and 10 others? He rushed over and finally reached the top of the hill. Roar, roar, roar. Those zombies roared and charged towards Lu Ming and the others. But, near the hill? But he stopped. It seemed like they didn't dare to approach. They could only surround him and roar. Even if it was the 2 zombies with the strongest fighting power of the Lord of Heaven, was the same. Similarly, it didn't dare to get close. This made Lu Ming and the others click their tongues in wonder. There's something strange about this hill. There must be something beneath the hill that scares these zombies. Lu Ming and the others took 1 round. Dandan, is there a formation here? Lu Ming asked Dandan. No? There's no trace of a formation here? My senses won't be wrong. Dandan said seriously. Then there must be something under the hill. Let's dig it up and see. Maybe there's a way to leave this place. Lu Ming suggested. At this time, the thousands of zombies behind them had already rushed over. They surrounded the hill, densely packed, and looked very horrifying. However, the zombies behind them didn't dare to get close to the hill, and they only roared from afar. Without any hesitation, Lu Ming took out a battle knife and carefully started to dig. He didn't dare to use too much force, afraid that he would break the thing under the hill. If that happened, it would be over for him. There was a layer of rocks at the bottom of the hill. Lu Ming peeled away layer by layer and finally, a blue light spread out. When the blue light spread out, the surrounding zombies seemed to be afraid and they retreated. Zombies squeezed among other zombies, causing chaos. It's this kind of rock. The zombies are afraid of this kind of blue rock. Everyone was shocked. They could see that there was a kind of blue rock at the bottom of the hill. This kind of blue rock was like a blue crystal, and there was a scorching aura spreading out like flames. What kind of rock is this? I've never seen it before. Lu Ming whispered. The others also shook their heads, indicating that they had never seen it before. They could only speculate that this might be a rock unique to the Blessed Enclave. Obviously, the zombies were afraid of this kind of blue rock. Try to see why the zombies are afraid of this kind of rock. Lu Ming said. Taboo energy poured into the battle knife, and he carefully cut off a small piece of the blue rock, which Lu Ming grabbed in his hand. Suddenly, a real scorching heat spread from his palm. This kind of temperature could be said to be amazing, and even God Emperors might not be able to withstand it. However, for someone like Lu Ming, it didn't affect him much. Whoosh! The taboo body burst out and Lu Ming threw out this small piece of blue rock. The blue color turned into a blue lightning, and with amazing speed, it accurately hit one of the zombies. With a bang, the blue rock hit the zombie's body and exploded, turning into powder. However, a big hole was created on the zombie's body, and wisps of blue flame covered the zombie's body. The zombie let out a painful roar, and its body emitted a sizzling sound, and white smoke kept coming out of its body. It kept struggling, and after a while, the blue flame on its body disappeared. However, it was obvious that the black gas on the zombie's body had become much fainter. The zombie's aura was also much weaker, and it looked like its vitality was greatly damaged. Especially the big hole on its body, which was still there and hadn't recovered. In the past, the zombies would recover quickly once they were injured. However, the wound caused by the blue rock had not recovered. The eyes of Lu Ming and the others lit up. They could see that the blue rock had a great restraining effect on this kind of zombie. One had to know that this kind of zombie's defense was amazing. Even if a divine weapon attacked it, it wouldn't be easy to injure it. However, the rock just now wasn't sharp, and Lu Ming had easily left a wound on the zombie's body, and it had also greatly damaged its vitality. This blue rock was simply the zombie's nemesis. To be more precise, it was able to restrain the black gas on the zombie's body. According to Lu Ming and the others' analysis, the reason why this kind of zombie was so terrifying had a lot to do with the black gas on their body. Although the 12 heavenly humans had also become zombies, the black gas on their bodies was thinner, and they were much easier to deal with. As for the old zombies behind them, the black gas on their bodies was dense, and they were very difficult to deal with. And the blue rock was able to restrain this kind of black gas. Haha, we're saved. Next, watch how I teach these zombies a lesson and make them obediently sleep. Dandan began to be arrogant again. Its previous sorrow and grief were swept away, and it was in high spirits. Chapter 48:16. Let's peel away the useless rocks around the hill and see how big this blue rock is. Then we'll see how to use it. Tang Jun suggested. After all, she had lived 2 lives and was more mature. Everyone agreed and then began to work. Soon, the useless soil and rocks on the hill were cleared away, and a large blue rock appeared in front of everyone. This blue rock was about 8 meters tall and 3 meters wide. It was constantly emitting blue light like a blue flame. Let me cut a piece and try. Dandan cut a rock the size of a wash basin and walked towards the zombies with it in his hand. As expected, when the zombies saw Dandan approaching, they all showed a look of fear and couldn't help but retreat. Haha, damn zombies, now you're scared, right? Kneel down and kowtow to me, Dandan laughed. Of course he was just joking. The zombies naturally wouldn't kneel to him. Brr, brr, brr. Suddenly, a violent roar was heard. A few zombies were surrounded by thick black chi and slowly approached Dandan. There were more than a dozen zombies in total. These zombies all had the combat power of the strongest Lord of Heaven. It had to be said that this blessed enclave was really terrifying. It was extremely difficult to give birth to an existence at the level of the strongest Lord of Heaven. The strongest Lord of Heaven required top talent. All of them were amazing people whose future achievements were immeasurable. In the era where the origin energy didn't appear, they would definitely be an overlord. But in this blessed enclave? Lu Ming and the others had only walked a short distance, but they had already encountered more than a dozen zombies comparable to the strongest Lord of Heaven. This was simply shocking. Lu Ming and the others guessed? Maybe it had something to do with the predecessors of these zombies? This was the blessed enclave? In the primeval continent of the last era? It was also the top force with immortals in charge. It was definitely filled with experts. There were countless geniuses. These zombies comparable to the strongest Lord of Heaven? Their predecessors were definitely not simple. Perhaps they were all terrifying figures. Otherwise, wouldn't the strongest Lord of Heaven be as common as cabbages? He grabbed a handful with each grab. However, what made Lu Ming and the others feel at ease was, no reciprocity zombies appeared. Obviously? Blessed Enclave? Was it also a part of this universe? Would he also suffer the origin tribulation? Even the zombies with source energy were probably in hibernation. Dandan was shocked when he saw more than 10 powerful zombies approaching. His expression changed drastically. Bloated bodies? More flexible than anything else? In a flash? He quickly returned to Lu Ming's side. Nest, these zombies aren't afraid of the blue rock, Dandan said with lingering fear. It's not that I'm not afraid, it's just that these zombies are extraordinary. The smaller the blue rock, the less afraid they are. Lu Ming said. As expected, the 10 or so most powerful zombies were roaring in the surroundings, but they didn't dare to approach. Clearly they were very afraid of the blue rock. Let's cut off some of this blue rock and turn it into a sharp weapon. It should be enough for us to charge out. Bone Devil suggested. That's right. Everyone nodded and then began to work. They cut off the blue rock and made it into a spindle or needle shape. In the end, everyone carried several hundred hidden weapons made of blue rock. Swish. Lu Ming waved his hand and a long needle made of blue rock flew through the air and hit the head of a zombie. The blue needle actually pierced a small hole in the zombie's extremely hard body. Of course, the blue rock itself wasn't hard. Even with Lu Ming's forbidden power wrapped around it, the powerful impact caused the blue needle to shatter after piercing a small hole in the zombie's body. However, some of the energy on the blue rock had already seeped into the zombie's body through the hole. It spread in all directions and enveloped the zombie's entire head. The zombie let out a painful roar. Its entire head seemed to be enveloped by blue flames. The zombie rapidly retreated. Black chi spread out to resist the blue flames. In the end, the flames were extinguished and the zombie's aura became much weaker. The effect was better than Lu Ming and the others had imagined. Dandan, you carry this rock and stand in the middle. We'll charge out together, Lu Ming said. He let Dandan carry the large rock and stand in the middle. The others surrounded Dandan and rushed in a direction. Roar! The dozen strongest zombies roared. Their pitch-black abyss-like eyes stared at Lu Ming and the others. They followed Lu Ming and the others closely. As for the weaker zombies, when Lu Ming and the others approached, they couldn't help but retreat. Roar! After Lu Ming and the rest had walked a distance away, the dozen of strongest zombies finally could not hold themselves back. They roared and pounced on Lu Ming and the rest. But this time Lu Ming and the others weren't afraid of these zombies. They waved their hands and blue lights flew out. All of them were long needles and shuttles made of blue rocks. More than a dozen zombies comparable to the strongest Lord of Heaven crazily grabbed with their claws. Many of the blue needles and shuttles were destroyed by the energy they stimulated. But there were still a few that bombarded them. These dozen zombies were indeed extraordinary. Even the long needles and shuttles made of blue rocks couldn't easily break through their defense. They only made shallow wounds on their bodies. However, it was enough. The blue flames on the blue rocks immediately spread out and constantly corroded the black chi in the bodies of the zombies. More than a dozen zombies had to fight with all their strength. Lu Ming and the others took the opportunity to attack and beat back more than a dozen powerful zombies in one fell swoop. These zombies had to fight against the blue flames. Their strength was weakened a lot and they were sent flying by Lu Ming and the others. Lu Ming and the others took the opportunity to rush out. Not long after, Lu Ming and the others successfully broke out of the zombie encirclement and rushed into the distance. Roar. The dozen zombies comparable to the strongest Lord of Heaven roared like thunder and rushed toward Lu Ming and the others. The rest of the zombie army also followed closely behind. Hive, there's really no end to this. If this goes on, we'll just waste time with these zombies. Where will we have time to find the treasure? Dandan shouted unhappily. We must get rid of these zombies. Xian Yanqing said. We might as well grind some blue rocks into powder and scatter them behind. We don't need to completely block these zombies. As long as we can slow them down, we will have a chance to escape. Lu Ming said. Haha, Lu Ming, you're really smart. I just thought of this idea. I didn't expect you to think of it too. Not bad, Dandan laughed. His skin was as thick as the city wall and he didn't feel embarrassed at all. The others also nodded and felt that this method was worth a try. He immediately took action and cut off some of the larger rocks. Using his powerful strength, he ground the blue rocks into powder. Chapter 48:17. Lu Ming and the others ground a total of about 10 kilograms of blue rock powder. Each of them held 1 kilogram and wrapped it with divine power or taboo power, and distributed it to different positions. Then, with a burst of power, the blue rock powder exploded and dust filled the air, covering a radius of thousands of miles. The sky and the earth were all blue and it was very beautiful. Many zombies rushed into the blue powder and suddenly, there was a sizzling sound from their bodies, and puffs of white smoke spread out. These zombies roared in pain and retreated quickly. The zombies behind did not dare to move forward, and stopped in place, constantly roaring. These zombies seemed to have low intelligence and almost no spiritual intelligence and did not know how to take a detour. In this way, most of the zombies were blocked by Lu Ming and the others with the blue powder. However, the dozen or so zombies that were comparable to the strongest Lord of Heaven stubbornly rushed through the area covered by the blue powder, and continued to chase Lu Ming and the others. However, Lu Ming and the others had expected this. After the dozen or so zombies that were comparable to the strongest Lord of Heaven broke through the area covered by the blue powder, they shot out hundreds of long needles or shuttles cut from blue rock, and completely covered the dozen or so powerful zombies. Although the dozen or so powerful zombies destroyed some of the long needles or shuttles, some still hit them, leaving wounds on their bodies and their bodies were also blocked. Lu Ming, Xian Yanqing and the others took this opportunity to explode their speed to the extreme, and flew away with all their strength in an instant. By the time the dozen or so zombies recovered, Lu Ming and the others had already disappeared in front of their eyes. Roar! The dozen or so zombies roared angrily and let out violent roars. They flew around in the same place and their sharp claws kept scratching the ground, leaving terrifying claw marks. After a while, roar! Suddenly an earth-shaking roar came from afar, shaking the earth and causing the void to tremble. The dozen or so zombies that were comparable to the strongest Lord of Heaven suddenly stopped roaring. The thousands of other zombies also stopped roaring and looked in the direction of the roar. In the next moment, a black lightning bolt cut through the void and came quickly. In the blink of an eye, a burly figure appeared in the void. This figure was also a zombie. It wore a shabby black armor and emitted a terrifying aura. The black aura that permeated his body was frighteningly dense. It was many times denser than that of the dozen or so zombies that were comparable to the strongest Lord of Heaven. The most peculiar thing about him was his eyes. Unlike the eyes of other zombies, which were like two pitch-black wells, his eyes were black with a hint of silver. The silver light flickered, revealing traces of intelligence. The silver-eyed zombie roared and the heavens and earth shook. The thousands of zombies at the scene trembled, and all of them prostrated themselves on the ground in fear. Even the strongest zombies lowered their heads, although they didn't crawl on the ground. Roar, roar! The silver-eyed zombie roared several times as if it was issuing orders, then it turned around and flew in the direction Lu Ming's group fled. At this time the blue rock powder had all fallen to the ground. Thousands of zombies flew up and followed the silver-eyed zombie, chasing after Lu Ming and the others. Lu Ming and the others flew all the way. Fortunately, they didn't encounter any zombies for a few hours. Of course, they didn't have any other gains. On the way, they encountered more than a dozen people from the Quasi-Saint tribe. However, these Quasi-Saint tribe people had the same fate as the 12 heavenly human tribe people they met at the beginning. There were bite marks on their necks and their blood was sucked dry, turning them into zombies. When they saw Lu Ming and the others, they pounced on Lu Ming and the others. However, Lu Ming and the others didn't want to waste time with them, and directly shook them off. Boom, boom, boom. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Suddenly, a violent roar came from not far away, accompanied by a series of roars. Hearing this, Lu Ming and the others knew that someone was besieged by zombies. What should we do? Should we go around or? Bone Demon looked at Lu Ming. What do you think? Lu Ming looked at Tang Jun, Xian Yanqing and the others. I think we should go and take a look. What if it's the Heaven Destroyer people? Tang Jun said. That's right. Judging from the sound, there aren't many zombies. We can save them. Xian Yanqing nodded. The others also suggested so. Okay, let's go and take a look. Lu Ming nodded. Everyone restrained their aura and carefully rushed toward the place where the battle broke out. Soon they approached the place of the battle. It's the Quasi-Saint tribe. Everyone was shocked. The people besieged by the zombies weren't the Heaven Destroyer people, but the Quasi-Saint tribe. There were a total of 24 Quasi-Saint tribe people who were surrounded by more than 30 zombies and constantly attacked. These 24 Quasi-Saint tribe people weren't weak, and there was no lack of experts. Several of them were peak almighty experts, and one of them was equivalent to the peak Lord of Heaven. These zombies weren't very terrifying. However, these zombies' bodies were too hard. No matter how the Quasi-Saint tribe people attacked, they couldn't do anything to these zombies. Therefore, the Quasi-Saint tribe people were still at a disadvantage and could only form a circle to resist. After a long time they would most likely be in danger. Should we take action? Xian Yanqing asked Lu Ming. Let's do it. The Quasi-Saint tribe has a long history and most likely knows some secrets. Maybe we can learn something from them, such as the origin of these zombies. Lu Ming said. Another reason was that they had already formed an alliance with the Quasi-Saint tribe. After all, they had received benefits from the Quasi-Saint tribe. It was within their ability to help. Lu Ming and the others rushed out. While rushing out, long blue needles and shuttles flew out and flew toward dozens of zombies. Bang, bang, bang. These zombies didn't have much spiritual intelligence. Usually their attacks were crazy and didn't care about defense. Naturally, they were easily hit. Those weaker zombies were immediately pierced with deep wounds. They were enveloped by the flames on the blue rocks and let out painful roars. Those stronger zombies weren't much better off. They also suffered serious injuries. Subsequently, Lu Ming and the others rushed over and bombarded those zombies with various attacks. Suddenly, more than a dozen zombies were smashed into pieces and turned into a pile of fragments. Lu Ming and the others were surprised. They found that these zombies became dispirited after being attacked by the blue rocks. Even their defense weakened a lot. Some weaker zombies were easily smashed into pieces. Even those stronger zombies were seriously injured. Their bodies were broken and couldn't recover in a short time. Chapter 48:18. It's Lu Ming and the rest. The people of the Quasi-Saint tribe were overjoyed when they saw Lu Ming and the rest. Let's go! Lu Ming shouted. The people of the Quasi-Saint tribe immediately reacted and seized the opportunity to rush out of the encirclement. Lu Ming and the rest didn't stop and continued to attack the zombies. The zombies were hit by the colored rocks and were in a weakened state. If they didn't attack now, when would they? If the zombies reacted, they would definitely chase after them and roar continuously. It would be troublesome if they attracted other zombies. Buzz. The War God's spear vibrated and whipped a 9th-stage Divine Master Realm zombie. Under normal circumstances, a 9th-stage Divine Master Realm zombie's body was as hard as a divine weapon. Even Lu Ming could only injure it but not destroy it. But now the zombie was in a weakened state and the black gas on its body wasn't as dense. The War God's spear exploded with majestic power and instantly tore the zombie's body into pieces. At the same time, Gumo, Xianyanqing, Autumn Moon, and the rest also attacked with all their might and smashed the zombies into pieces. In just a few breaths' time, the remaining zombies were all killed by Lu Ming and the rest. The people of the Quasi-Saint tribe were dumbfounded. They knew how difficult it was to deal with the zombies, but they didn't expect Lu Ming and the rest to deal with them so easily. Let's go! After Lu Ming and the rest dealt with the zombies, they didn't stay and left with the people of the Quasi-Saint tribe. After flying for a long distance, they stopped. I'm Lin, Lu Ming and everyone else. Thank you for saving us this time. A young lady from the Quasi-Saint tribe smiled and cupped her fists. She was very beautiful and had a red mark between her eyebrows that was shining brightly. Her name was Lin and she was also a top prodigy of the Quasi-Saint tribe. You're welcome. We are now allies with the Quasi-Saint tribe. Naturally, we have to help when we see you. Lu Ming replied politely. Then he changed the topic and said, Miss Lin, do you know what's going on with these zombies? I've never heard of such zombies appearing in the Blessed Enclave. Lin frowned and said, We don't know either. Something big must have happened to this blessed land. Perhaps it is related to the war at the end of the last era. Qiong, my cousin, you read a lot of books. If you want to know the details, you can find him later. Do you know where Firmament is? Lu Ming asked. I know. Not long ago we received a message from our cousin, Qiong. They are gathering in an ancient city. We were about to go there, but we didn't expect to be surrounded by these zombies. Songlin Avenue. Could it be that there are no zombies in an ancient city? Lu Ming asked curiously. Yes. Cousin Qiong sent us a message saying that there are many zombies around the ancient city. He asked us to be careful when we go there. However, the ancient city seems to have a restraining effect on the zombies. Those zombies don't dare to come close, Songlin explained. It can restrain zombies? Lu Ming, Xianyanqing and the others couldn't help but think of the blue rock. Didn't the blue rock also have a restraining effect on the zombies? Could it be that Firmament's ancient city also had the same blue rock or something similar that could restrain the zombies? Lu Ming, do you guys want to come with us? According to cousin Qiong, there are zombies everywhere in this blessed land. It's very dangerous. Many people have already gone to that ancient city. Songlin Avenue. Alright, let's go together. Lu Ming nodded. Let's find a place to stay first and find out more information at the same time. The people from the Quasi-Saint tribe led the way. They set off towards Firmament's ancient city. Along the way they were careful and avoided 2 waves of zombies. Not long after they saw a huge mountain range. The mountain range shook violently and let out loud rumbles. It was as if a huge dragon was about to awaken. From time to time, there would be purplish golden rays. That was the heavenly paradise light. That's a chi meridian. Dandan's eyes lit up. That's right. It was indeed a chi meridian. The desolate chi was shockingly dense and looked like it was about to collapse. They were all tempted. There must be a lot of treasures in the depths of the chi meridian. Not to mention other things, there must be a lot of desolate crystals. Once it collapsed, the desolate crystals in the depths of the chi meridian would definitely fly out. But what made their faces turn ugly was that there were figures wandering around the chi meridian. Those were zombies. From afar there were at least a few hundred of them. Roars came from afar. Some of the roars were very shocking. They were probably zombies that were comparable to the strongest Lord of Heaven. With so many zombies here, it was obviously impossible for them to wait here for the chi meridian to collapse. Once they couldn't hold them back, they might have to face even more zombies. They had no choice but to leave first and wait until they reached the ancient city before making a decision. They continued to set off. Not long after, a huge ancient city appeared on the horizon. Even from a distance they could feel the vastness of the ancient city. Moreover, the walls of the ancient city were emitting blue rays of light. It's that kind of blue rock. The walls of the entire ancient city are made of that kind of blue rock? Lu Ming and the others were a little stunned. Although they were far away with their eyesight, they could still see it clearly. The walls of the ancient city were indeed made of that kind of blue rock. Roars came from all directions. There were many zombies scattered around the ancient city. At a glance, it was hard to count the number of zombies. These zombies were wandering around the ancient city. Their eyes were fixed on the ancient city, and they would roar from time to time. But none of them dared to get close to the ancient city. Lu Ming and the others were even more certain that the city walls were made of blue rock. That was why the zombies didn't dare to get close. They could see many figures on the city walls looking from afar. It's cousin Song Qiong. Song Lin exclaimed in surprise. It was obvious that she admired Song Qiong a lot. There are fewer zombies over there. We'll break out from there. Dandan, cast an array to cover our blood chi. Lu Ming said to Dandan. No problem. Dandan nodded. She waved her hands and dense runes appeared. Very soon, an array was engraved on the bodies of Lu Ming and the rest. It could greatly conceal the fluctuations of their vital energy and blood, preventing the zombies from sensing them. Then they went to another direction with fewer zombies and rushed towards the ancient city with all their might. Because of the array that covered their blood chi, the zombies wouldn't be able to sense them easily. At least when they were far away, they wouldn't be able to sense them easily. They would only be able to sense them when they were close. This made it easier for Lu Ming and the others to move. Soon they were halfway through the journey. They weren't far from the ancient city. Chapter 48:19. Halfway through the journey, the zombies sensed Lu Ming and the rest. They roared and charged towards Lu Ming and the rest. Speed up! Lu Ming shouted. Everyone increased their speed to the maximum and charged forward with all their might. At the same time, they launched attacks and blasted away the zombies in front of them. Roar, roar, roar. The zombies roared and attracted more zombies to charge towards Lu Ming and the rest. However, Lu Ming and the rest shot out long needles and shuttles made from blue rocks. They broke through a wave of zombies and continued to approach the ancient city. It's Song Lin and the rest. And Lu Ming and the rest. On the city wall, Song Qiong and the rest also noticed Lu Ming, Song Lin and the rest. Get ready to go out and help Song Lin and the rest enter the city. Song Qiong ordered. Yes. Instantly, a few hundred experts from the Quasi-Saint tribe flew up and charged towards them. When they got close to the zombies, they waved their hands and shot out rays of blue light. These blue rays of light were all made of blue rocks, and they forced the zombies to retreat again and again. The few hundred Quasi-Saint tribe quickly approached Lu Ming and the rest. They cleared the zombies in front of Lu Ming and the rest. Both parties met up and soon Lu Ming and the rest arrived on top of the ancient city. When they were a distance away from the ancient city, the zombies didn't dare to come close and could only wander around. After ascending the ancient city, Lu Ming and the rest were certain that the city walls were indeed made of blue rocks. They were covered with some rune arrays that were used to strengthen the city walls. Even though countless years had passed, there were still energy fluctuations from the arrays. Lu Ming, I didn't expect you to be in this area, Song Qiong greeted with a smile. Lu Ming's heart sank when he looked around. On top of the ancient city wall and inside the ancient city, there were figures flashing around. However, he didn't see any heaven destroyer or evil demon. There were Quasi-Saint tribe in the ancient city? Heavenly human tribe? But there was no heaven destroyer or evil demon. Lu Ming made a rough estimation. There were about 2,000 people from the heavenly human tribe in the ancient city. There were also many from the Quasi-Saint tribe? There were about 2,000 as well. Brother Song Qiong? Why is there a heaven destroyer or a demon here? Lu Ming asked. The Blessed Enclave is huge and its territory is vast. Are they likely to be distributed in different regions? Heaven destroyer or devil? Should be in another area? Our quasi-immortal tribe? Tens of thousands of people? In this area there are only a little over 2,000. Firmament explained with a smile. Lu Ming nodded, knowing that what Firmament said made sense. The heaven destroyer or the devil might be in other areas, but he was worried. Other regions? Were they all zombies like this? What if there was no such blue rock? That would be really dangerous. Brother Song Qiong, do you know what kind of zombies are? What's going on? Lu Ming asked the question in his heart. According to my speculation, this type of zombie should be an absolute corpse. Firmament path. Absolute corpse? Lu Ming, Xian Yanqing, Tang Jun, Bone Demon, and the others all looked puzzled. Because they had never heard of it before. I'm not sure about the specifics, but I've seen it in the records of my clan. In the last era there was a zombie plague in the Eldritch continent. A large number of absolute corpses appeared in a certain place, and their bodies were as tough as divine weapons. They were invulnerable and strong, and they could absorb the blood of other living beings to strengthen themselves. They could also turn other living beings into absolute corpses. In the end, the zombie plague was suppressed by the human race's almighties. Firmament Path. Lu Ming and the others were surprised. What Firmament said was very similar to the zombies they had encountered. Maybe it was the absolute corpse. How did the absolute corpse come about? Lu Ming asked again. I'm not sure. There aren't many records of it in the records of my clan, only a simple introduction. I only know that the absolute corpse is very difficult to deal with. We're lucky that there are blue firestones in the Purple Heaven Grotto that can suppress the absolute corpse. Firmament Path. Purple Heaven Grotto? Blue firestones? Lu Ming and the others were puzzled. Could it be that this blessed land was called Purple Heaven Grotto? Did the blue firestones refer to the blue rocks? We found records in this ancient city. This blessed land is called Purple Heaven Grotto. As for the blue firestones, they are the blue rocks that can suppress the zombies. I came up with this name casually. Firmament explained with a smile. Following Tsang Qiong's explanation, Lu Ming also understood that this blessed grotto heaven was called Purple Heaven Grotto Heaven. Tsang Qiong and the rest had entered Purple Heaven Grotto Heaven more than 10 days earlier than Lu Ming and the rest. When they entered, they were also attacked by the absolute corpse. At the beginning, many of them had died. Furthermore, in Purple Heaven Grotto, there weren't any ancient cities or ancient buildings. The city walls were all built with blue firestones. In fact, there were very few of them. They were lucky to find this ancient city that could suppress the absolute corpse. Otherwise, they would be in danger. After hearing this, Lu Ming and the others' hearts sank. It was a coincidence that the blue firestones could suppress the absolute corpse. Firmament and the others were lucky to find this ancient city. What about the others? If they didn't find the blue firestones, wouldn't they be in danger? Brother Firmament, what do you plan to do next? Are you going to stay in this city and not leave? Lu Ming asked. Of course not, but there are too many absolute corpses outside. Once we rush out, we might attract more absolute corpses. At that time, we will be surrounded by an army of absolute corpses. Even if we have the blue firestones, it will be difficult to deal with them. You have to know that some of the absolute corpses are very scary. Firmament Path. Lu Ming nodded. He also understood this point. Although they had long needles and shuttles made from blue firestones, they were limited in dealing damage to the absolute corpses. When they hit the absolute corpse, they could only reduce its strength but not kill it. If there were only a few absolute corpses, it would be fine. But if there were too many of them and they were surrounded, even if they had weapons made from blue firestones, it would be dangerous. Moreover, once they left this ancient city, they would have to face the attacks of the absolute corpses. No matter how many blue firestones they had, they would run out. However, it is impossible for us to be trapped in this city forever. There is a mine in this ancient city that is filled with blue firestones. We are currently researching how to melt the blue firestones and use a formation to completely attach them to the divine weapon. As long as we succeed, we will be able to easily break through the extreme corpse's defense and kill it. Firmament Path explained. Lu Ming, Xian Yanqing and the others' eyes lit up. Not bad, this is definitely a good idea. The blue firestones themselves weren't tough. Even if they attached their divine energy to it, it would break down easily after hitting the absolute corpse. It would be difficult to deal a fatal blow to the absolute corpse. However, if they could attach the blue firestones to their weapons, they could easily break through the absolute corpse's defense and turn it into ashes. Chapter 48:20. How's the research going? Lu Ming asked. Now, the blacksmiths of the celestial race and the quasi-saint race are working together. However, it's not easy to completely attach the blue firestone to the divine weapon without damaging the divine weapon. It can be removed at any time and it has good stability. I estimate that it will take a few months. Tsang Qiong said. I can join and help with the research. Dandan exclaimed. Dandan is a genius of the world's divine tortoise tribe. He has great talent in rune formation Dao. Perhaps he can help. Lu Ming introduced. I've heard of the world's divine tortoise tribe. With your help, we might be able to research it earlier. Tsang Qiong looked at Dandan with a smile and praised Dandan without batting an eyelid. Dandan grinned from ear to ear. Tsang Qiong was becoming more and more pleasing to his eyes. Tsang Qiong immediately led the way to the center of the ancient city. The ancient city was huge. There were continuous mountain ranges and vast lakes in the ancient city. It was like a world within a city. Soon they arrived near a huge mountain peak. Huge mines had been excavated on the mountain. Blue rays of light filled the air. Everyone walked in and found that there were indeed large amounts of blue firestones in the mountain. Many people were researching in a spacious underground space. Exterminating Lord of Heaven of 100 battles. Lu Ming's eyes turned cold. Here he met two old acquaintances. They were the two strongest Lord of Heaven of the heavenly human tribe. Exterminating Lord of Heaven of 100 battles. Lu Ming. Exterminating Lord of Heaven of 100 battles also noticed Lu Ming. Cold rays of light shot out from their eyes. It's a pity that these two guys didn't die in the hands of the extreme corpse. Dandan sighed helplessly. Even if you die, we won't die. The Lord of Heaven of Extermination sneered. Is that so? Do you believe that I won't smash your dog head? Dandan shouted. A mere 6th-tier divine master. You dog, you overestimate yourself. I can suppress you with a single finger. The heavenly monarch of 100 battles replied. What did you say? Dandan was furious. Both sides were filled with a cold aura. Powerful auras exploded and collided, causing the entire underground space to buzz and tremble. Lu Ming's eyes were filled with killing intent. Did he really not mind fighting here? Kill the Lord of Heaven the Exterminator and the Lord of Heaven the 100 battles? Weaken the strength of the heavenly human tribe. Himself, Bone Devil Qiuqiu? Xian Yanqing? Including Autumn Moon, there were a total of 5 Lord of Heaven level existences, while the other side only had 2. You want to kill him? It was not a difficult task. But now, flickering? A few figures? Appearing behind the Lord of Heaven the Exterminator and the Lord of Heaven the 100 battles. Astonishing auras filled the air. Lu Ming's eyes narrowed slightly. The 2 burly figures were filled with all kinds of auras, but they were extremely terrifying. They were 2 primitive divine puppets with the combat power of the Lord of Heaven. There were also 2 heavenly human elders in golden armor. Their auras were astonishing. They were also the Lord of Heaven. The heavenly human tribe originally had 9 such old and powerful Lord of Heaven? The battle outside the Heaven Destroyer's base? Lu Ming killed 3 of them? There were 6 left. The other side suddenly had 4 Lord of Heaven level experts. Including the Lord of Heaven the Exterminator and the Lord of Heaven the 100 battles, there were 6 Lord of Heaven level experts. The atmosphere between the 2 sides was tense. Swords were drawn and bows were drawn. It seemed like a battle would break out at any moment. Everyone please calm down. We agreed to work together earlier. Moreover, our common enemy right now is the absolute corpses and the living beings of the Forbidden Grounds. If we kill each other, it will only weaken our strength. Tsang Qiong quickly came out to smooth things over. Since young Master Tsang Qiong said so, let's forget about today. It won't be too late to take their lives after the trip to Purple Heaven Grotto Heaven. The Lord of Heaven the Exterminator sneered. He didn't really want to let Lu Ming and the others go. If he was confident, even if Tsang Qiong mediated, he would still kill Lu Ming completely. It was just that he wasn't confident. They didn't know that Lu Ming had 5 people with the same combat power as the Lord of Heaven. He only knew that Lu Ming, Bone Demon, Qiuqiu, and Xian Yanqing were all at the same level as the Lord of Heaven. He didn't know about Autumn Moon's combat power. Most importantly, he was afraid of Lu Ming. In the battle outside the Heaven Destroyer base, Lu Ming had killed 3 of the Lord of Heaven's strongest opponents, which made him feel a lingering fear. The Immortal later speculated that Lu Ming couldn't maintain that kind of combat power all the time. He even speculated that Lu Ming used some kind of secret treasure and couldn't use it again after using it once. Because after that battle, Lu Ming was too low-key. If he really had that kind of combat power, he would probably counterattack the heavenly human tribe. However, Lu Ming didn't. But speculations were just speculations. No one could be sure. What if Lu Ming still had that kind of combat power? It was better to be safe than sorry. Therefore, the Lord of Heaven took the opportunity to give Tsang Qiong some face. Humph, we still don't know who will kill who. Dandan replied. Lu Ming didn't say anything. To be honest, he had the same idea as the Lord of Heaven. If he was confident, he would also kill the Lord of Heaven and the others. However, he wasn't confident. He knew himself well. He couldn't control that kind of bloodstain at all. In terms of combat power, he was only equivalent to the Lord of Heaven. Haha, thank you for giving me face. Tsang Qiong smiled and continued to smooth things over, taking over this matter. In this underground space, many refining masters were studying how to stably attach blue firestones to divine weapons. Dandan watched for a while and also joined in. Dandan's current array formation skills were indeed superb. After watching for a while, he pointed out a few key points, which made the refining masters overjoyed and made a major breakthrough. Song Qiong and the others were surprised and also overjoyed. With Danden's participation, it wouldn't take long for the research to be completed. Lu Ming, Xian Yanqing, Wan Shen, and the others watched for a while and collected some blue firestones to put in their storage rings. Then they left and returned to the city wall. Outside the city wall, there was still a large number of Extreme Yin corpses wandering around. As time passed, the number of Extreme Yin corpses outside increased. Not long after, another group of Quasi-Saint tribe arrived and rushed towards the ancient city. A portion of the Quasi-Saint tribe in the ancient city went out to receive them. However, as the number of Extreme Yin corpses around the ancient city increased, it became more and more difficult to rush into the ancient city. Although this group of Quasi-Saint tribe finally rushed into the ancient city, it was still very dangerous and a few of them even died halfway. It seems that it will be difficult to come in later. Spread the news and tell the others not to continue coming here. Find a place to hide and wait for us to kill our way out. Song Qiong instructed. At the same time, the heavenly human tribe also sent out a message, asking the heavenly human tribe to find a place to hide and not come here. Chapter 48:21. In the blink of an eye, a month had passed. With the addition of Danden, the research on stabilizing the blue firestone on the divine weapon was greatly accelerated. Originally, it was estimated that it would take a few months, but soon news spread that it would be completed in a few days at most. There were two main difficulties in attaching the blue firestone to the divine weapon. One was stability. For example, he could casually grind the blue firestone into powder or melt it into liquid and smear it on the divine weapon. This was very unstable. When he was fighting with the Absolute Yin corpse, the blue firestone that was smeared on the divine weapon would be scraped off when he slashed at the Absolute Yin corpse. That way it would be useless after a few moves. The first problem was to use a rune formation to firmly attach the blue firestone to the divine weapon so that it would not be scraped off easily. That was the first difficulty. The second difficulty was that after attaching the blue firestone to the divine weapon, it had to be easily removed and not be permanently attached to the divine weapon. For example, if it was attached to a source-grade divine weapon and couldn't be removed, then the source-grade divine weapon's power would be greatly affected. It would greatly reduce the value of the source-grade divine weapon. That was not worth it. These two difficulties were related to the rune formation. With the addition of Danden, they were quickly solved. In a few more days they would be able to complete the task. At that time, everyone would have blue firestones on their weapons and they would be able to kill their way out, defeat the Extreme Yin corpses and search for treasures. On the city wall, Lu Ming, Xian Yanqing, and the others were strolling on the city wall. On the city wall? These runes were the remnants of a formation. Although a very long time had passed, it was still a long time ago. There were still a few that could be used. However, Heavenly Human Tribe or Quasi-Saint Tribe, they did not activate or use these formations because there was no need. The blue firestone itself was enough to deter the Extreme Yin corpses from approaching. There was no need to activate the formations. Outside the city wall? Suddenly there was a shocking roar. Following this roar, the scattered Extreme Yin corpses outside the city wall? They actually became orderly, slowly retreating, gathering together, surrounding the ancient city. Above the Extreme Yin corpses, a tall figure stood there. Black chi spread out from his body, emitting a terrifying aura. These Extreme Yin corpses are so terrifying. Lu Ming's pupils shrank slightly. It is indeed terrifying. This silver-eyed Yin corpse's battle prowess surpasses the strongest Lord of Heaven? It already possesses some intelligence. Was Firmament coming? He explained. An absolute Yin corpse whose battle prowess surpasses the strongest Lord of Heaven. The hearts of Lu Ming and the rest trembled. Inside the absolute Yin corpse? There was actually such a terrifying existence. What if he didn't have the blue firestone? Encountering an Extreme Yin corpse of this level would only result in death. The absolute Yin corpse that was comparable to the strongest Lord of Heaven was already very terrifying. His body was indestructible and invulnerable. Even if Lu Ming attacked with all his might and activated the War God's spear, he could only barely leave a scratch on his body. One could imagine how terrifying the Extreme Yin corpse, whose battle prowess was even stronger than the Lord of Heaven, was. Even if Lu Ming attacked with all his strength, he might not be able to break through its defense. Suddenly, an earth-shattering roar came from another direction. Lu Ming and the others noticed that there was another Extreme Yin corpse floating in the air in that direction. Its aura was terrifying. Similarly, this Extreme Yin corpse's eyes were also black with a tinge of silver. It was another silver-eyed Yin corpse. At this moment, Firmament's face also turned serious. Previously, there was only one silver-eyed Een corpse around the ancient city. I never thought that there would be a second one. I hope that there won't be more, Firmament Path. But before Firmament could finish his words, another terrifying roar came from another direction. A third silver-eyed Een corpse had appeared. The hearts of Lu Ming, Zhang Qiong and the rest sank. 3 silver-eyed Een corpses, their battle prowess was too terrifying. If not for the ancient city, they would be in danger. Now we can only rely on the blue firestone, Firmament said with a serious face. But their hearts were heavy. They did not know if the blue firestone on the divine weapon could deal with the silver-eyed Een corpse. After all, the silver-eyed Een corpse's battle prowess was too strong. If they were hit, they would be the first to die. Fortunately, the 4th extreme Een corpse did not appear. There were only 3 of them, standing in 3 different directions of the ancient city, eyeing them covetously. In the blink of an eye, 3 days passed. Dandan and the others finally succeeded in refining the divine weapons. Everyone went to the blue firestone mine in batches and began to attach liquid blue firestone to their divine weapons. Everyone attached at least 2 divine weapons to their divine weapons as a precaution. If one of the divine weapons was damaged, they would still have a weapon to use. There were a total of 4,000 people in the ancient city. It took only 2 days for everyone to attach a layer of blue firestone to their divine weapons. Lu Ming also attached a layer of blue firestone to the tip of the battle god spear. The battle god spear looked blue as if it was made of blue gemstones. Lu Ming also attached a layer of blue firestone to another origin-grade divine weapon as a backup. Then, everyone from the heavenly human tribe and the quasi-saint tribe stood on the city wall and looked into the distance. Everyone, what should we do next? Zhang Qiong looked at Lu Ming and the Lord of Heaven. There are a total of 3 silver-eyed Een corpses outside the city, and there are 3 of us. I think it's fair for each of us to deal with one of them. The corners of the heavenly Lord of Extermination's lips curled into a cold smile as he glanced at Lu Ming and the rest. This was obviously intentional. Although there were 3 parties here, Lu Ming and the others were too few. Even with Qiuqiu there were only 10 of them. It was very dangerous to deal with one silver-eyed Een corpse. They wanted to use the power of the extreme Een corpse to get rid of Lu Ming and the others. I agree. We have agreed to cooperate, so we have to contribute. We can't share the burden for them, right? That's right. It's best for 3 parties to attack from 3 directions. The Lord of Heaven and the others from the heavenly human tribe said. This, Firmament revealed a hesitant expression. He looked at Lu Ming and the group, seemingly in a difficult position. The Lord of Heaven's suggestion was reasonable, so he couldn't speak for Lu Ming and the others. Okay, we agree. Lu Ming replied. It was better to rely on oneself than to rely on mountains or water. It was impossible to rely on others. They could only take a gamble. If it really didn't work, they could just return to the ancient city. Alright, since that's the case, let's begin. Fight. Zhang Qiong shouted and his aura erupted. The red mark between his eyebrows emitted an astonishingly high temperature. A bright blue battle sword appeared in his hand, and a fiery red battle armor appeared on his body, covering his entire body within. Lu Ming could see that the battle sword and the battle armor were extraordinary. They were definitely not ordinary silver-level divine weapons. They were most likely top silver-level divine weapons. The quasi-saint tribe was unfathomable and had an incomparably deep foundation. It wasn't strange for Zhang Qiong to have 2 top silver-level divine weapons. Chapter 48-22. With Zhang Qiong's talent and cultivation at the 9th level of the Divine Master Realm, coupled with 2 top-notch source-grade divine weapons, his combat strength was absolutely astonishing. Even the strongest experts at the level of the Lord of Heaven might not be his match. Just like Yi Qiuxian. When they attacked the Heaven Exterminating Army's base, Yi Qiuxian also had 2 top-notch source-level divine weapons, one for offense and one for defense. His combat power was very shocking. At that time, when Lu Ming fought with Yi Qiuxian, he was at a disadvantage in the beginning. It was best to rely on Qiuqiu to defeat the opponent. The main reason was that Lu Ming lacked a defensive source-grade divine weapon. In terms of defense, he was inferior to the opponent and could not fully display his strength. Unfortunately, there were too few defensive source-grade divine weapons. It was extremely difficult to obtain one, not to mention a top-notch defensive source-grade divine weapon. Kill? Zhang Qiong shouted and took the lead to rush out of the ancient city. The other experts of the quasi-saint tribe also followed closely behind Zhang Qiong. A few powerful experts stood on both sides of Zhang Qiong to protect him. With Zhang Qiong's combat strength, he was not afraid of the other extreme Een corpses, but he was afraid of the Silveride corpse. More than 2,000 experts of the Quasi-Saint tribe gathered together and rushed out like a sharp sword. The Silveride corpse in this direction was emitting a dense black gas. A violent roar came from his mouth. Terrifying sound waves came from his mouth and swept out in all directions, causing the sky and earth to tremble. It seemed to be a command. When the other extreme corpses heard it, they also roared. Like a tide, they rushed toward the Quasi-Saint tribe. The speed of both sides was very fast. In the blink of an eye, they collided. Kill. The divine weapons of the Quasi-Saint tribe? They were all covered with blue firestones and various weapons that attacked the extreme corpses. Those extreme corpses? Just like before? They only knew how to attack and did not care about defense. They were instantly hit. Buff, buff, as if they were chopping vegetables? The Quasi-Saint tribe? They directly broke the defense of the extreme corpses? Many of the extreme corpses were split in half? Blue flames? Covering the extreme corpses? The extreme corpses let out painful roars. It's effective, haha die. The people of the Quasi-Saint race were overjoyed when they saw that the divine weapons with blue firestones were effective. Their morale increased greatly. What followed was a storm-like attack. A large number of extreme corpses? It was blasted into smithereens. Firmament? He also faced an extreme corpse. This extreme corpse had battle prowess comparable to the strongest Lord of Heaven. It was extremely terrifying. Invulnerable? Impervious to fire and water, indestructible. Whoosh! Song Cheong slashed out and clashed with the extreme corpse's claws. With a clang, the extreme corpse's claws were cut off. Furthermore, the sword did not stop as it continued to slash at the opponent. The battle sword chopped down on the head of the extreme corpse and actually chopped off half of its head. Moreover, strands of blue flames spread down from its head, enveloping its entire upper body. Sizzling sounds came from the other party's body, and white smoke rose from it. Firmament seized the opportunity and attacked consecutively. Dense sword lights cut the other party into pieces. The other people from the Quasi-Sage tribe were in a similar situation. They relied on their divine weapons with blue firestones to completely crush the extreme corpse. Finally, the Silveride extreme corpse let out an angry roar and charged toward Firmament and the others like a bolt of lightning. However, there was a strong man beside Firmament who had not made a move previously. At this moment, his body was like a sharp sword as he flew toward the Silveride extreme corpse. Wherever his body passed, the space exploded and burst out with terrifying energy. Boom! The strong man from the heavenly human tribe collided with the Silveride extreme corpse, and a shocking explosion erupted. Then the Silveride extreme corpse's burly figure was seen retreating. A deep wound appeared on its body, and blue flames kept flickering around the wound. What terrifying battle prowess! This battle prowess surpasses that of the strongest Lord of Heaven. The hearts of Lu Ming and the rest trembled. The Quasi-Sage tribe was indeed incredible and unfathomable. They actually had an expert with such battle prowess. This strong man from the Quasi-Sage tribe could contend with the Silveride extreme corpse even without the blue firestone. This battle prowess was definitely not weaker than Gu Changfeng. There was no suspense. Lu Ming and the others knew that there was no suspense in the battle between the Quasi-Sage tribe and the extreme corpse. The strength of the strong man from the Quasi-Sage tribe was not weaker than the Silveride extreme corpse. Coupled with the divine weapon attached to the blue firestone, his strength was completely above the Silveride extreme corpse. It was only a matter of time before they defeated the Silveride extreme corpse. Why are you still not making a move? Are you waiting for us to defeat the extreme corpse so that you can take advantage of us? You don't want to do anything, right? At this moment, the Extermination Lord of Heaven looked at Lu Ming and the others and ridiculed them. Aren't you also not making a move? Dandan retorted. We are about to make a move. We are just afraid that you will follow us and take advantage of us. That's why we didn't make a move. The Extermination Lord of Heaven sneered. Don't worry, we won't take advantage of you. Let's go. Lu Ming said. After that, he stepped out and headed in another direction. Hee, I hope you can make it out smoothly. The Extermination Lord of Heaven said hypocritically. Then he led the heavenly human tribe and rushed out of the ancient city. They charged in the direction of the other Silveride extreme corpse. The Silveride extreme corpse roared and ordered the other extreme corpses to charge at the heavenly human tribe. Both sides engaged in a fierce battle. With our strength, we must have a plan to deal with the Silveride extreme corpse. Let's do this later. Lu Ming transmitted his voice to Xian Yanqing, Qiu Qiu Moon, Ling Yue and the others. Just now, Lu Ming had already thought of a plan to deal with the silver-eyed Extreme Yin Corpse. With their strength, even if they had the blue firestone attached to the silver-eyed Extreme Yin Corpse, they still had to plan carefully. Otherwise it would be difficult to succeed. Alright, let's do it this way. The others nodded. Then they increased their speed and rushed out of the ancient city. Seeing Lu Ming and the others rushing over, the silver-eyed Extreme Yin Corpse in this direction let out a roar. Following that, an army of at least several thousand Extreme Yin Corpses rushed towards Lu Ming and the others. Although there were only 10 of them, Lu Ming and the others were not afraid at all. They directly clashed with the army of Extreme Yin Corpses. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, Lu Ming waved his war god spear and shot out spear lights. Dozens of spear lights pierced dozens of Extreme Yin Corpses. These Extreme Yin Corpses, who had astonishing defensive power, were now defenseless against Lu Ming's attack. Their bodies were easily pierced by the war god's spear. Wisps of blue flames enveloped these Extreme Yin Corpses. Kill. Beside Lu Ming, the bone demon emitted a soul fluctuation. He held the purple gold battle axe in his hand and continuously slashed out. Every time he slashed out, an Extreme Yin Corpse would be split in half. In an instant, more than 20 Extreme Yin Corpses had been slashed by the bone demon. The others were not bad. With the blue firestone attached to the divine weapon, dealing with these Extreme Yin Corpses became very easy. Chapter 48:23. Against these Extreme Yin Corpses, using a spear is a disadvantage. Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat. Even if he used a spear to pierce a hole in the Extreme Yin Corpse, the Extreme Yin Corpse wouldn't die. It would only be injured by the blue flames. And splitting the Extreme Yin Corpse in half would cause it to lose its ability to fight for a short period of time. Then, it would be much easier to kill it completely. Thinking of this, Lu Ming's spear changed. It no longer focused on stabbing but on hacking and slashing. Xiu xiu xiu. The tip of the spear drew an arc like a blade as it struck the Extreme Yin Corpses one by one. Poo poo poo, these Extreme Yin Corpses were split in half and lost their ability to fight. Following that, the war god's spear shook and a terrifying power burst out, crushing the Extreme Yin Corpses that were split in half and turning them into pieces. Lu Ming and the other 10 formed a circle. Lu Ming, Bone Demon, Qiu Qiu, Xian Yanqing, and Autumn Moon had the strength of the strongest Lord of Heaven and stood at the outermost circle. Wan Xin, Ling Yue, Tang Jun and Bubbles were in the inner circle. As for Dandan, she was in the middle. Among the 10, only Dandan didn't attack the Extreme Yin Corpses because he had been inscribing the array. In the blink of an eye, several hundred Extreme Yin Corpses were killed by Lu Ming and the others. With the blue firestone attached to the divine weapon, it was much easier to deal with the Extreme Yin Corpses. Previously, cutting the Extreme Yin Corpses was like an ordinary person holding a kitchen knife and cutting steel. Now it was like an ordinary person holding a kitchen knife and cutting cabbage. Yes, it was that easy. And the Extreme Yin Corpses were naturally afraid of the blue firestone. Facing the blue firestone, they couldn't use their full strength, so it was naturally easier to deal with them. Roar roar, finally, a terrifying Extreme Yin Corpse approached Lu Ming and the others. Was it the Extreme Yin Corpse that was comparable to the strongest Lord of Heaven? There were a total of 10 of them. Kill? Lu Ming shouted. Strike out with a palm? The primeval desolation style erupted and condensed a continent, which pressed down on the 2 Absolute Yin Corpses. 2 Absolute Yin Corpses soared into the sky? Tear the continent apart? However, Lu Ming's follow-up attack arrived. Unleashing the heaven-breaking technique, man and spear became one, transforming into a dazzling spear light. Stabbing one of the Absolute Yin Corpses, it pierced through his body. Blue flames on blue firestones? Immediately diffusing out? This Absolute Yin Corpse was roaring? Retreating rapidly? He urged the black gas to resist the blue flame with all his might. Subsequently, Lu Ming's figure turned and charged towards the second Absolute Yin Corpse. Swoosh swoosh swoosh, the Absolute Yin Corpse's claws continuously clawed out, bursting forth with terrifying claw radiance to resist Lu Ming. Rumble. The 2 of them exchanged more than 10 moves in a row. In the end, Lu Ming defeated these claw lights. The war god's spear pierced the palm of the Absolute Yin Corpse. He had easily broken through the opponent's defense and pierced through the opponent's palm. Furthermore, the war god's spear hadn't stopped. It continued forward and pierced through the Absolute Yin Corpse's chest. The Absolute Yin Corpse was heavily injured and quickly retreated. However, Lu Ming wouldn't let it leave so easily. His spear changed from a stab to a slash. Its vitality was directly injured by the blue firestones. Naturally, it wasn't Lu Ming's opponent and was immediately split in half. However, this kind of absolute Yin corpse was truly powerful. Its body that had been split in half was still covered in black gas trying to recover. However, Lu Ming didn't stop attacking. The war god's spear continuously stabbed out, piercing the absolute Yin corpse. The blue flames on the blue firestones continued to spread out, completely enveloping the absolute Yin corpse and consuming its black gas. Following this, the war god's spear pressed down and the opponent's body exploded into pieces. An absolute Yin corpse that was comparable to the strongest Lord of Heaven was completely killed. Guemo, Xianyanqing, Qiuyu, and Qiu, under the cooperation of the Blue Firestone, had also achieved great results. At this time they had also killed an absolute Yin corpse that was comparable to the strongest Heaven Monarch realm. Of the 10 strongest absolute Yin corpses, only 5 were left. Finally, the silver-eyed Yin corpse couldn't hold back anymore and attacked. It let out a loud roar and charged towards Lu Ming and the others. "Be careful, defend," Lu Ming shouted as he quickly retreated back into the circle. Bone Demon, Qiu, Xianyanqing, and Autumn Moon also retreated and regrouped with the others. They formed a circle again, surrounding the weaker ones in the middle. After the silver-eyed Yin corpse charged out for a distance, it stopped when it was dozens of miles away from Lu Ming and the others. It didn't continue to charge forward. Instead, it waved its 2 sharp claws and clawed out continuously. Chi. As the sharp claws clawed out, the void was torn apart. Several terrifying claw radiances shot towards Lu Ming at a shocking speed. "Block it," Lu Ming shouted as he recovered the war god's spear. He continuously swept out and hit several claw radiances. The war god's spear vibrated violently. Lu Ming felt a terrifying energy surging from the war god's spear and into Lu Ming's body. Lu Ming's body shook violently as he couldn't help but retreat. His feet created 2 deep pits in the ground. Lu Ming's arms were trembling slightly. The blood in his body was in turmoil and he almost spat out a mouthful of blood. Too strong. The silver-eyed Yin corpse's attack power was too strong. It was far stronger than the strongest Lord of Heaven. Lu Ming wanted to block it, but it was difficult. This was only the claw radiance. The opponent's body hadn't come close, so its attack power couldn't be fully unleashed. Otherwise, Lu Ming would have been seriously injured. It was definitely comparable to Gu Changfeng's battle power. However, the opponent's intelligence wasn't low. It was obviously wary of the blue firestone and didn't dare to come close. It only dared to attack from afar. The silver-eyed Yin corpse let out another roar. Its 2 claws fiercely clawed out again. 2 claw radiances flew out and continued to claw at Lu Ming. Obviously, the silver-eyed Yin corpse wanted to attack one point and break through it. Then it would completely defeat Lu Ming and the others. "I'll block his attack." The Bone Demon's voice rang out. Its body flashed and appeared in front of Lu Ming. It ignored its own defense and allowed the claw radiances to hit its body. Dang, the Bone Demon's body was pushed back. However, nothing happened to it. The Bone Demon's body was too hard. In terms of defense, it was stronger than the silver-eyed Yin corpse. The silver-eyed Yin corpse's attack couldn't break the Bone Demon's defense at all. It could only push the Bone Demon back. After the Bone Demon was pushed back, its strength exploded and it charged at the silver-eyed Yin corpse again. It wanted to fight with the silver-eyed Yin corpse. The silver-eyed Yin corpse roared and clawed out again. The terrifying claw radiances bombarded the Bone Demon's body again, sending it flying. However, the Bone Demon was still fine. "Ha, come on," the Bone Demon laughed and continued to charge forward. The silver-eyed Yin corpse obviously didn't know how to use soul attacks. It couldn't hurt the Bone Demon's soul. It wasn't a threat to the Bone Demon at all. The Bone Demon continued to charge at the silver-eyed Yin corpse. This time the silver-eyed Yin corpse was smarter. It didn't attack the Bone Demon anymore. Instead, its body flashed and disappeared like a flash of lightning. It appeared in another direction and clawed at Autumn Moon with 2 claw radiances. 9 apertures and 1 slash. Autumn Moon used her strongest attack. A blade radiance slashed out and collided with the 2 claw radiances. Chapter 48-24. However, just like Lu Ming, Autumn Moon found it difficult to completely block the power of the claw. There was still some residual power that hit Autumn Moon's body, causing Autumn Moon's figure to explosively retreat with a red face. Shwa. This silver-eyed Yin corpse was really smart. Seeing that the attack was effective against Autumn Moon, it continued to attack. "Your opponent is me," Bone Demon shouted and charged towards Autumn Moon, helping Autumn Moon block the second attack. However, the silver-eyed Yin corpse's figure flashed again and appeared in front of Lu Ming. Its sharp claws pierced through the air and 2 claw attacks attacked Lu Ming. The silver-eyed corpse was too fast and Bone Demon alone could not block it. Fortunately, Qiuqiu was already prepared. In a flash, Qiuqiu appeared on Lu Ming's divine spear and turned into a halberd, slashing out. However, Qiuqiu was also not a match and its body was sent flying. However, like Bone Demon, Qiuqiu was only sent flying and was fine. Qiuqiu was a metal life form, so its vitality and defense were already very high. Moreover, Qiuqiu had also swallowed an Origin-grade Divine Weapon Battle Armor and had the defensive power of an Origin-grade Divine Weapon Battle Armor. It made its own defensive power even more shocking. The silver-eyed corpse could not break through Qiuqiu's defense with just the claw attacks. Bone Demon, let's each take one side and block its attacks. Qiuqiu transmitted to Bone Demon. Alright. Bone Demon replied and stared at the silver-eyed corpse with Qiuqiu on one side. Next, the silver-eyed corpse continuously changed its position and launched several attacks, but they were all blocked by Bone Demon and Qiuqiu. Bone Demon and Qiuqiu worked together and finally caught up with the silver-eyed corpse's rhythm. Roar roar, the silver-eyed corpse let out an angry roar. A fierce glint flashed in its eyes. This silver-eyed corpse is about to lose its mind. I'm afraid it won't take long. Is it going to risk a close combat attack? Dandan, how's your array formation going? Lu Ming transmitted to everyone and finally asked Dandan. Soon? Soon? Hold on a little longer. Dandan replied. He had long since reverted to his original form. The tortoise shell was suffused with runes. A large number of runes were constantly being emitted. They seeped into the void. His whole body was emitting white smoke. Clearly he had already given it his all. At this moment, in other directions, the quasi-saint race had already finished their battle. Among them, with a peerless expert who had surpassed the strongest Lord of Heaven and the Blue Firestone, there was basically no suspense in the battle. It did not take long for the silver-eyed corpse to be killed. Killed the silver-eyed corpse? Then deal with the other absolute corpses? Even easier? Several thousand absolute corpses. Very quickly the quasi-saint race finished them off. The ground was filled with the remains of the extreme corpse. They stood high in the sky and looked down at the battlefield between the heavenly human tribe and Lu Ming. Young master, should we go and help them? A person from the quasi-saint race asked. Help them? Why should we help them? Didn't we say that each of us would take care of one side? Let's just let them take care of it themselves. Let's go to that Chi Meridian that's about to collapse. Zhang Qiong said indifferently. Then the people from the quasi-saint race quickly left the place and disappeared without a trace. At this moment, the battle between the heavenly human tribe and the extreme corpse had reached its final juncture. Originally, although the heavenly human tribe had the combat strength of the sixth strongest Lord of Heaven, it was very difficult for them to fight against the silver-eyed corpse. However, they had a secret treasure. This secret treasure was a one-time use secret treasure. It was very precious and priceless. Even the Lord of Heaven Exterminator and the others only had one of it. This secret treasure was dug out by the heavenly human tribe from a ruin of the universe. Once it was activated, it could transform into thousands of powerful puppets and firmly entangle the silver-eyed corpse. In addition, the two primitive puppets fought desperately to entangle the silver-eyed corpse. After paying a heavy price, they finally killed the Lord of Heaven Exterminator. The Lord of Heaven Exterminator and the others seized the opportunity to attack the silver-eyed corpse with their divine weapons that were enchanted with blue firestones. Finally, they successfully killed the silver-eyed corpse. However, in this battle, the heavenly human tribe had destroyed a priceless secret treasure. The two primitive puppets were also severely injured. One of them was almost torn in half. The other puppet's body was also in tatters. However, this primitive puppet had become very evil after the heavenly human tribe's continuous experiments. It had integrated dozens of top forces in the universe. Although it was severely injured, it could recover quickly. After killing the silver-eyed corpse, it was easy to deal with the other extreme corpses. The heavenly human tribe quickly took control of the situation. Then they looked at the battlefield where Lu Ming and the others were fighting. There are 5 masters comparable to the Lord of Heaven. This Lu Ming, the pupils of the Lord of Heaven Exterminator, the Lord of Heaven Exterminator and the others constricted violently. Deep fear appeared in their eyes. Lu Ming and the others only had 10 people, but there were 5 of them who were as powerful as the Lord of Heaven. This was too terrifying. Exterminator, should we leave or? The Lord of Heaven Exterminator asked. No, I want to watch here. Although Lu Ming and the others have the strength of the Lord of Heaven Exterminator, they are definitely not a match for the silver-eyed corpse. Sooner or later, the silver-eyed Yin corpse will kill them one by one. I want to see how Lu Ming is killed with my own eyes. The Lord of Heaven exterminator said coldly. They looked at the battlefield where Lu Ming and the others were fighting. They wanted to see with their own eyes how Lu Ming and the others were killed by the extreme Yin corpse. At this moment, the battle between Lu Ming and the extreme Yin corpse had entered a critical moment. The silver-eyed Yin corpse finally couldn't hold it in and gradually lost its mind. It let out an angry roar and charged at Lu Ming and the others, intending to engage in close combat. Be careful. Lu Ming shouted. The silver-eyed Yin corpse's strength was terrifying, and the most terrifying thing was undoubtedly its close combat. It was very dangerous. Lu Ming, Bone Demon, Qiu, Xian Yanqing, and Qiu Yu increased their strength to the limit, preparing to fight the silver-eyed Yin corpse and stall for time. I'll do it. Bone Demon roared and rushed out first. He charged at the silver-eyed Yin corpse and slashed out with his purple-gold battle axe. The silver-eyed Yin corpse roared and didn't dodge. Instead, it clawed at Bone Demon with its sharp claws. With a clang, the purple-gold battle axe clashed with the silver-eyed Yin corpse's claws, causing a loud explosion. Then, Bone Demon's body was sent flying by the powerful force. The silver-eyed Yin corpse paused for a moment before charging at Lu Ming and the others. Only one nail was broken. Lu Ming's eyes narrowed slightly. One had to know that the purple-gold battle axe in Bone Demon's hand was already covered with blue firestone. It could restrain the extreme Yin corpse and easily break its defense. But in the collision just now, it only managed to cut off one nail. It was clear that the silver-eyed Yin corpse was too strong. Its body was immortal and had a strong resistance against the blue firestone. Even if it relied on the blue firestone, it wouldn't be easy to break its defense. Freeze for me. Qiu roared and shot out an illusory light beam, enveloping the silver-eyed Yin corpse. The silver-eyed Yin corpse's body paused for a moment. Chapter 48-25. Qiu's illusory light pillar was effective against the silver-eyed Yin corpse. This meant that the silver-eyed Yin corpse had a soul and was affected by the illusory light pillar. However, it only affected the silver-eyed Yin corpse for a short while. Black qi surged from its body and destroyed the illusory light pillar in an instant. It then charged towards Lu Ming's group. At this time, Xian Yanqing and Autumn Moon made their moves one after another. Xian Yanqing summoned the immeasurable Devil Steel's phantom image. It emitted a torrential devil qi that suppressed the silver-eyed Yin corpse. On the other hand, Autumn Moon slashed out with his strongest blade. Boom, boom. The silver-eyed Yin corpse's sharp claws slashed out continuously, destroying Xian Yanqing and Autumn Moon's attacks. However, Autumn Moon's battle blade was also covered in blue firestones. This attack successfully cut off one of the silver-eyed Yin corpse's fingernails. Desolate style. Sky-breaking style. Lu Ming also made his move. First he struck out with his palm. Then he became one with his spear and stabbed towards the silver-eyed Yin corpse. However, the silver-eyed Yin corpse only needed a claw to tear the land into pieces. Then it grabbed the war god spear's tip. Sizzle! The war god spear's tip pierced the silver-eyed Yin corpse's palm. Sizzle! Sizzle! Sparks flew in all directions. The war god spear's body bent. At the same time, Lu Ming felt an incomparably terrifying energy rushing towards him from the war god's spear. With a cracking sound, the bones in Lu Ming's hand immediately broke. He retreated rapidly, only stopping when he was beside Ling Yue and the others. It didn't pierce through. Lu Ming's pupils shrank. He clearly saw that the silver-eyed Yin corpse's palm wasn't pierced through by him. It was only pierced halfway through. Blue flames spread out from the wound on the silver-eyed Yin corpse's palm. It covered the entire palm and quickly spread up the arm. Brr. The silver-eyed Yin corpse let out a terrifying roar that shook heaven and earth. The black qi on its body surged and rushed towards its arm, forcibly suppressing the blue flames. Then the silver-eyed Yin corpse charged towards Lu Ming and the others. Bone Demon, Qiu, Lu Ming, Xian Yanqing and Autumn Moon had no choice but to work together to block the attack. This time, Lu Ming waved his hand and shot out hundreds of long needles and shuttles made from blue firestones, charging towards the silver-eyed Yin corpse. However, without the support of the divine weapon, without the support of their own strength, the blue firestone was too weak. The silver-eyed Yin corpse waved his sharp claws and shot out waves of energy, destroying the blue firestone needles and shuttles. However, Lu Ming and the others had long since expected this. With a wave of their hands, a large amount of blue firestone powder flew out, covering a large area. This affected the silver-eyed Yin corpse a little. The blue firestone powder covered his body and made sizzling sounds. It affected the silver-eyed Yin corpse's speed and strength. Then Lu Ming and the others used all their strength to barely block the silver-eyed Yin corpse's attack, but they were also forced to retreat. Bone Demon and Qiuqiu were still fine, but Lu Ming, Xian Yanqing and Autumn Moon were all injured, with blood dripping from the corners of their mouths. This was under the premise of the blue firestone. Although the silver-eyed Yin corpse had a strong resistance to the blue firestone, the blue firestone could still affect him. Especially when it was attached to a divine weapon, its power was astonishing. If the silver-eyed Yin corpse was hit, he would also be injured. Otherwise, Lu Ming and the others would not be able to fight against such an expert. For example, Lu Ming and the others would be defeated quickly in the battle against Gu Changfeng or the Yi Immortal. They would definitely not be able to hold on for so long. Lu Ming and the others used all kinds of methods to fight against the silver-eyed Yin corpse with the help of the blue firestone for more than 10 minutes. "Done, I've done it." Finally Dandan's voice rang in everyone's ears. Everyone's spirits were lifted. They had been waiting for this moment. "Act according to the plan." Lu Ming transmitted to everyone. "Freeze." Qiuqiu shouted and was the first to attack. He shot out an illusory light beam and enveloped the silver-eyed Yin corpse. Although Qiuqiu's illusory light beam had an effect on the silver-eyed Yin corpse, the effect was very small. Under normal circumstances, the silver-eyed Yin corpse would be able to break free in an instant. But now what they needed was just an instant. That was enough. Space-time swamp. Bubble immediately attacked. Her glabella glowed and 2 origin source ancient characters flew out. The space-time power erupted and enveloped the silver-eyed Yin corpse in it. Brr. The silver-eyed Yin corpse roared angrily. Black gas erupted and he struggled to break free from the illusory light beam. A powerful force rushed out, wanting to destroy Bubble's space-time swamp. Bubble's space-time power was very strong. Unfortunately, her cultivation was a little weak. She was only at the 7th layer Divine Master realm, which was too far away from the silver-eyed Yin corpse. At most she could only affect it a little. But a little bit of effect was enough. Heavenly Demon Field. Xian Yanqing and Bubble attacked at almost the same time, striking out with the Heavenly Demon Field. With Xian Yanqing's cultivation and the support of the immeasurable Devil Steel, the Heavenly Demon Field's power reached its peak. In addition to Bubble's space-time power, the silver-eyed Yin corpse's speed decreased by a lot. It was as if he had fallen into a swamp. "Inescapable net, seal for me." Dandan roared and pressed his palms against the void. Runes filled the void and intertwined to form a formation. This formation formed an inescapable net. There were 2 nets above and below, enveloping the silver-eyed Yin corpse. The silver-eyed Yin corpse was affected by the illusory light beam, space-time swamp, and heavenly demon field. It was too late for it to escape the formation's range. Brr. The silver-eyed Yin corpse roared and struggled madly. However, this formation was something Dandan had obtained from the myriad transformations ruins. It had taken him a lot of time to set it up. It was extremely powerful, and the silver-eyed Yin corpse wouldn't be able to break free in a short time. Lu Ming and the others wouldn't give him the time to break free. Lu Ming, Autumn Moon, Bone Devil, Qiuqiu, Myriad God, Ling Yue, Tang Jun and the others attacked together. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Ling Yue drew her bow and shot out 9 arrows in succession. These arrows weren't formed from energy, but were real divine weapons. Each arrow's arrowhead had a blue firestone attached to it. The 9 arrows were the first to approach the silver-eyed Yin corpse. Although the silver-eyed Yin corpse sent 6 arrows flying, 3 arrows still hit the silver-eyed Yin corpse. 3 small holes appeared on the silver-eyed Yin corpse's body. The blue flames on the silver-eyed Yin corpse immediately spread out along the small holes. Subsequently, Lu Ming, Autumn Moon and the others' attacks arrived. Autumn Moon slashed out with all her strength, aiming for the silver-eyed Yin corpse's head. The silver-eyed Yin corpse waved its arm to block the attack. The battle blade slashed at the silver-eyed Yin corpse's arm. The silver-eyed Yin corpse's other arm blocked Qiuqiu's attack. However, although he used his arm to block Autumn Moon and Qiuqiu's attacks, his arm was still injured. The blue flames spread and quickly consumed the silver-eyed Yin corpse's black gas. Lu Ming and Bone Devil's attacks also arrived. Chapter 48-26. Lu Ming threw the War God Spear out. The War God Spear pierced toward the silver-eyed Yin corpse like a bolt of lightning. The silver-eyed corpse could no longer dodge. With a puff, the silver-eyed corpse's chest was pierced by the War God Spear. However, the spear did not penetrate the silver-eyed corpse's chest. Half was enough. Blue flames spread out and enveloped the silver-eyed corpse's upper body in blue flames. Lu Ming held a battle sword in his hand and slashed at the silver-eyed corpse. This battle sword was also a soul-grade divine weapon. It was also covered in blue firestones. Lu Ming's battle sword and Bone Demon's purple-gold battle axe hit the silver-eyed corpse at the same time. The silver-eyed corpse's defense had been weakened many times. With Lu Ming and Bone Demon attacking with all their strength, they finally broke through the silver-eyed corpse's defense. The silver-eyed corpse was cut into 3 pieces. The raging blue flames completely enveloped the silver-eyed corpse. Then Wan Shen and Tang Jun's attacks also arrived. They bombarded the silver-eyed corpse's remaining body parts and broke it into dozens of pieces. Lu Ming and the others did not stop. They continued to attack. Boom boom boom. After another wave of attacks, the silver-eyed corpse was completely smashed into powder. It could no longer be revived. The silver-eyed corpse was finally destroyed by Lu Ming and the others' meticulous plan. Bus. Lu Ming grabbed the war god's spear and stabbed it to the right. It pierced through a desolate Yin corpse that was comparable to the strongest Lord of Heaven. Then he slashed the desolate Yin corpse on the left and right, splitting it in half. Although the desolate Yin corpse was killed, the battle was not over. The remaining desolate Yin corpses did not have any rationality. After the silver-eyed corpse died, they charged at Lu Ming and the others. However, without the silver-eyed corpse, these desolate Yin corpses were no longer a threat to Lu Ming and the others. This scene was seen by the heavenly human tribe in the distance. Damn it, they killed the silver-eyed corpse. The Lord of Heaven of 100 Battles roared angrily. He was extremely unhappy. What a brilliant plan. This Lu Ming really has a deep mind. He made a series of arrangements and perfectly combined their strengths to kill the silver-eyed Yin corpse. But this also proves one thing. The Lord of Heaven of Extermination said, but he was not as angry as the Lord of Heaven of 100 Battles. What is it? The heavenly monarch of 100 Battles asked. When they were attacked by the silver-eyed Yin corpse earlier, they were in a perilous situation. Lu Ming's 2 women were both injured, but Lu Ming did not use any stronger strength. It seems like the old ancestor's guess was right, the heavenly Lord of Extermination said coldly. There was a sneer at the corners of his lips. His fear of Lu Ming had dissipated by half. You mean Lu Ming can't use the strength that he used to kill the 3 strongest Lord of Heaven? The Lord of Heaven of 100 Battles' eyes lit up as he remembered. It's most likely that he can't use it. Otherwise, it's impossible for him to sit back and watch his women get injured. But just in case, we still have to observe. If he can't use that kind of strength, then Lu Ming will be much easier to deal with, the Lord of Heaven of Extermination said. He was mainly afraid of the strength that Lu Ming used in the Heaven Destroyer Station. It was too strong. Killing the strongest Lord of Heaven was like chopping melons and vegetables. Without that kind of strength, Lu Ming was only comparable to the strongest Lord of Heaven. He himself was the strongest Lord of Heaven. What was there to be afraid of? However, he still didn't dare to deal with Lu Ming. Firstly, Lu Ming's side also had 5 most powerful heavenly lords. Although there were 6 of them, the 2 primitive divine spirit puppets were seriously injured. If they were to strike now, they would not be able to do anything to Lu Ming and the rest. There was one more thing. He was afraid that Lu Ming could still use that kind of power. Let's go. We'll leave first. The Lord of Heaven of Extermination said and left with the heavenly human tribe. Outside the ancient city, only Lu Ming and the others were still fighting with the extreme Yin corpse. However, the remaining extreme Yin corpses weren't a threat to Lu Ming and the others. With the support of the blue firestone, a large number of extreme Yin corpses were killed. Soon, the strongest batch of extreme Yin corpses were killed by Lu Ming and the others. They then rushed out of the encirclement and shook off the weaker extreme Yin corpses. Lu Ming, where are we going next? Guo asked. When we went to the ancient city with the quasi-saint tribe, we saw a chi vein that was about to collapse. Let's go there. Lu Ming said. It wasn't easy to find a chi vein. When a chi vein collapsed, the treasures under it would fly out. This was an opportunity that couldn't be missed. The others naturally didn't have any objections. The group flew in the direction of the chi vein. Although they occasionally encountered a few extreme Yin corpses on the way, they weren't a threat to them and were easily killed. Soon, Lu Ming and the others arrived near the chi vein again. Last time, when they passed by this chi vein, there were many extreme Yin corpses around it. But this time they didn't see any extreme Yin corpses. Because they were all killed. They were all killed by the quasi-saint tribe and the heavenly human tribe. Lu Ming squinted his eyes. Not far ahead there were a large number of figures. They were the quasi-saint tribe led by Tsang Qiong, the Lord of Heaven of Extermination, and the heavenly human tribe led by the Lord of Heaven of 100 Battles. Obviously they came here after leaving the ancient city. Rumble. A dull rumble came from underground. On the surface, the Chi Meridian was actually a mountain range. It was incomparably majestic. At this moment, huge cracks appeared on this majestic mountain range, spreading out in all directions. From time to time, dazzling purple-gold light rushed out from the cracks. The Quasi-Saint tribe and the heavenly human tribe stood outside the mountain range and didn't approach. Lu Ming and the others flew over. The Quasi-Saint tribe and the heavenly human tribe naturally discovered Lu Ming and the others. Song Qiong's eyes flickered. He was surprised to see Lu Ming and the others. At this moment, Lu Ming and the others had almost recovered from their injuries. Song Qiong didn't expect that Lu Ming and the others would get rid of the extreme corpses and come here unscathed. "Brother Lu, it's great that you're fine." Song Qiong smiled and walked over to greet Lu Ming. "Humph, hypocrite." Dandan snorted in displeasure. However, his voice didn't spread out. It only echoed in the ears of Lu Ming, Xian Yanqing and the others. Song Qiong didn't hear it. Lu Ming naturally knew why Dandan was unhappy. There was a powerful expert in the Quasi-Saint tribe. They had gotten rid of the silver-eyed corpse long ago but left alone without any intention to help. What about the alliance? Moreover, Lu Ming and the others had saved the people of the Quasi-Saint tribe. Song Qiong looked polite and gentle on the surface, but he was actually very sinister. However, Lu Ming, Xian Yanqing, Autumn Moon, Wan Shen, and the others were all experienced people. They controlled their expressions well. Although they were unhappy, they didn't show it on the surface. After all, now wasn't the time to offend the Quasi-Saint tribe. Heaven Destroyer had a hard time dealing with the creatures of the Forbidden Area and the heavenly human tribe. There was no need to become enemies with the Quasi-Saint tribe. Chapter 48-27. Lu Ming smiled and said, "Thank you for your concern, Brother Song Qiong. We were lucky to be able to deal with the extreme corpse. It's all thanks to the blue firestone," Lu Ming said briefly before changing the topic. "Brother Song Qiong, why don't you enter the realm veins to search for treasures?" "We also want to enter, but it's very dangerous now. The realm veins are filled with dense heavenly paradise light. It's very dangerous when the realm veins crack and the heavenly paradise light will rush out. Once struck by the heavenly paradise light, even origin realm experts will be injured, let alone us. We can only enter when the heavenly paradise light overflows from the realm veins," Song Qiong explained. Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat. The heavenly paradise light mentioned by Song Qiong was the purplish golden light. Indeed, the heavenly paradise light was very dangerous. Some of the heavenly paradise light would rush out of the heavenly paradise. They had relied on the crossing flying ship to enter the purple heaven paradise. However, the heavenly paradise light here was even denser. It rushed out directly from the realm veins and was even more powerful. Even the crossing flying ship might not be able to withstand it. Only when the heavenly paradise light overflowed would the realm veins be safe. Now they could only wait outside the mountain range. Lu Ming's group finally understood why the people of the Quasi-Saint tribe and heavenly human tribe were surrounding the area. On the other side, the Lord of Heaven of Annihilation and the Lord of Heaven of 100 Battles looked over coldly. Dandan glared back. However, Lu Ming was too lazy to pay attention to the people of the heavenly human tribe. Instead, he studied the mountain range. This mountain range was the realm veins. It was extremely huge and spanned a wide area. There were a few huge cracks on the mountain range. From time to time, purplish golden heavenly paradise light would overflow. Rumbling sounds came from the cracks. After a while, boom, an even more violent rumble erupted. An even denser heavenly paradise light rushed out. Accompanying the heavenly paradise light were specks of light that resembled raindrops. Desolation crystals. Lu Ming's eyes suddenly lit up. What were those specks of heavenly paradise light? They were clearly desolation crystals. Densely packed? At least 100,000 crystals. Heavenly abode light? As they soared into the sky, the great desolate crystals scattered in all directions. There was nothing to hesitate about. Quasi-immortal race? The members of the heavenly human tribe all rushed toward the desolate gems. Lu Ming, Xian Yanqing and the others also moved. Using body movement techniques, he charged towards the desolate crystals. Lu Ming used the Great Aurora technique, body like an aurora, rushing to the front, the activation of forbidden power. They transformed into giant hands that grabbed at the desolate crystals. Soon, a few thousand desolate crystals were in his hands. The others also used their own methods. In just a few breaths' time, over 100,000 desolate crystals had been completely divided. Was it because there were too many people? The quasi-immortal race and the celestial race combined? More than 4,000 people? So many people attacking together? Naturally, it was divided very quickly. I got 5,000 primordial crystals in one go. Not bad. Lu Ming nodded in satisfaction. Did Lu Ming obtain the desolate crystal just now? It was about 5,000 yuan. It accounted for 1/20th of the desolate crystals that flew out just now. There's a piece that isn't a desolate crystal. Suddenly Lu Ming's heart stirred. He discovered that among the 5,000 plus desolate crystals just now, there was one that was very different from the other desolate crystals. With a thought, this desolate crystal appeared in Lu Ming's hand. This desolate crystal looked similar to the other desolate crystals, but its aura was completely different. Inside the desolate crystal, there was rich and pure desolate qi. However, there was no desolate qi in this piece. Instead, there was a trace of origin mark. Origin mark. That's right, it was the origin mark. Could this be a treasure that contains the origin mark? Xian Yanqing, Tang Jun, Dandan, and the others were also curiously sizing up the desolate crystal in Lu Ming's hand. Dandan said curiously, "This should be an immortal crystal." Suddenly, a clear voice sounded from the sky. "Immortal crystal? Brother Tsangqiong, what's an immortal crystal?" Lu Ming asked curiously because this was the first time he had heard of this name. Immortal crystals were the name given to these crystals in the last epoch. Crystals with origin imprints like the one in Brother Lu's hand were known as immortal crystals during the primordial continent. They're extremely useful to those at reciprocity or above. They can increase the cultivation of those at reciprocity or above. They're priceless, said Jianqin. However, immortal crystals are divided into different grades as well. The one in Brother Lu's hand should be of the lowest grade, but it's still extremely valuable. Although it's not as valuable as Origin Tier God pills, it's not too far off. It's far more valuable than Master Tier God pills or desolate crystals. Song Qiong explained. Only then did Lu Ming and the rest understand that these immortal crystals were used by those at or above the origin realm to cultivate and increase their cultivation level. Actually, during the desolate continent, desolate crystals were not called desolate crystals. Desolate crystals were only a name given to the creatures of the new epoch. During the desolate continent, desolate crystals were known as immortal crystals. They were used by those below reciprocity to cultivate. They were used as currency along with immortal crystals, but they were one grade lower than immortal crystals, Song Qiong continued. Clearly, Song Qiong understood the matters of the desolate continent extremely well. So desolate crystals were known as immortal crystals in the last epoch. Lu Ming and the others murmured. Let's not talk about it anymore. Brother Lu's luck is very good. He obtained an immortal crystal as soon as he arrived. We didn't obtain a single one before. Song Qiong smiled. I was just lucky. Lu Ming replied courteously. Afterward, no one said anything more. They continued to wait. However, when they saw Lu Ming obtain an immortal crystal, they all became even more excited. Without a doubt, immortal crystals were far more valuable than desolate crystals. Although many people could not use them right now, immortal crystals were supreme treasures after reaching reciprocity. They could rapidly increase one's cultivation. Even if they did not use them, they could sell them to origin realm existences in the future to obtain a large amount of treasures. How many treasures were there in the depths of this meridian? Later on, the meridian shook more and more violently. From time to time, heavenly abode light would rush out, accompanied by desolate crystals and the others. In less than a month, millions of desolate crystals had rushed out of the meridian. Moreover, there were 5 immortal crystals. It was really hard to say how many treasures were there in the depths of the meridian. Later on, the heavenly abode light overflowing from the meridian became fainter and fainter. Everyone knew that the heavenly abode light in the meridian was finally about to disperse. Once the heavenly abode light dissipated, they could rush in and sweep away all the treasures in the meridian. Everyone, how should we distribute the treasures we obtain after entering the meridian? Although the 3 of us are in a cooperative relationship now, one of us is too weak. No one knows whether there are dangers in the meridian. We don't want to take risks for the weak side. At this moment, the Lord of Heaven's cold voice resounded. He glanced at the quasi-immortal tribe, Lu Ming and the others. Chapter 48-28. Lu Ming and the rest sneered. Of course, they knew who the weak party that the heavenly Lord of Extermination was referring to. He was obviously referring to Lu Ming and the rest. The quasi-sage race and the celestial race had more than 2,000 experts. As for Lu Ming and the others, including Qiuqiu, there were only 10 of them. In comparison, their strength was too weak. Obviously, the Lord of Heaven's subtext was that Lu Ming and the others were not worthy of cooperating with the quasi-sage race and the celestial race. Song Qiong pondered for a moment and said, "Why don't we split up? Otherwise, when we enter the Qi meridians, it will hurt our harmony because of the treasures." Once they entered the Qi meridians, everyone would want to obtain the treasures. It was inevitable that a fight would occur. If they split up, they could avoid this problem. Although Song Qiong was much more polite, his meaning was the same as the celestial race. He didn't want to move together with Lu Ming and the others. With Lu Ming and the others' intelligence, how could they not understand? These guys, Dandan was very unhappy. "Good, that's just right." Lu Ming spoke. To tell the truth, he didn't want to cooperate with these people. "Then let's choose the direction to enter the Qi meridians. That direction will belong to us." The Lord of Heaven spoke and pointed to the northeast direction. "We are the first to arrive here. Let's enter the Qi meridians from here." Song Qiong also spoke. "Why are you the first to choose? Why did you choose the two best places?" Dandan finally couldn't help but shout. Wan Xin, Ling Yue, and the others also revealed angry expressions. The location to enter the Qi meridians was also very particular. The celestial race and the quasi-sage race chose the two directions with the largest cracks. The heavenly abode divine light that overflowed the most was also the densest. It was very likely that there were the most treasures inside. Comparatively speaking, the other locations were much worse. Our two groups came first. First come, first served. Naturally, we'll choose first. Furthermore, there are so many people in our two groups. Even if there are treasures, each of us will only be able to obtain a small portion. On the other hand, there are only 10 of you. The Lord of Heaven of Extermination said coldly. "That's right. Furthermore, other than those two positions, there are so many other positions for you all to choose from. It's one thing for you all to not thank us, but instead, you all are blaming us. You are truly too greedy." The heavenly monarch of 100 battles continued. F***ck, this is all nonsense. What does this have to do with the number of people? This time it was the myriad god who was cursing. He was furious and looked like he was about to attack. However, a hand grabbed Wan Xin's shoulder and said, "Forget it. I can't be bothered with these shameless people. Let's choose another location." The one who had stopped the myriad gods was actually Dandan. Could it be that Dandan discovered something? Lu Ming knew Dandan too well. When he saw Dandan's eyes, he knew that this guy had most likely discovered something. The previous clamor was just an act. Otherwise, given Dandan's personality, he would definitely erupt with Wan Xin. Why would he stop Wan Xin? On what basis? They clearly chose the best location. Wan Xin was still unconvinced. "Wan Xin, forget it. We can't be bothered to fight with them. Let's go to another location." Lu Ming stopped Wan Xin and flew to another location. Lu Ming spoke. Wan Xin was helpless. He could only snort angrily and follow Lu Ming. Xian Yinqing, Ling Yue, and the others followed. It seems that Lu Ming's strength is indeed limited. The Lord of Heaven of Extermination was even more relieved. He had chosen a good location for two reasons. First, a good location naturally had good treasures. Second, he wanted to test Lu Ming. If Lu Ming was really strong, he wouldn't have swallowed his anger. The Lord of Heaven of Extermination was less wary of Lu Ming. He led the people of the heavenly human race to the location they had chosen. Lu Ming and the others also came to another location. Lu Ming and Dandan, why did you retreat? If we really wanted to fight, although they have more people, we might not be afraid. Wan Xin grumbled unhappily. You'll have to ask Dandan this question. Dandan, did you discover something? Lu Ming asked Dandan. Haha, as expected of Lu Ming. You have some of my demeanor. That's right, I did discover something. I sensed the fluctuations of an array formation from another location. Dandan smiled proudly. Fluctuations of an array formation? What do you mean? Wan Xin still didn't understand. The fluctuations of the array formation are not on the mountain range, but under the Qi meridian. Dandan added. At this moment, Lu Ming, Xian Yinqing, Tang Jun, and Guimo all reacted. Their eyes suddenly lit up. There were fluctuations of an array formation under the Qi meridian. This was enough to explain a lot of things. One had to know that there weren't any buildings on this Qi meridian, nor were there any arrays. This meant that no one lived here in the previous era. But there were fluctuations of an array formation under an uninhabited Qi meridian. This was definitely not simple. Could it be that some powerhouse from the previous era opened up a cave abode under the Qi meridian? According to some information obtained from the universe ruins, those powerhouses from the previous era loved to open up cave abodes in remote places. If they could find a cave abode opened up by a powerhouse from the previous era, they might be able to gain a lot. What do you mean? Wanshin was still a little confused. Big guy, your brain is not good. Learn more from me in the future. Look at how smart Lu Ming is. It's because he has been with me for a long time. Then Dandan briefly explained his speculation. I see. No wonder you guys won't give in so easily. Let's go quickly. Wanshin was overjoyed. Let's go. Dandan led the way and soon they arrived at their destination. This was the other side of the Chi Meridian. It was a little far from the location chosen by the Quasi-Saint tribe and the Heavenly Human tribe. The crack here was very small. The heavenly abode divine light that overflowed from it previously wasn't dense. The Quasi-Saint tribe and the Heavenly Human tribe definitely wouldn't choose this place. Dandan, is this the place? Lu Ming asked. After arriving here, Lu Ming and the others still didn't feel any fluctuations of an array formation. However, they doubted Dandan's words. Dandan's perception of arrays was too sharp. He shouldn't be wrong. Yes, this is the place. Let's wait a little longer. When the heavenly abode divine light overflows a little more, we'll go in. Dandan said. In the blink of an eye, another 7 days passed. At this time, the heavenly abode divine light in the Chi Meridian had almost dissipated. Even if there was some remaining, it was very thin. Lu Ming and the others could deal with it. In the other two directions, the Quasi-Saint tribe and the Heavenly Human tribe had already entered the Chi Meridian to search for treasures. Let's go. Lu Ming took the lead and rushed into the crack under his feet. The battle god spear was already in his hand. The taboo energy spread all over his body as he was on high alert. Chapter 48-29. Who knew what dangers there would be in the Chi Meridian? After all, this blessed paradise was no longer the same. Other places contained a large number of extreme corpses, so it was not impossible for the Chi Meridian to contain other strange things. It was better to be careful. Their formation was the same as before. Lu Ming, Bone Demon, Qiu Qiu, Xian Yanqing and Autumn Moon were at the outermost circle, surrounding Ling Yue, Tang Jun, Myriad God, Dandan and Bubbles. There's no such cold aura in this Chi Meridian. As soon as they entered the Chi Meridian, Lu Ming and the others felt that there was no cold aura in the Chi Meridian like outside. Without the cold aura, it might be able to nurture a precious divine medicine. Dandan's eyes lit up. The reason why they couldn't find the divine medicine outside was because the cold aura was everywhere, destroying the illusion that nurtured the divine medicine. It should be because of the heavenly passage divine light that the cold aura could not invade. The environment was unique and it might be able to nurture a rare divine medicine. The crevice was very deep. They flew down for hundreds of miles, but they were still far from reaching the end. We're almost at the location of the array formation. Dandan called out. After descending another 10 miles they stopped. The array formation is coming from behind this rock. Dandan pointed at the rocks in front of them. Dig through the rocks. Lu Ming was the first to make his move. The war god's spear spun rapidly like a drill, piercing into the wall. Zzz, bang bang bang, the wall immediately emitted an ear-piercing sound. Sparks flew in all directions and then pieces of rock shattered. The rocks here? It was a little too hard. With Lu Ming's cultivation and the war god's spear, the digging speed? It wasn't very fast. But was this normal? Was this the interior of the Chi Meridian? After being nourished by the heavenly passage divine light for many years, ordinary rocks would become incomparably hard? It was like a divine weapon. Bone Demon? Qiu Qiu and Qiu Qiu also dug the rocks together. The others did not make a move. They were on guard against any unexpected situations. Although the rocks were hard? But in Lu Ming's case? Bone Demon? With the three of them working together? A large hole was quickly dug out. Suddenly there was a loud bang. Lu Ming's war god's spear pierced a ray of light, but it didn't budge at all. Stop, we're here. Formation ripples? This is the place. Dandan shouted. Lu Ming and the other two stopped. Dandan? He observed carefully. What a powerful formation. What a profound formation. Wonderful, truly wonderful. Dandan sighed. His eyes shone with a golden light as if he had seen a priceless treasure. I say, Dandan, can you break this array? The myriad deities asked. If it was in the past, I would truly not be able to do it. However, after the trip to the 10,000 Transformations ruins, I am no longer the same as before. Furthermore, this spirit formation has, after all, existed for far too many years. There are already flaws in it. Breaking it is not difficult at all. At the very most, I will need 3 days to succeed. Dandan said. 3 days? If it takes that long, then wouldn't the treasures under the Chi Meridian be completely plundered by others? The myriad deities said. This is very likely a cave dwelling left behind by a mighty figure from the previous era. If that mighty figure left behind some treasures, those desolation gems would not be able to compare to them. Dandan said. In the end, Lu Ming and the others were persuaded by Dandan to guard him while Dandan began to break the formation with all his might. Dandan transformed into his true form. His tortoise shell shone brightly as dense runes appeared on it. He began to study the formation here. Dandan's research was not only to break the formation, but also to learn from him. His understanding of the Tao of formations would become deeper and deeper, which was also a form of improvement. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. Break! Dandan shouted softly as he pushed his palm forward. In front of his palm were dense runes. These runes constantly intertwined with each other, forming a circular pattern. The circular pattern was imprinted on the formation in front of him. The formation immediately fluctuated violently. After a while, a gap appeared on the formation. Success. This gap will last for a few hours. I have already sensed that there is no danger inside the formation. Let's go in. Dandan said. After saying that, he took the lead and entered the gap in the formation. Immediately after, Lu Ming, Xian Yanqing, and the others also entered the gap. The next moment they appeared in a cave. The cave was not big, only about 10 meters in radius. The furnishings in the cave were also very simple. There was only a stone table and 2 stone stools. On the ground on the other side there was a futon. Other than that there was nothing else. Everyone's gaze fell on the stone table first. Because there were some things placed on the stone table. First of all, there were 12 iron tablets. Each iron tablet was not big, only the size of a baby's palm. They were very simple and filled with the traces of time. Mysterious runes were engraved on them. In addition, there was a book placed beside the tablets. The book was made of an unknown material. It was neither gold nor jade. Lu Ming used his forbidden power to grab the book and found that it was intact. The material of this book was definitely not ordinary. Otherwise, it would not have been able to remain intact after so many years. The book was about a few dozen pages. Unfortunately, Lu Ming did not recognize any of the words on it. Do you recognize the words on it? Lu Ming asked. He handed the book to Xian Yanqing and the others to take a look. Unfortunately, after looking around, they did not recognize any of the words either. The words of the last epoch are completely different from the words of the various races today. However, after so many years of research, we have deciphered many of them. I also recognize some of the words of the last epoch, but I have never seen this kind of language before. Tang Jun said with a slight frown. She speculated that this kind of language was very likely a relatively niche language in the last epoch. What a pity. Lu Ming and the others sighed. Generally speaking, this kind of ancient book was very precious. It was very likely that it recorded powerful formations or powerful qi refinement techniques of the last epoch, or even profound alchemy techniques, blacksmithing techniques, and so on. It was a wealth that could be passed down and revitalized a faction. It was more precious than many natural treasures. However, if they did not recognize it, it was pointless. They could only keep it for now and find a chance to decipher it in the future. Following this, their gazes turned to the 12 metal tiles. What are these tiles for? Myriad God picked up a tile and carefully examined it. Other than finding that this metal tile was ridiculously hard, he did not discover anything else. Lu Ming, Xian Yanqing, Bone Devil, Tang Jun, and the others also picked up a tile and examined it, but they also did not discover anything. The metal tiles were nearly identical in appearance. Only the runes on them were somewhat different. Could this be a joint attack formation used by God Lords or above? Dandan suddenly said after looking at it for a while, a look of pleasant surprise on his face. A joint attack formation used by God Lords or above. Are these the runes on it? Lu Ming's heart skipped a beat, a look of pleasant surprise on his face. Chapter 48:30. If it really was a joint attack formation of the Divine Lord Realm or above, it would be too precious and priceless. In the current primitive universe, whether it was the heavenly human race, the evil demons, or the Heaven Destroyer, none of them had a joint attack formation of the Divine Lord Realm or above. No matter how many Divine Lord Realm experts there were, it was difficult to gather the power of so many Divine Lord Realm experts and achieve a qualitative change. As a result, the strongest person like the Lord of Heaven could turn the tide of a battle and freely kill in and out of an army of Divine Lord Realm experts as if there was no one there. Without a joint attack formation, no matter how many Divine Lord Realm experts there were, they were just a basin of loose sand. Once they had a joint attack formation of the Divine Lord Realm or above, they would be able to make full use of their advantage in numbers and defeat the strong as the weak. Therefore, once they had a joint attack formation of the Divine Lord Realm or above, the Heaven Destroyer would no longer be afraid of the heavenly human race. They would even be able to protect themselves in front of the creatures of the Forbidden Lands. Lu Ming, Tang Jun, and the others looked at Dandan with burning eyes. Don't be happy too early. I learned a lot about joint attack formations of the Divine Lord Realm and above in the Wanhua ruins. I'm afraid it's different from what you think. Dandan said. Oh, how is it different? Lu Ming asked. Joint attack formations of the Divine Lord Realm and above are completely different from those of the God Emperor Realm and the Divine Emperor Realm. For those below the Divine Master Realm, an ordinary combined attack formation can be used by a large number of experts at the same time. The more experts there are in the formation, the stronger it will be. However, combined attack formations at the Divine Master Realm and above cannot achieve this. The main reason is that the power of the Divine Lord Realm and above is too strong. Once it explodes, it can destroy the world. Very few formations can withstand it. Therefore, joint attack formations of the Divine Lord Realm and above are much more complicated than those of the Divine Lord Realm and below. They need a carrier, Dandan explained in detail. A carrier? Lu Ming and the others were puzzled. That's right. Joint attack formations of the Divine Lord Realm and above must have a carrier. This carrier can be in any form, such as a battle sword, a battle saber, armor, or this iron plate. Dandan carefully observed the iron plate in her hand and said, First of all, a master refiner and a master of formations must work together to engrave a part of the combined attack formation on this carrier, such as this iron plate. Then each person who sets up the formation must refine a piece of the iron plate and cultivate the corresponding formation on the iron plate. When setting up the formation, they need to inject their own strength into the iron plate and activate the corresponding formation on the iron plate at the same time. In this way, the iron plates can connect with each other and the combined attack formation can be successfully executed. Joint attack formations of the Divine Lord Realm and above. The Thousand Gods. Of course it's troublesome. Otherwise, with the Heavenly Human Tribes Foundation, how could they not have a joint attack formation of the Divine Lord Realm and above after excavating the ruins of the universe for so many years? It's just that the Heavenly Human Tribe hasn't excavated such a carrier. It's impossible for them to refine such a carrier. This refining technique is extremely difficult. No one can do it now. Of course, I'm not too sure about the creatures of the Forbidden Lands and the quasi-immortal tribe. Dandan said. You mean that the number of carriers can only allow a few people to set up the formation? There are 12 iron plates here, so it can only allow 12 people to set up the formation at most? Lu Ming asked. That's right. The number of carriers can only allow a few people to set up the formation at most. Of course, they can set up the formation if they don't have enough people. It's just that their power can't be maximized. 4 joint attack formations of the Divine Lord Realm and above, the more carriers there are, the higher the level of the formation and the rarer it is. Of course, the difficulty of refining it is also higher. The lowest grade joint attack formation only has 2 carriers. Above it there are 3, 4, 5, 9, 12, 36, 100, 1,000, all of them. There are 12 carriers here. That's not bad. It can allow 12 people to set up the formation and unleash shocking power. Dandan said. Through Dandan's explanation, Lu Ming and the others finally had a general understanding of joint attack formations of the Divine Lord Realm and above. A joint attack formation with 12 carriers was not bad. At least it was enough for them to use. Lu Ming asked Dandan to put away the 12 iron plates so that they could study and cultivate it when they had time. Once they succeeded in cultivating it and the 10 of them set up the formation, their combat power would definitely increase tremendously. After Dandan put away the iron plates, they looked at the futon again. Unfortunately, although the futon looked intact, it turned into a cloud of dust when they tried to pick it up. Clearly, too much time had passed. The futon had decayed and turned into dust. They were slightly disappointed. In this cave abode, they only obtained a set of carriers for joint attack formations and a book that they could not understand. It was completely different from their expectations of obtaining a pile of supreme treasures. They could only say that dreams were not good. Reality was cruel. Dandan checked again. After making sure that there were no hidden doors, they left the place and continued descending rapidly toward the bottom of the crevice. Soon they had descended more than a few thousand miles. After descending for a few thousand miles, they finally reached the bottom. As soon as they landed, they smelled a strong medicinal fragrance. The medicinal fragrance was too strong. It was as if many divine herbs had turned into liquid and were burrowing into their noses. Just the medicinal fragrance alone was enough to make them feel refreshed. Divine herbs. Ah, there's no cold and gloomy aura here. As expected, the divine herbs are here. Dandan was overjoyed. He quickly rushed in a direction. Lu Ming and the others followed closely behind. The further they went, the stronger the medicinal fragrance. Soon they arrived at their destination. There were 9 divine herbs growing on a milky white rock. They were 9 divine ginsengs. Could this be a main-level divine herb? Sky Jade Ginseng? Lu Ming, Xian Yanqing, Dandan, Guemo, Tang Jun and the others all widened their eyes in shock. If it were just 9 stalks of main-level divine herbs, they wouldn't be so shocked. However, these 9 stalks of main-level divine herbs were too unique. Sky Jade Ginseng was a relatively precious main-level divine herb. Lu Ming and the others had seen it before. However, an ordinary Sky Jade Ginseng was only as thick as a thumb and less than a foot tall. However, the 9 Sky Jade Ginseng in front of them were a little frightening. They were as thick as a water bucket and each of them was more than 3 meters tall. They were like 9 huge trees. They were hundreds to thousands of times bigger than ordinary Sky Jade Ginseng. Moreover, everyone could feel that they contained an incomparably strong medicinal essence. It was unbelievably strong. What a strong medicinal essence. To think that a main-level divine herb could grow like this. The medicinal essence it contains is even stronger than an origin-level divine herb. How many chaos crystals is this Sky Jade Ginseng comparable to? Dandan stared at the Sky Jade Ginseng. He was almost drooling. He felt that a Sky Jade Ginseng was enough for his cultivation to break through. Chapter 48:31. Myriad Daoist Dragon Emperor's luck is off the charts today. Please wait for a moment. After the content is updated, please refresh the page to get the latest update. Chapter 48:32. Let's dig it out first. Dig it out by the roots and transplant it into my ancient desolate ring to avoid losing its medicinal efficacy. Lu Ming said. Everyone nodded, took out their weapons and started digging. The 9 Sky Jade Ginsengs were rooted in the milky white rocks below. This kind of rock was very hard. Even Lu Ming and the others spent a lot of effort to dig out the 9 Sky Jade Ginsengs. Then Lu Ming stored them in his ancient desolate ring and temporarily planted them there. There are ancient desolate crystals below. Dandan's eyes were sharp. He immediately found something. In fact, Lu Ming and the others also noticed that there were many ancient desolate crystals below the hole where they dug out the Sky Jade Ginsengs. These ancient desolate crystals were embedded in a kind of transparent rock. Let's remove the useless rocks around us, Guemo said. He held the purple gold battle axe and started to work. Lu Ming and the others also started to dig out the rocks. Soon, a layer of the surrounding rocks was removed. The scene below the rocks was also revealed. Ancient desolate crystals. They were all ancient desolate crystals. These ancient desolate crystals were wrapped in a kind of transparent rock. And this was only a corner. More parts were still covered by rocks. They finally understood why the 9 Sky Jade Ginsengs grew so exaggeratedly. They were rooted in a large number of ancient desolate crystals. It was difficult for them not to grow exaggeratedly after absorbing the energy of the ancient desolate crystals all year round. However, it was strange that they didn't evolve into source-level divine herbs after absorbing such a huge amount of energy. Could this be a vein of ancient desolate crystals? Did we find a vein of ancient desolate crystals? Dandan's eyes were burning. Let's continue to dig out the surrounding rocks and take away these ancient desolate crystals and transparent rocks, Lu Ming said. These transparent rocks were like ice cubes and the ancient desolate crystals were like rice grains. The rice grains were scattered and frozen in the ice cubes. It was too difficult and troublesome to dig out the rice grains from the ice cubes one by one. It was better to take away the whole ice cubes and slowly dig later. They had already been delayed for 3 days because of that cave abode. If they continued to delay, they were afraid that the people of the quasi-saint race and the celestial race would arrive and cause more unforeseen events. Everyone no longer hesitated. They went all out to excavate the surrounding rocks. Large amounts of rocks were removed, revealing even more transparent rocks and desolate crystals. Lu Ming, Dandan, and the others' eyes grew brighter and brighter. How many desolate crystals would that be? In total, there were probably hundreds of millions of desolate crystals. Several 100 million desolate gems was definitely a huge sum. After all, back when he had plundered the illusory Heavenly Palace's treasury, he had only obtained 1 billion desolate gems. It was just that Lu Ming's cultivation was too monstrous and required too many great desolate crystals. That was why people felt that a few 100 million great desolate crystals were not much. This was not all. It took Lu Ming and the others a few days to remove most of the rocks in the area, revealing the entire vein. This was a vein of ore. It looked like a huge dragon. From afar, it was transparent and the great desolate crystals inside looked like stars. It was truly a spectacular sight. I'm afraid there's 1 billion desolate crystals inside. Dandan swallowed his saliva. His eyes were incomparably fiery. I'm afraid there's really 1 billion desolate crystals. This is really shocking. Could it be that all the desolate crystals in this vein are gathered here? Tang Jun said. A vein containing 1 billion desolate crystals was already incomparably shocking. Moreover, this chi meridian shouldn't be very big. Otherwise there wouldn't be no buildings on it. Therefore they speculated that most of the desolate crystals in this vein might be gathered here. There's still some rocks left. Work harder to remove them all. Lu Ming shouted. At this time, not far from here, a group of people was heading towards this place. This group of people was the heavenly human race led by the Lord of Heaven, and the others. The Lord of Heaven, who was at the front, did not look too good. These days they had been searching for treasures under the vein. They had some gains, but it was far less than they had expected. They had obtained a few stalks of main-grade divine herbs. They had obtained more than 20 million desolate crystals. Although it was not a small number, there were more than 2,000 of them. If it was divided, each person would not get much. There were so few treasures in a vein. There's a sound in front. There's someone. Suddenly the Lord of Heaven's ears twitched. He heard a sound coming from ahead. It seemed to be the sound of a sharp weapon cutting rocks. Let's go take a look. The Lord of Heaven took the lead and flew forward with more than 2,000 heavenly human race people. And in front of them was where Lu Ming and the others were. Not long after they arrived. Then they were all stunned. Their eyes widened as they stared at the vein of desolate crystals. Countless desolate crystals were shining so brightly that their eyes were almost blinded. Desolate crystals, they're all desolate crystals. So many. This is a real vein. There are so many of them. We're rich, we're rich. These desolate crystals are all ours. Many heavenly human race people shouted excitedly. Oh no, it's the heavenly human race. Dandan, Wan Shen, and the others' faces changed. There's only a little bit of rock left. Use all your strength to cut off the connection between the vein and the rock. I'll take the desolate crystals. Lu Ming hollered, activating the primordial ring with all his might. The primordial crystal produced a powerful suction force, enveloping the entire primordial crystal mineral vein within it. It pulled wildly, trying to collect the primordial crystal. There was another vein of desolate crystals that was connected to the rock. Bone Demon, Xian Yanqing, Autumn Moon, Qiu, and the others pushed their strength to the limit and used their ultimate skills to attack the connection between the vein of desolate crystals and the rock. Boom, 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 boom. Rocks exploded and debris flew everywhere. Coupled with the powerful suction force of the desolate ring, the connection between the vein of desolate crystals and the rock was finally broken. The entire vein of desolate crystals trembled and then disappeared. Lu Ming kept it in the desolate ring. Lu Ming, it's you? Hand over the vein of desolate crystals. At this moment, the heavenly lord of extermination and the rest finally noticed Lu Ming and the rest. All of them roared furiously and charged toward Lu Ming and the rest. Lu Ming shouted. His body flashed and appeared in front of them. The war god's spear became incomparably huge and swept out, stirring up a huge storm. At the same time, Bone Demon, Qiu, Xian Yanqing, and Autumn Moon appeared in front of them. They blocked Dandan, Qiu, Ling Yue, and the other weaker ones behind them and attacked respectively. Boom, boom, boom. Lu Ming and the others' attacks collided with the attacks of the heavenly human race. They blocked the attacks of the heavenly human race. The terrain here was not wide enough. It was difficult for the 2,000 heavenly human race to attack together. Just now, only a few hundred people attacked. Lu Ming and the others could block them easily. You're courting death. Bone Demon snorted. He ignored his defense and rushed toward the heavenly human race like a bolt of lightning. Chapter 48:33. Swish. An elderly strongest heaven monarch thrust out his golden battle spear and pierced the Bone Devil's body. However, the Bone Devil didn't take it seriously at all. Instead, the purple gold battle axe slashed at him. The old man was shocked and quickly stepped back. Swish. Guemo took the opportunity to rush past them and slashed at them with his purple gold battle axe. Puff, puff, puff. More than a dozen heavenly human tribe experts were killed by the Bone Demon in a row. The death of more than 10 heavenly human experts finally extinguished their greed and calmed them down. Back off. The Lord of Heaven of Annihilation shouted and asked the heavenly human experts to back off. He, the Lord of Heaven of 100 Battles, the 2 old Lord of Heaven and the 2 primitive deity puppets worked together to kill Guemo. Guemo took one of their attacks and rushed out of the encirclement. He returned to Lu Ming and the others like a flash of lightning. The Lord of Heaven of Annihilation and the other 5 Lord of Heaven of Annihilation stood at the front, blocking the other heavenly human experts behind them to prevent Guo from killing them again. Lu Ming, hand over the desolate gem mine. You can't take so many desolate gems. The Lord of Heaven of Annihilation shouted. He was still thinking about the desolate gems. We found the desolate gems first. They should belong to us. Lu Ming said lightly. You chose the location yourselves. You chose a good location and we chose a bad one. Who would have thought that there would be a desolate gem mine below? What? You didn't get anything, right? Dandan said sarcastically. The Lord of Heaven of Annihilation was so angry that he wanted to vomit blood. He never would have thought that the location that seemed to be relatively good at first would actually not have much to gain, and that the greatest gain would actually be here. When he thought of Lu Ming and the others coming here because of him, he was so depressed that he wanted to vomit blood. There are only 10 of you. You want to take so many desolate gems? Aren't you a bit too greedy? How about this? The 10 of you can keep 1/10 and the 2,000 of us can only take 9/10. How about that? The Lord of Heaven of Annihilation said. How about that? Is there something wrong with your head? Do you think that's possible? Let me tell you, you can forget about getting even one desolate gem. Dandan cursed. That's right. The strongest heavenly monarch of the heavenly human race only has this much brain. How pathetic. The Lord of 10,000 gods also. You are all courting death. Don't think that the 10 of you will be able to guard that many great desolate crystals. The heavenly Lord of 100 battles shouted as his battle intent exploded. Do you want to fight? Of God we. Chio cried out and turned into a ball. 2 blades extended from both sides of it, and it continuously brandished them. Each slash tore through space. If you really want to fight to the death, how many of you out of the 2,000 people can survive? Bone Demon sneered. Lu Ming, Xian Yanqing and Chiu Yu didn't say anything, but their energy was fully unleashed. They wanted to tell the other party that if they wanted to fight, they would fight. Many of the 2,000 heavenly human race members showed fear in their eyes. Damn it! The Lord of Heaven of Annihilation roared in his mind, but he didn't do anything. He was almost sure that Lu Ming couldn't unleash the power he had during the battle in the Heaven Destroyer base. But Lu Ming and the other 8 were still too powerful. Among the 10 of them, 5 of them were as powerful as the strongest Heaven Monarch. Although 6 of them were as powerful as the Lord of Heaven, they weren't confident at all. Just Guo alone was able to hold back 2 of the strongest Heaven Monarchs by relying on his unparalleled defensive power. Lu Ming and Xiu were also very powerful when they cooperated. Although they had more people, the result was unpredictable if they really fought. Just as Bone Demon said, if they really fought to the death, how many of the 2,000 heavenly human race members could survive even if they could kill Lu Ming and the others? You don't know when to stop. Sooner or later you'll die. Let's go. After a struggle in his mind, the Lord of Heaven of Annihilation finally decided to leave. He silently planned in his heart that it would not be too late to deal with Lu Ming and the rest after more heavenly human clan experts had gathered. Soon, the heavenly human race members left. Lu Ming and the others didn't chase after them. Because they weren't confident. Besides, they didn't need to risk their lives to fight the heavenly human race. They had just obtained a set of combined arrays suitable for divine masters and a large number of primitive crystals that they hadn't had time to refine. After refining them, their strength would increase greatly. By then, they wouldn't have to worry about the heavenly human race anymore. After the heavenly human race members left, Lu Ming and the others continued to explore the area. Although they had obtained an entire primitive crystal vein, there might be other treasures in the area. Sure enough, not long after, they found some scattered primitive crystals. Although the number couldn't be compared to an entire vein, it was still a lot. Is there still no news from the immortal ancestral patriarch? After the heavenly human race members left, the Lord of Heaven of Annihilation asked with a ferocious look in his eyes. They had already informed the Yi Immortal and wanted the Yi Immortal to come and meet them. They could take advantage of Lu Ming and the others when Lu Ming and the others were weak. There were too many experts in Lu Ming's group, and most of them were peerless geniuses. If they could kill all of them, it would be a devastating blow to the Heaven Destroyer. Unfortunately, they hadn't received any response from the Yi Immortal during this period. No, the Ancestral Patriarch still hasn't responded. He must be too far away from us or in some special environment, an old Lord of Heaven of Annihilation answered. My lord, there are extreme corpses everywhere. Do you think the Ancestral Patriarch is in danger? A middle-aged Lord of Heaven of Annihilation asked worriedly. What nonsense are you talking about? With the immortal Ancestral Patriarch's strength and wisdom, how can these extreme corpses do anything to him? If we are fine, how can the Ancestral Patriarch be in danger? Just continue to transmit your voice. The Lord of Heaven of Annihilation scolded. Although he said so, he was actually a little worried in his heart. However, he couldn't say it out loud. No matter what, he had to show his trust in the ancestral patriarch. Otherwise, it would affect the morale of the army. This subordinate is stupid. How can the ancestral patriarch be in danger? The middle-aged Lord of Heaven of Annihilation immediately reacted and nodded repeatedly. We are also looking for treasures in this area. At the same time, we are monitoring Lu Ming and the others. When the ancestral patriarch and the others arrive, it will be the time of Lu Ming and the others' deaths. Those primitive crystals will be temporarily kept by them. Sooner or later they will be ours. The Lord of Heaven of Annihilation said with murderous intent. While the heavenly human race, quasi-immortal race, and Lu Ming were searching under the Qi vein, an uninvited guest came to the side of this Qi vein. It was the primordial light race, the creatures of the forbidden land of the primordial divine mountain. There were about 400 people in the primordial light race, but each of them had a powerful aura. They were all terrifying experts. The leader was the purple-robed youth who fought with Lu Ming at the Heaven Destroyer's base. He was called the ninth young master by the primordial light race. Chapter 48-34. More than 400 creatures from the primordial sacred mountain appeared above the cracks. Ninth young master, should we charge in immediately? It seems like those small fries have already entered. An old man beside ninth young master said. This person had also been to the Heaven Destroyer's encampment and was extremely powerful. He was a King Realm battle envoy and had the combat strength of the strongest Lord of Heaven. Of course we have to charge in. Look at the location. These two cracks are the largest and the location is the best. They are already below these two cracks. Let's split up and charge in from these two locations. Ninth young master pointed at two locations. These two locations were where the heavenly human race and the quasi-sage race had entered previously. Just as the primordial light race was about to attack, several figures suddenly flew out from one of the cracks. They were from the quasi-sage race. Leading them was Tsang Qiong. They had been searching for a few days but didn't find much. Tsang Qiong planned to go out first and change to another location to search for treasures. But when they saw the primordial light race, their pupils suddenly shrank. I didn't expect them to come out before we could charge in. Well, let's send them on their way. Charge. Ninth young master said coldly. Although their numbers were much smaller than the immortal race, they didn't put the quasi-sage race in their eyes. Swish, swish, swish. Over 200 primordial light race immediately charged towards the quasi-sage race. Their light beam hair fluttered like extremely sharp swords, piercing through the void and stabbing towards the quasi-sage race. Every primordial light race member had over 1,000 light beam hair. When over 200 primordial light race members attacked together, it was as if over 200,000 battle swords had appeared in the void. They were densely packed and filled the void, enveloping all the quasi-sage race members. It was extremely terrifying. Attack! Tsang Qiong shouted and attacked with his strongest attack. The other quasi-sage race members also attacked with all their strength. The quasi-sage race members were also very powerful. The mark between their eyebrows glowed and they attacked with terrifying heat. When thousands of people attacked together, it was as if even space and time were about to burn. They blocked the attacks of the primordial light race in an instant. There are many experts. There's even a King Realm battle envoy. Ninth young master looked at a robust man beside Tsang Qiong. Leave this person to me. There was also a peerless fighter by Jiao Gongzi's side. It was the Guangqian emissary, who had fought Gu Changfeng to a drawback at the Heaven Destroyer base. This Guangqian royal envoy directly ascended to the heavens, and at the edge of the heavens that peerless master similarly he also charged out. The two peerless experts clashed together, unleashing a world-shaking battle. At the same time the others were also engaged in close combat. In the quasi-immortal race, an existence comparable to the strongest Lord of Heaven. Including Firmament there were 9 of them. However, the primordial light race had plenty of such experts. Although only 200 people had been dispatched, there were actually 10 experts of this level. In addition, it was equivalent to a top-level Lord of Heaven or a peak-level Divine Master. There were even more. Therefore, although the Yuan Guang clan has a small population, but for a moment he actually managed to gain the upper hand. Yes, I want to leave. Suddenly, ninth young master looked in another direction. That was the direction where the heavenly human race had entered. The extermination Lord of Heaven and the others had already explored the meridian but did not find anything. They had originally planned to come to the surface to monitor Lu Ming and the others while waiting for the Yi Immortal. They had not expected to see the battle between the primordial light race and the quasi-immortal race as soon as they appeared. They were almost scared to death and hurriedly retreated into the crack. Spread the word that I have been using it recently. /me/me/read /a// /i/ /e//a/c/o/Android and Apple phones supported. Unfortunately, no one from the primordial light race had discovered it. The rest of you follow me. Ninth Young Master ordered. The remaining 200 people from the primordial light race followed Ninth Young Master and charged toward the heavenly human race. The primordial light race was extremely fast. Like streaks of light, they charged into the crack where the heavenly human race was and chased after them. There were more than 2,000 people from the heavenly human race, and their cultivation levels varied. Some of them were very slow, which affected their overall speed. Soon the primordial light race caught up with them. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, his hair was like a sharp sword that pierced toward the heavenly human tribe. Block it! The Lord of Heaven roared. Since they had caught up to him, he could only fight. The Lord of Heaven the Exterminator, the Lord of Heaven the 100 Battles, and the other strongest lords of heaven charged to the front and sent the beams of light flying back. 6 existences comparable to battle envoys. Interesting. Ninth Young Master's lips curled up in a cold smile as a startling murderous intent filled his eyes. Before entering the Purple Heaven Cave, the creatures of the 3 forbidden lands had reached a consensus to eliminate the original creatures of the universe. In the eyes of the creatures of the forbidden lands, the original creatures of the universe such as the celestial race, the quasi-immortal race, the fiend race and the heaven destroyer were in the way. Unless they were willing to be their slaves, they had to be eliminated. Therefore, when they saw the celestial race and the quasi-saint race, they immediately attacked. Bungjio Gongzi stepped out, and a vast aura burst out, pressing towards the heavenly human tribe. The experts beside Jiao Gongzi also burst out with their auras and stepped out. What a terrifying aura. There are at least 7 existences at the level of the Lord of Heaven, or even more. The Lord of Heaven the Exterminator's face turned pale. In fact, it was very difficult to determine whether they were at the level of the Lord of Heaven based on their auras. Because the cultivation of the Lord of Heaven was also at the peak of the Divine Master realm. They were not strong in terms of cultivation but in terms of combat power. Only by fighting could one determine their strength. The Lord of Heaven the Exterminator was at the level of the Lord of Heaven, so he was very sensitive to experts at this level. Based on his experience, he determined that there were at least 7 existences at the same level as him in the primordial light race. This was only his judgment. Perhaps there were still some that he could not judge. In other words, there were at least 7 existences at the level of the Lord of Heaven in the primordial light race. However, there were only 6 of them. Although they had more people, it was useless against an existence at the level of the Lord of Heaven, unless they were all at the level of the Lord of Heaven. If they had more people, they might be able to hold back the Lord of Heaven. However, they did not have many top-level experts at the level of the Lord of Heaven. There were so many top-level experts in the primordial light race. What should I do? The Lord of Heaven the Exterminator's mind raced as he tried to think of a countermeasure. In an instant, dozens of ideas flashed through his mind. That's right. Suddenly, the Lord of Heaven the Exterminator's eyes lit up. He had thought of a countermeasure. Lu Ming. That's right, it was Lu Ming. He had naturally heard about the feud between the primordial light race, the Heaven Destroyer, and Lu Ming. He had also heard about the unusual battle between Lu Ming and the 9th Young Master of the primordial light race. I know where Lu Ming is. Heaven Destroyer's Lu Ming. The Lord of Heaven the Exterminator roared. Lu Ming. The 9th Young Master of the primordial light race's eyes flashed with killing intent. Chapter 48:35. The 9th Young Master of the primordial light race hated Lu Ming very much. He wanted to kill Lu Ming at all times. Back at the Heaven Destroyer station, Lu Ming had not only disobeyed him, but he had also defeated him in the end. Being defeated by an 8th-layer Divine Master in front of his subordinates was a great blow to his prestige. Hence he wanted to kill Lu Ming at all times. Back in the universe ruins, for the sake of the big picture, he had endured and not made a move. Originally, he wanted to kill Lu Ming after entering the Purple Heaven Cave. Unfortunately, he had not met Lu Ming after entering the Purple Heaven Cave. Now that he heard about Lu Ming, his killing intent was completely aroused. The 9th Young Master stopped and said coldly, "Speak. Where is Lu Ming?" "You have to let us go after I tell you." The Extermination Lord of Heaven shouted. "You have no right to negotiate with me. Speak. Otherwise die." The 9th Young Master was very domineering. He did not care about the Lord of Heaven's conditions at all. "If you don't agree to my conditions, don't expect me to tell you," the Extermination Lord of Heaven said. You want to threaten me with this? How naive. Kill. The ninth young master was very decisive. He waved his hand. Boom. Boom. The expert beside him stepped forward again, shaking the void. His light hair danced and his aura was oppressive. Damn it, the extermination Lord of Heaven roared in his heart. He knew that it would be impossible to get rid of the primordial light race easily. However, he had to tell them about Lu Ming's whereabouts. If he told them about Lu Ming's whereabouts, the primordial light race would most likely send people to kill Lu Ming. That would also reduce the pressure on the ninth young master. Lu Ming is in another direction. Follow this crack and you will find him. The extermination Lord of Heaven shouted and pointed in a direction. The ninth young master's eyes flashed. How could he not know the intention to exterminate the Lord of Heaven? However, he was even more eager to kill Lu Ming. All of you stop them. The rest of you follow me. Jiao Gongzi assigned his men and ordered 5 of them who were as powerful as the Lord of Heaven, as well as more than 100 others from the primordial light race to stay behind. He wanted them to hold back the celestial race's men. He personally led the remaining people towards Lu Ming's location. He didn't want to waste any more time. He was afraid that Lu Ming would escape. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. The ninth young master led more than 90 origin light tribesmen and charged towards Lu Ming's location. Their speed was extremely fast. Before long they had reached Lu Ming's location. Full force breakthrough. After ninth young master led his men away, the exterminating Lord of Heaven roared and led his men to break out of the encirclement. This was a rare opportunity. The origin light race only had 5 powerful Lord of Heaven left, while the Jiao Gongzi had 6 of them. This was a good opportunity for them to break through. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to escape when the ninth young master returned. However, even though the origin light race only had about 100 people left, it wasn't easy for them to break out of the encirclement. The light beams of the origin light race danced in the wind and intertwined with each other. They formed an inescapable net that sealed off the surrounding void. Kill. The exterminating Lord of Heaven, the Lord of Heaven of 100 battles, and the 2 old and powerful Lord of Heaven of 100 battles worked together. The 2 primitive godly spirit puppets were like a sharp knife as they attacked fiercely in a certain direction. When the 6 powerful Lord of Heaven worked together, their power was terrifying. The light beams in that direction kept exploding. In the end, the 5 battle envoys of the origin light race worked together to stop them. However, they were still defeated. Of course, the origin light race was at a disadvantage when it was 5 against 6. Set up the formation. At this moment, one of the origin light race's battle envoys gave the order. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Suddenly 7 of the origin light race's elites moved in a flash. A shining armor appeared on their bodies at the same time. The armor was covered with runes. These runes shone brightly and a mysterious aura spread out. The aura of the 7 origin light race elites gathered together. Boom. Powerful energy spread out from the 7 origin light race elites and intertwined with each other to form a giant. Among the 7 of them, 5 of them had 4 limbs and a head. The other 2 were torsos. They formed a giant out of energy and its aura was terrifying. Boom. The giant wielded a battle sword and slashed at the exterminating Lord of Heaven and the others. It collided with the exterminating Lord of Heaven of exterminating, and both sides were pushed back. They were evenly matched. A combined attack formation. A Divine Lord level combined attack formation. The exterminating Lord of Heaven of exterminating shouted in shock. Although the heavenly human tribe did not have a combined attack formation above the Divine Lord level, he had heard of it before. Therefore he recognized it at a glance. Yes, this was a Divine Lord level combined attack formation. The armor on the 7 origin light race elites was the carrier of the combined attack formation. Among the 7 origin light race elites, 4 of them were peak Divine Lords. The other 3 were only 9th level Divine Lords. However, when the 7 of them set up the combined attack formation, their combat strength was comparable to that of the strongest Lord of Heaven. This was the power of a combined attack formation. Without the combined attack array, the combined forces of the 4 ordinary peak stage Divine Masters and 3 9th stage Divine Masters would be no match for the strongest Heavenly Lord, no matter how powerful the primordial light race was and how much stronger they were than the heavenly human race. To put it bluntly, they would not be able to cause any harm to the strongest Lord of Heaven. They would be easily defeated. However, once the combined attack formation was set up, they would be comparable to that of the strongest Lord of Heaven. However, this was not the end of it. The other 7 members of the Primordial Light clan also flickered as armor similar to the previous 7 appeared on their bodies. Another 7 origin light race elites set up a combined attack formation. 5 of them were the 4 limbs and the head, while the other 2 were the torso. They formed a giant. This combined attack formation was exactly the same as the one set up by the 7 Origin Light Race elites. In this way, the Origin Light Race would have 2 more Lord of Heaven's combat strength. Their top combat strength had already surpassed that of the Heavenly Human Tribe. It was no wonder that the 9th Young Master had allowed the Origin Light Race elites to stall the Heavenly Human Tribe, even though the Origin Light Race's combat strength was inferior to the Heavenly Human Tribe's. This was the reason. Boom, 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 boom. The Heavenly Human Tribe elites' momentum was blocked and they could not charge out. Damn it. The exterminating Lord of Heaven of Exterminating roared. His expression was extremely ugly. In the universe, there had never been a combined attack formation above the Divine Master realm. Therefore, he had overlooked this possibility from the beginning. He did not expect that there would be a Divine Master realm combined attack formation among the creatures of the Forbidden Grounds. This had put them in a passive position. If this continued, they would not be able to break out. When the other Origin Light Race elites returned, they would all be killed. Explode. Let the primitive Divine Spirit explode. Suddenly, the exterminating Lord of Heaven of Exterminating roared. Of course, he was transmitting his voice to the Lord of Heaven of 100 Battles and the other Lords of Heaven. Let the primitive Divine Spirit puppet explode. This puppet is comparable to that of the strongest Lord of Heaven. The Lord of Heaven of 100 Battles widened his eyes. The Heavenly Human Tribe had spent a lot of effort to create such a puppet. It would be a pity if it exploded just like that. Now is not the time to hesitate. If it doesn't explode, we will all die. The Lord of Heaven of Exterminating said. Chapter 48:36. In the end, the Lord of Heaven of 100 Battles and the others agreed. The Lord of Heaven of Annihilation was right. Although the primitive godly spirit puppet was extremely precious, could it compare to them? To put it bluntly, the primitive godly spirit puppet was just an experiment by the Heavenly Human Tribe. It was an experiment that used the powerful primitive godly spirit as the foundation and fused with various powerful forces. In the end, it was just a puppet and would be difficult to improve in the future. On the other hand, they had unlimited potential. Their value was completely different. Even if the Yi Immortal knew about it, he would not blame them. In the end, they decided to let one of the primitive godly spirit puppets self-destruct. Boom. The primitive godly spirit puppet's body rapidly grew until it was 1,000,000 feet tall. It stood upright and charged in a direction, completely ignoring its defense and attacking with all its might. Buff, buff. Suddenly, the primitive godly spirit puppet's body was pierced by beams of light and hair. However, the primitive godly spirit puppet did not stop at all. It continued to charge forward, emitting terrifying waves of energy from its body. It's going to self-destruct. Stop it. A Lower King War envoy from the Primordial Light Tribe shouted. He and the other Lower King War envoys, as well as 2 other 7-man war envoys, attacked the primitive godly spirit puppet crazily. They wanted to kill it before it self-destructed. However, it was just a puppet. Moreover, its vitality and defense were extremely strong. It was extremely difficult to kill it quickly. Although the primitive godly spirit puppet's head, one of its arms and one of its legs had been cut off, its self-destruction did not slow down. Its aura was getting stronger and stronger. It emitted a dazzling light like the brightest star. Not good. Retreat. 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 The Primordial Light Tribe shouted. They knew that they could not stop it, so they quickly retreated. The Primordial Light Tribe retreated very quickly, but some people were still one step too slow. Boom. An earth-shattering roar? That primordial godly spirit puppet, which was comparable to the strongest Lord of Heaven, had exploded and created a terrifying destructive power? It swept in all directions. More than 10 Primordial Light Tribe members were swept in. They were smashed into pieces. However, the Primordial Light Tribe had 5 Lower King War envoys and 2 war envoys with 7 war envoys. They avoided the center of the self-destruction. However, when they were hit by the powerful destructive force Primordial Light Tribe members, their bodies shook violently and they almost vomited blood. The siege of the Heavenly Human Tribe by the Primordial Light Race? A huge gap was forcibly created. Go. Exterminate the Lord of Heaven. Was he the first to break out of the encirclement? The other Heavenly Human Tribe powerful beings followed closely behind? Did they all rush out of the gap? Then he flew into the distance. Chase. Don't let them escape? Send 9th Young Master a voice transmission. The Primordial Light Clan members roared and chased after the Heavenly Human Clan members. Let's go to that ancient city. The Lord of Heaven of Extermination shouted. The walls of the ancient city could greatly suppress the extreme Yin corpse, but against the primordial light race? Most likely it would be useless. But the walls of the ancient city? There were still some broken formations left behind. Dealing with the absolute Yin corpse? You don't need these broken arrays? However, it would be useful against the Yuanguang clan. As long as he could activate the remaining formation, he should be able to stop the primordial light tribe. People from the celestial race and quasi-saint race? They had already studied the broken formations on the ancient city as a precaution. In the end, they confirmed that there were some broken formations on the ancient city that they could activate. The Lord of Heaven of Extermination's goal was very simple. He wanted to return to the ancient city and rely on the broken formations to stop the Yuanguang clan. It was too dangerous to run to other places. Once he encountered the extreme Yin corpse or other creatures of the forbidden area, he would be in danger. Defending the ancient city and waiting for reinforcements was the best plan. On the other side, the quasi-saint race had also rushed out of the encirclement. Based on their apparent strength, it would be very difficult for the quasi-saint race to break out of the encirclement of the Yuanguang clan. However, the quasi-saint race had also mastered a joint attack formation of the Divine Lord Realm. They had a 9-person joint attack formation carrier that could allow 9 peak Divine Lord Realm existences to join forces to set up the formation. Its power was very shocking. When it was used, it could fight against several powerful existences at the level of the Lord of Heaven. In the end, they relied on this formation to break out of the encirclement and led the quasi-saint race toward the ancient city. They had the same idea as the heavenly human race. They planned to use the broken formations of the ancient city to resist the Yuanguang clan. While the heavenly human race and quasi-saint race were fighting against the Yuanguang clan, the 9th young master led more than 90 Yuanguang clan experts to find Lu Ming and the others. It's the creatures of the forbidden area of the Yuanji Holy Mountain. Lu Ming and the others' expressions changed when they saw the 9th young master and the others. They had not expected to encounter creatures of the forbidden area in the realm aura. Brat, you are indeed here. Very good, very good. How dare you offend me? Today will be the day you die. Kill them. The 9th young master roared. His aura erupted as he led more than 90 Yuanguang clan experts to attack Lu Ming and the others. Light beams filled the sky and pierced through the void. It was extremely terrifying. It's just the 4 strongest Lord of Heaven. How naive of you to think that you can kill us. Guillemot sneered. As soon as the other party attacked, Guillemot sensed with his sharp intuition that there were only 4 Lord of Heaven level experts among them. They had 5 of the strongest Heaven Monarch realm experts. Be careful. They are setting up a formation. It's a joint attack formation of the Divine Master Realm. Dandan suddenly shouted. Indeed, as the Yuanguang clan rushed toward Lu Ming and the others, some of their figures flickered and began to set up a formation. There were 2 groups of people in total. One group consisted of 7 people. A set of armor appeared on each of their bodies. The armor was full of runes. Among the 7 people, 5 of them had 4 limbs and a head. 2 of them had a torso. They formed a giant with a battle sword in their hands. This joint attack formation was exactly the same as the one set up against the heavenly human race. The other group was even more shocking. There were 9 people setting up a formation. Each of the 9 people held a battle sword covered with runes. These battle swords were the carrier of the joint attack formation. Their auras were connected. The 9 of them joined together and formed a giant battle sword. It was extremely terrifying. It slashed toward Lu Ming and the others. Its speed was faster than the others and it was the first to approach Lu Ming and the others. Guillemot rushed forward and swung his purple-gold battle axe. He slashed down and hit the giant battle sword. With a loud boom, Guillemot's body shook violently. Then, like a cannonball, he was sent flying backward. Lu Ming and the others' hearts sank. The battle sword was able to send Guillemot flying with one blow. Its power was shocking. It was obviously beyond the strength of the Lord of Heaven. Fortunately, Guillemot's defense was shockingly strong. There was no need to worry about him. Oh no, this joint attack formation is set up by 9 peak divine masters. Too powerful. We can't stop it. Retreat. Dandan exclaimed. Let's go. Lu Ming also shouted. These creatures of the Forbidden Land had mastered a joint attack formation of the Divine Master Realm. They were no match for them. Now, there were only 7 and 9 people setting up the formation. Who knew if there were any more advanced joint attack formations? Lu Ming and the others quickly retreated. You want to leave? Today none of you will leave. Jiao Gongzi shouted coldly. Chapter 48:37. Jiao Gongzi was filled with murderous intent as he charged toward Lu Ming and the others. The battle saber formed by the 9 people's joint attack was too fast. It continued to slash toward Lu Ming and the others. Before the saber slashed down, the terrifying saber aura had already caused Lu Ming and the others to feel pain on their skin. It was as if they had been cut by a small knife. Dandan, is there any way to break their joint attack formation? Lu Ming sent a voice transmission to Dandan at an extremely fast speed. No. The joint attack formation of the Divine Master Realm and above uses the carrier as its foundation. It is extremely difficult to break. Unless you have an extremely strong combat strength to shatter their carrier, Dandan replied. Lu Ming was speechless. If they wanted to break the formation, they would have to have a combat strength that far exceeded their opponents. However, if they had such combat strength, they would be able to tear the formation apart directly. Why would they need to break the formation's carrier? Bus. The battle god spear in Lu Ming's hand vibrated as he planned to take the attack head-on. Lu Ming, leave it to me. Qiuqiu flew out and turned into a suit of armor that blocked the attack of the saber. Clang. There was an earth-shattering explosion. Qiuqiu's armor shook violently and twisted continuously. In the end, it retreated like a bone demon. However, it still managed to block the attack in the end. Lu Ming, Xian Yanqing and the others took the opportunity to retreat. Space-time vortex. Sky demon field. As they retreated, Qiuqiu unleashed the space-time power to the maximum. The power of time and space spun wildly and formed a huge vortex that tried to pull the people of the Primordial Light Tribe into it. At the same time, Xian Yanqing also unleashed the Sky Demon Field to disrupt the people of the Primordial Light Tribe. This was undoubtedly effective. The speed of the people of the Primordial Light Tribe was somewhat affected. Lu Ming and the others took the opportunity to fly a long distance away. Dandan had already transformed into his original form. His turtle shell glowed. As he flew, numerous runes flew out of it and disappeared into the void. Chase after them? Chase after them. Don't let them escape. Jiao Gongzi roared. He led his men in hot pursuit. Lu Ming and the others quickly met up with Bone Demon and Qiuqiu and flew in the same direction. The direction in which they were flying? It was the same ancient city from before. In that ancient city, there were many incomplete formations. With Dandan's understanding of formations, she was able to activate many of them. Behind? Was the Primordial Light clan chasing after them? But while Dandan was flying, setting up an array on the side? Disrupting the Primordial Light race along the way? Bubbles and Xian Yanqing at the same time. Using the space-time power and the heavenly demon domain to disrupt their opponents, it would be very difficult for the Primordial Light Tribe to catch up to Lu Ming and the others in a short time. Not long after that ancient city, it was already in sight. Was it the celestial race and the quasi-immortal race? They actually fled back here. Far away. Lu Ming and the others saw the people from the celestial race and the quasi-sage race. The people from the celestial race and the quasi-sage race were holding divine weapons with blue firestones and charging towards the ancient city. This was because there were still some extreme corpses around the ancient city. These extreme corpses kept charging towards the quasi-sage race, the celestial race and the primordial light race. The celestial race and the quasi-sage race had divine weapons with blue firestones, so it was easy for them to deal with the extreme corpses. They easily opened up a path and quickly approached the ancient city. What surprised Lu Ming and the others was the primordial light race. The primordial light race could actually deal with the extreme corpses, and it didn't seem to be very difficult. The primordial light race's light beam hair fluttered in the wind and vibrated at a special frequency. When it pierced towards the extreme corpse, it easily pierced through the extreme corpse's body. The extreme corpse's body was covered with a thick layer of black gas, which made the extreme corpse's defense extremely shocking. Lu Ming and the others had a deep understanding of this. However, the people from the primordial light race could easily pierce through the extreme corpse's defense. The powerful extreme corpses were fine, but some of the weaker primordial light race members could also easily pierce through the extreme corpse's defense. This made Lu Ming and the others very surprised. They seemed to know the extreme corpse's weakness very well. Moreover, the black gas on the extreme corpse's body doesn't seem to have a strong defense against the primordial light race's power. Tang Jun said softly. Lu Ming nodded. He had also noticed this. It was no wonder that the primordial light race didn't seem to be afraid of the extreme corpse even though they didn't have blue firestones. Could the extreme corpse be related to the living beings in the Forbidden Grounds? Otherwise, why would it be like this? Lu Ming's mind raced, but he couldn't figure it out. However, the blue firestones were still more effective against the extreme corpse. Therefore, the people from the celestial race and the quasi-sage race advanced even faster. Charge! Lu Ming and the others also rushed toward the ancient city. Naturally, some extreme corpses also rushed toward Lu Ming and the others. However, there were also some extreme corpses that rushed toward Jiu Gongzi and the others. Disgusting corpses refined by the extreme tribe. Get lost! Jiu Gongzi shouted coldly. His light beam hair danced in the wind and pierced through the bodies of a few extreme corpses. The other primordial light race members also attacked with all their might. However, they weren't as fast as Lu Ming and the others. The extreme corpses here weren't particularly strong. This was because the strong ones had already been killed by them when they left. Therefore, Lu Ming and the others were extremely fast. The extreme corpses in front of them were either killed or sent flying. Just as the quasi-sage race and the celestial race rushed into the ancient city, Lu Ming and the others also approached the ancient city. Quick, activate the array. Don't let the primordial light race members in. The exterminating Lord of Heaven shouted. When he looked at Lu Ming and the others, his eyes flashed with killing intent. Buzz buzz buzz. Those from the celestial race and the quasi-sage race who knew array formations started to activate the array formations on the ancient city with all their might. Those who didn't know array formations kept launching long-range attacks to stop the primordial light race members. Fortunately, they had already studied the array formations on the ancient city. Therefore, it wasn't too difficult to activate them. Buzz buzz buzz. Suddenly the ancient city lit up. Runes filled the air and the array formations were activated one after another. Many of them were defensive array formations. They formed layers of light shields that enveloped the ancient city. Of course, some of them were offensive array formations as well. Go over there and activate the array formations. The primordial light race members are coming in. The exterminating Lord of Heaven pointed in a direction and shouted. His eyes flashed with cold light. Because that direction was the direction that Lu Ming and the others were coming from. Lu Ming and the others hadn't entered the city yet, but the Lord of Heaven wanted to activate the array formations. Obviously, he wanted to take the opportunity to stop Lu Ming and the others outside. Immediately, a few celestial race experts who were proficient in array formations rushed over there and activated the array formations on the city walls. Buzz buzz. Runes filled the city walls and several defensive array formations appeared. Damn it. These guys want to stop us outside. The myriad gods roared in anger. They want to stop us outside? With me here they are too naive. Dandan said. The turtle shell lit up and an array formation flew out from Dandan's turtle shell. It enlarged and flew onto the defensive array formations. The defensive array formations immediately trembled and caved in. A gap appeared. Lu Ming and the others rushed in through the gap. Chapter 48:38. Lu Ming and the others rushed into the ancient city through the gap. The gap quickly disappeared. Boom. The Wan Shin stepped out and a powerful aura spread out, suppressing the heavenly human tribe. What did you mean? Are you blind? Can't you see that we haven't entered? Are you trying to stop us from entering? The Wan Shin shouted and stared at the Lord of Heaven of Extermination and the others. It's a misunderstanding. We activated the array when we saw that the primordial light tribe was about to enter. After all, it would be troublesome if the primordial light tribe were to enter. Heavenly Lord of Extermination smiled faintly and said casually, "Do you think it's that easy to brush it off with just a sentence?" The Wan Shin said angrily. Boom, boom, boom. At that moment, the primordial light tribe arrived. Strands of light hair pierced the defensive array like sharp swords, causing a series of explosions. Everyone, the enemy is right in front of us. We should work together to deal with the enemy. Sangqiong said not far away. Young Master Sangqiong is right. We should work together now. This is not the time for internal strife. The Lord of Heaven of Extermination smiled coldly. Damn it. The Wan Shin was furious. Don't worry, Wan Shin. We will settle this score sooner or later. Lu Ming patted the Wan Shin's shoulder and smiled. He would remember this score and settle it sooner or later. Indeed, this was not the time to do so. Otherwise, the primordial light tribe would benefit from it. Dandan also joined the group of people activating the array. On the city wall, remnants of the array were activated. Most of them were defensive and a few of them were offensive. Unfortunately, too many years had passed and only remnants of the array were left. Compared to their heyday, their power was worlds apart. However, there were a lot of them. Stacked together, their power was still impressive. They had blocked the attacks of the primordial light tribe. Furthermore, a small number of offensive array formations had killed more than a dozen primordial light tribe members. What about the remaining primordial light tribe members? They retreated to a certain distance. The three groups of Primordial Light Tribe members gathered again. There were about 400 of them. Ninth young master? What should we do? The array of the ancient city? Is it powerful? It's not easy to break. One of the war envoys said. The ancient city is very big? We're going to be all of them? Gather them together? These formations were all incomplete, and their might was limited. If they were to fight for too long, it would be impossible for them to succeed. I can definitely break it. Also, send them a message? Let them all gather here? These people's lives are mine. Ninth young master said coldly, his eyes brimming with murderous intent. It was as cold as a blade. Yes. Immediately, the 400 or so Primordial Light Tribe members gathered together and attacked a specific part of the array formation, causing it to tremble continuously. They want to work together to attack one place. Let's also attack and disrupt them. Firmament Path. The Quasi-Saint race, Celestial race, and Lu Ming's group also gathered at that location and launched long-range attacks from within the array formation. Attacking from the inside out would not be affected by the formation. The attacks were still affecting the Primordial Light Tribe greatly, causing them to be unable to attack in peace. Retreat. After attacking for a while, the members of the Primordial Light race retreated and stopped attacking. They cleared out the scattered Extreme Een corpses around them and formed a fan shape, surrounding the ancient city. They finally retreated. Many people in the ancient city heaved a sigh of relief. However, Firmament Path, Lord of Heaven, and some other intelligent people did not look good. They knew that the Primordial Light race was most likely waiting for reinforcements. Once the reinforcements arrived, they would be in danger. Should we break out? An old man beside Firmament Path asked. Firmament Path frowned and thought quickly. Now they had two choices. One was to stay here and rely on the ancient city's array formation to resist the Primordial Light race. Then they would spread the news and wait for the Quasi-Saint race's reinforcements. However, the Primordial Light race was definitely waiting for reinforcements as well. It would depend on whose reinforcements arrived first. The other choice was to break out now and fight their way out of the encirclement. Currently, there were not many members of the Primordial Light race. There were many experts and top-notch experts in the Primordial Light race, and they also had many joint attack arrays. However, if the Quasi-Saint race, Celestial race, and Lu Ming's group joined forces, they might be able to break out. However, breaking out of the encirclement was also very risky. Even if they managed to break out of the encirclement, they might encounter other creatures from the Forbidden Lands. After all, there were three groups of creatures from the Forbidden Lands. They had only seen one of them. Firmament Path could not make up his mind. Lord of Heaven and the others were also thinking about the same thing. Look over there. Suddenly, someone pointed to the south and shouted. Many people looked over and their expressions changed drastically. They saw streaks of flowing light flying over from that direction. It was the Primordial Light race from the Forbidden Lands. Everyone saw clearly that the streaks of flowing light were also from the Primordial Light race. The reinforcements from the Primordial Light race had arrived so quickly. Many people's hearts sank. Fortunately, there were not many Primordial Light race members here. There were only about 300 of them. Soon, the 300 Primordial Light race members met up with the ninth young master and the others. The number of Primordial Light race members outside the city walls had reached 700. This is troublesome. It will be difficult to break out of the encirclement now. Firmament Path muttered. The Primordial Light race was very strong. They could suppress the heavenly human race in a battle of the same level. Previously, there were only 400 of them, but it was already very difficult to deal with them. Now that there were 300 more, the heavenly human race was not confident of breaking out of the encirclement even if they wanted to. However, the Primordial Light race members did not attack. They continued to surround the city walls, waiting for reinforcements. Dandan, let's go and refine that combined attack formation first. Lu Ming transmitted his voice to Dandan. The current situation was very unfavorable for them. They had to increase their strength as soon as possible. The combined attack formation was undoubtedly the quickest way to increase their strength. The combined attack formation required 12 people to perform together. However, if there were not enough people, they could still perform it. It was just that they would not be able to unleash the full power of the combined attack formation. Alright, let's go and refine it immediately. Dandan nodded his head. He told Firmament Path and the others to send them a message if anything happened. Then he left the city walls. What are these guys up to now? Are they going to refine those primordial crystals? Damn it! The exterminating Lord of Heaven roared in his heart. He was very anxious. The thought of the piles of primordial crystals being refined by Lu Ming and the others made him feel very uncomfortable. However, the primordial light race had not attacked the city yet. He could not find a reason to stop Lu Ming and the others. Lu Ming and the others found a secret place in the ancient city. Dandan set up a concealment formation around it. Then he took out the 12 metal plates and gave each of them one plate. Each metal plate has a different formation on it. In order to successfully set up the combined attack formation, you have to refine the metal plates first. Then you have to familiarize yourself with the formation on it. Then you have to work together. Only when you work together perfectly can you unleash the full power of the combined attack formation. Dandan explained the main points of the combined attack formation.